The invasion of the human world began with monsters. A portal appeared out of nowhere, and an endless stream of monsters came through it. Monsters came to Earth from another kingdom. Humanity was faced with the threat of destruction. All the streets were filled with screams and death. The monsters devoured and killed people indiscriminately. Out of nowhere, a weapon that no one had seen before appeared. The spear glowed, engulfed in an unknown energy. The spear pierced the monster's head. The spear began to glow, emitting an unfamiliar energy. The monster's head was shattered into many pieces by the explosive force of the spear. A new golden sign appeared in the sky, a new portal, different from the one the monsters had passed through. Through the portal, as if salvation itself, representatives of the world of swords and magic descended to Earth. They held spears in their hands as they rode on Pegasi, and were clad in armor, the Knights of Einhart. The monsters on the ground let out a battle cry upon seeing the Einhart Knights. All the monsters' attention turned to the Einhart Knights descending to Earth through the portal. A battle broke out between the monsters and the knights right in the sky. The monsters were struck one after another, exploding with energy from the spears. At the same time, thanks to the internal energy, the people of Murim moved to another place directly through the air, using martial arts. Representatives of the Murim martial arts world entered into battle with monsters. They passed through a portal that connected Earth and their world. At the same time, a third portal opened on Earth. Even more terrible monsters began to crawl out of it. This portal connected Earth with Gehenna, the land of demons, which even by its name suggested that this place was similar to hell. All the monsters that were on Earth bowed before those who were higher from Gehenna. Ordinary people suffered terribly from what was happening. They became victims of monsters that took away their dominion. However, not everyone was left to be just victims. A group of people called the Awakened participated in the battle and saved ordinary citizens. These people challenged the system by gaining superpowers and became known as players. Currently, players have freed a group of people from the tentacles of an octopus-like monster. The players moved through the sky with the rescued people, thanks to their superpowers, while the people from Murim fought the monsters. The Murim native began to grumble at the people, noticing their group, reminding them to stay out of the way. The players landed in a safe place, so that the people they saved could leave. The rescued thanked the players, running away from the portal as they were told. After they left, Lee Iron, our protagonist, removed the mask that covered half of his face and commented on the warrior Murim they had met. His comrades looked at him in surprise, wondering what was so surprising about his disdain for people. The long-haired boy simply sighed, thinking that Murimovitz probably had a high-ranking magic circle. Their conversation was interrupted by a scream from the street, and Iron turned around to see the monster attacking a car with civilians. Iron activated the status window with simple movements in the air. A request for emergency evacuation and a description of a three-headed werewolf monster appeared before his eyes. Without asking his comrades' opinions, Iron asked what they were waiting for, pointing his finger down, because they needed to catch this three-headed dog. Iron rushed out into the street, jumping through the window, not even thinking to wait for his comrade's answer. Iron ignored the attempt to stop him, feeling like he was in free fall. Iron caught his weapon on the roof of the building. Someone was scolding him over the communication channel, reminding him that the Vulcan Guild should deal with mid-rank monsters. Without stopping for a second, Iron noted to his comrade that the Vulcan Guild was not coping. His weapon returned to him when he was already in front of the monster. Iron shouted to his comrade that this was just real support, throwing his weapon at the monster. Iron's weapon hit the throat of one of the monster's heads. The members of the Vulcan Guild were surprised by the outside interference. Opening up inside the monster, the weapon turned into a hook, making it impossible to get rid of it. Iron used the exclusive hidden skill status control. His stats increased so that he could face the mid-rank monster. Iron held the monster in place until the woman and child in the car the monster had previously attacked was finally able to open the door. All three heads of the monster growled at Iron. By holding the monster back, Iron allowed the woman and child to escape. Iron gritted his teeth, telling his teammate that he was running out of strength and wouldn't be able to hold off the monster for much longer. Iron turned around, asking his comrade to quickly cut off the dog's head with a smile. His comrade was already approaching, lamenting that Iron never listened to his words. His comrade, who was a tank, braced himself for the blow, angrily telling Iron that he wouldn't survive with him. Iron thought about how his comrade, his best friend, always had his back. His comrade struck. He started to talk to Iron when a blow came to his back. There was genuine shock on Iron's face as he looked at his best friend. But his comrade looked at him with undisguised anger, asking Iron not to interfere with his life and just die. The physical pain from the blow pierced Iron along with a feeling of betrayal. Iron saw his friend smiling as he stood surrounded by the Vulcan Guild after he stabbed Iron in the back. Iron gathered all his remaining strength to escape, no longer paying attention to the monster. Iron came home to take the one he loved and run away together. But betrayal awaited Iron at home too, and the girl asked him for forgiveness with tears in her eyes. She asked for forgiveness for betraying him as members of the Vulcan Guild appeared behind her. Iron felt devastated that everyone he trusted had betrayed him in an instant. A long time passed. Iron fell face down in the dirt, not paying much attention to it. Iron simply fell flat into the mud. The rude man, the boss, was yelling at Iron to go faster. The man stepped on Iron's head, pushing him deeper into the mud, mockingly asking if he was really once a high-ranking player. Iron was in Muje-Yeon, a place where the corpses of monsters were buried under the responsibility of the Vulcan Guild, and it completely resembled hell. Death was common in such a place. They were simply squeezed out of everything possible, forced to work until they were blue in the face, as if they were slaves. This is the place where Iron spent the last 5 years of his life. Iron no longer paid attention to the way his boss's foot was trampling his head into the dirt. He was trying to figure out where his status window had gone. His vision was blank. He could barely focus his gaze. Iron felt his strength leaving him, his eyes slowly closing. A faint flickering, as if with interference, appeared before Iron's eyes. Iron opened his eyes, staring at the status window. The status window began to display messages stating that Iron had been chosen as the source of chaos, and if he accepted, it could destroy the world. Iron smiled like a madman. He didn't care that the choice could lead to the destruction of the world. The only thing he thought about was getting rid of the pain. Iron gave his consent, and everything around him seemed to become distorted, just like him. Iron felt everything around him changing, as if he was moving somewhere. Iron found himself in a different place, and the sounds of voices discussing his haggard state reached him. Iron looked up. 3 legendary beings who ruled the world looked at him. 3 rulers looked at the new source of chaos with interest. Iron looked at the 3 rulers, his expression unchanged, and before him stood the forgotten legends of the 3 worlds. Iron looked at everyone in turn, a menacing-looking man, an old man whose ribs were visible, and a devilishly beautiful woman who twirled a lock of hair around her finger. The first man, Mu Wan, was the King of Silver, who conquered the continent with one blow. The second man, the Sword King, the ruler of the world Einhart, who tore apart the heavens with one swing of his sword. And the woman, the ruler of Gehenna, the Queen of Demons and the Goddess of Murder, who destroyed divinity. The 3 lords were imprisoned in the world of chaos, where Iron found himself. The Sword King and Mu Wan were talking to each other, trying to get Iron's attention. The Demon Queen examined Iron, justifying his condition by saying that he had been dragged there too suddenly. Iron ignored them, staring at the status window that instructed him to follow the path laid out before him. Iron rose to his feet to follow the path that had appeared, wondering if he could get his revenge. Images of loved ones who betrayed him surfaced in his memories. Iron walked past the 3 lords, ignoring their comments about his rudeness. Only the question of his revenge made Iron stop. The Sword King continued speaking while looking at Iron's back. He said that it would now be possible for him to destroy the world. Iron looked ahead at the path he had been told to take, admitting that he felt calmer after the Sword King's words. The Sword King corrected him, saying that then retribution would befall his traitors not from Iron personally, but from chaos itself. Mu Wan, tired of beating around the bush, chimed in and said that Iron would be deprived of his body and consciousness, and would only receive a notification that the world had been destroyed. Iron was silent, considering their words. The Demon Queen joined the discussion, asking Iron if this would truly be enough for him. Iron finally turned his head slightly towards them, asking what else he could do. As if expecting this question, the Demon Queen said that they could allow him to take revenge with his own hands. Everyone started smiling madly, and Mu Wan and the Sword King added that Iron should fully experience what killing was. Iron looked at them, but his face was just as distant. Iron pointed to his body, which had lost all its strength and had become a slave, asking how he would do all this in such a state. He was stopped. The Dream King began to talk about how Iron would accept their power. Mu Wan, who supported the explanation, said that Iron would be able to contain chaos itself within himself. The Demon Queen, placing her hand on her chest, promised that retribution would no longer be a problem, and Iron would be able to at least rule the world. They acted as tempters, convincing Iron to accept their help and powers. Iron looked at the path the system had offered him, thinking that it didn't matter what their true purpose was in him becoming a disciple. Thinking that he could get revenge, Iron accepted the offer, asking if he could call them teachers. The 3 lords were a little taken aback by the speed of his decision-making, but quickly gave their consent. This is how Iron became the disciple of the 3 lords. After this, Iron became absorbed in training with the overlords. in a space devoid of the concept of time and death. Iron continued to undergo brutal training. Each of the lords paid maximum attention to his training. And finally, Iron was able to contain the chaos within himself. Iron's eyes opened after completely absorbing the chaos. Iron saw a terribly familiar picture in front of him, his boss scolding him, trampling him into the dirt with his foot. The chief was about to strike again, putting his strength into the leg. Iron instinctively jumped back to the side, not allowing himself to be hit. His thoughts occupied with the fact that time had not moved even for a second while his training was going on. Iron caught the chief's leg and threw him aside. The boss, not prepared for such a turn of events, screamed in shock, falling to the ground. Iron checked for a status window as he watched the boss fall. The status window did not open for Iron. Iron looked at his hands, realizing that his body remained in the same state as before he started training. He remembered the words of the teachers who did not let him think that the 100 years spent on training were just a dream. Mu Wan had told him in advance that when he returned to his world, most likely all the powers he had received from them would disappear. Iron, who had changed beyond recognition during the training, asked the reason for this. The Demon Queen answered his question by explaining that the world could not withstand such forces, especially due to the presence of chaos within Iron. Iron tried to understand what would happen after his return, but Mu Wan interrupted him by asking what he was going to do, hinting that he would need to rebuild his body to withstand the force. Currently, Iron stood with his hand covering his face, his thoughts occupied with the fact that he needed to train again. The chief rose from the ground, shouting threats. Iron looked at him as if he had already forgotten about his presence. The boss wasted no time in attacking Iron with a punch. Iron caught his fist with his hand, stopping the blow. Chief Chul Tai Min, who had been bullying Iron for the past 5 years in this world, was surprised that he started fighting back. Iron thought about the difference in strength between their bodies, but quickly dismissed the thought of losing. Iron's face showed all his determination. Iron remembered Mu Wan's advice that by controlling the lust for murder, even a villager could defeat his opponent. Mu Wan revealed to Iron the simple truth that the lust for murder is about inner strength. This truth made Iron's eyes widen. At the moment, Iron's eyes were displaying this inner strength like a flame. Chief Chol became nervous, unable to look away. In front of the boss stood Iron, full of murderous intent, his eyes burning, promising that the boss would be torn to shreds. Chief Chol felt his arm, which he was about to strike with, break under Iron's pressure. Iron's desire to tear his boss apart was clear in his eyes. Iron reached out to the chief, breaking through his flesh. The boss felt like he had been pierced through and through. Chief Chol's face was distorted with horror. Chief Chol Wu fell to the ground, screaming at the sight of Iron. His chest was fine. The slaves surrounding them did not understand what was happening, looking at Iron and the boss with horror. Iron stood over the boss as if nothing had happened, his hand holding his fist still extended forward. Iron used fear, deciding that it was better than clumsily resisting with such a weak body. He looked at the unconscious boss, turning away from him as if it didn't matter. Iron knew that Chief Chol would now tremble at the mere sight of him. Iron didn't waste any time. He knew he had to finish before the people of Vulcan found out about everything. He walked confidently past the other slaves. The voice of one of the slaves, asking where he was going, reached Iron's ears as he grabbed the chain. The chain clanked as it hit the ground. Iron looked deep into the monster burial site, which was filled with toxic odors emanating from the corpses. A place that no one dares to go too close to, which is compared to hell. Iron turned to the other slaves, simply stating that he was going to be reborn in this place. Without waiting for an answer, Iron jumps down. The slaves look after him, shocked by what happened. Iron falls down, filled with determination. Iron is determined to hold out as he flies through the toxic stench. Iron lands in a corpse-like fluid of rot and blood, immersing his entire body in it. After some time, small bubbles appear on the surface in the place where he dived. Iron surfaces, his eyes glowing red, knowing he has found the perfect place to hone his blood demon technique. While training with Mu Wan, Iron learned from him that there were many techniques, but the blood demon technique was the strongest. Mu Wan sat opposite Iron, explaining the very simple principle of this technique, which was to steal someone else's property and make it your own. Iron was surprised when Mu Wan said the main goal was blood. Blood technique is the process of absorbing life energy from blood using dark magic to accumulate internal power. Iron closed his eyes, immersed in the lake of monster blood, remembering his training. He remembered Mu Wan's instructions, who had given him the task of creating Dantian within himself. Dantian was a source of power for the warriors of the Silver World, similar to a magical core. Iron sank into the blood, remembering that it was impossible to create it if you were not from the Silver World. Mu Wan flashed through his memories, revealing another way to him. Mu Wan said that no matter how long it takes, no matter how many lives it might take, you just have to keep going until you succeed. That's exactly what Iron did. He kept doing it until he got it right. Iron followed the method of his teachers, which had been developed over more than 3,000 years. Iron endured unimaginable pain, screaming uncontrollably, and survived thousands of deaths. It was this method that helped him create Dantian during his training with his teachers. Iron remembered the process clearly. The first step was to collect blood and energy. Having finished with this, he proceeded to the second step. From all the blood and energy he had to create Dantian. Iron began the blood demon technique. Feeling incredible pain in the process, Iron continued. The pain that made veins bulge and throats ache from screaming. A pain incomparable to anything in this world. There was another reason why they tried not to get too close to the burial site. This burial site was inhabited by mutants created from the dead energy emanating from the bodies, and this place was considered a lair of the dead. Iron, having remastered the blood demon technique, stood on all fours, trying to catch his breath as the dead surrounded him. One of the dead men rushed at him first, accustomed to the fact that everything that got inside the burial was their prey. Iron extended his hand, easily catching the dead man. Iron's body had fully recovered. He no longer looked like an exhausted slave, and he saw nothing special in the goblin zombie. The rest rushed after the first goblin zombie. Iron easily crushed the head of the dead man he caught, knowing full well that every attack they made carried poison. Iron looked up, looking at those who might have been his dinner if he had been in his old body. Iron used the blood demon technique, absorbing the blood of the slain dead. Iron finally felt alive, having regained some of the strength he had lost after training. He punched the dead man in the head, finishing him off. Iron continued to absorb the blood of his opponents, converting it into his own energy. There was another advantage to this technique. The blood and iron residue that Iron collected could be turned into a steel ball. Iron used steel balls as weapons. He threw the ball at the dead man, blowing off his head to finish him off. Iron continued to create steel balls, promising his opponents that he would absorb them without leaving a trace. The steel balls hit their targets, blowing off the heads of the undead goblins. Iron moved forward, continuing to gather blood for his energy. Despite the number of opponents, Iron did not feel any difficulty in fighting them. He crushed some heads with his bare hands. In parallel, Iron continued to create steel balls using the remains of blood and iron. Each time the number of balls increased, and each of them hit its target. Iron grew stronger by absorbing energy, considering all the undead goblins as mere prey that belonged to him. Iron killed every single one of the undead goblins. His prey fell behind him when he finished. Iron exhaled, absorbing the blood of everyone he killed. He looked at his hand, deciding that his powers weren't that bad. A large zombie monster appeared behind Iron and swung at Iron. Iron jumped back from where the zombie monster had struck, sensing its approach. Iron looked at the monster that appeared in front of him with a little interest. The zombie troll kept his eyes on Iron, growling and claiming him as his prey. Iron finally felt a little interested in the upcoming battle, initially expecting about this level of opponent. At the same time, Chief Chol sat on the ground and clasped his head in his hands, talking nonsense about how he would soon die. The man who betrayed Iron in the past, Kim Shin Hong, looked down on him, realizing that his boss was completely broken. Kim Shin Hong was approached by his subordinate, who informed his commander that he had brought all the guards who were there during the incident. Shin Hong approached the lined-up guards and ordered them to report everything that happened during the incident. One of the guards began to tell about what happened between Chief Chol and one of the slaves, who was Iron. Shin Hong ignored the guard's nervousness, demanding more details, and the guard mentioned the strange look the slave had when he looked at the boss. Shin Hong felt something was wrong. The description sounded like a desire to kill, but that required a lot of inner strength. Shin Hong asked where the slave who had done all this was, and all the guards shuddered. The guard who had spoken earlier answered very hesitantly that the slave had committed suicide, but Shin Hong asked where the body was then. The guard replied that the slave had gone to the monster burial area and suggested that the body had decomposed from the corpse poisons. This answer angered Shin Hong. Shin Hong grabbed the slave's face, squeezing it in his hand. Shin Hong held the slave, not hiding his anger at the lie about suicide. He asked if the guard understood why he was called. While the guard was suffocating in his grip, Shin Hong continued that he didn't care that the chief was beaten. He felt like the slave's trace was destroyed on its own. Shin Hong told the guard that because of his lies, he deserved to die. The guard began to justify himself, asking for forgiveness, while the capillaries in his eyes burst from the pressure. Shin Hong squeezed the hand that was holding the guard's face, crushing his head and causing drops of blood to fall on him. The other guards stood at attention, afraid that the same fate would befall them. Shin Hong didn't even look at them when he gave them a choice between death and searching for that slave's corpse in the monster burial ground. Shin Hong turned his furious gaze towards them, ordering them to hurry. The guards ran down the tunnel, wanting to carry out the order as quickly as possible and save their lives. Shin Hong, remaining with his subordinates, said that the guards would die from the poison anyway before they found anything, and said that they should go themselves. Shin Hong continued to curse everyone in his mind. Iron had been buried for 2 weeks already. Iron continued to kill and absorb the blood of monsters, increasing his energy. Iron looked around him, noticing that during this time he had absorbed the bodies of almost all the mutants, as they were encountered less and less often. A ball of energy accumulated above Iron's hand, symbolizing that he had managed to reach the second stage of the bloody technique. Iron looked at the wall in the burial, feeling a powerful stream of poison coming from there. Iron threw the ball he had created using the second stage of his blood technique at the wall. The power of this stage, one's own blood, was in the concentration of force and explosion. When the ball reached the wall, there was an explosion, releasing concentrated force. Iron stood and watched as the debris of the wall, stones, flew in different directions from the explosion that cleared a passage for him. With the second stage reached, Iron's body's resistance to poison increased significantly. If not for this, there would have been nothing left of his body. Iron knew that even with this he wouldn't last long, but it should be enough for him to get started on the main goal. Iron remembered the transcendental beings, the level of which is so dangerous that it is better not to mess with them. Among such creatures, the most noble were the dragons, and now Iron stood in front of the skeleton of one of them. Iron remembered the past, how one day a dragon came out of the portal. The dragon appeared long after the monsters first appeared, and this serpent was full of rage. In order to kill the dragon, many players risked their lives, and somehow they managed to defeat it. The world was in chaos, but everyone was interested in the dragon's corpse, which could be used to make a lot of armor and for alchemy. Iron looked at the skeleton in front of him, knowing that even in death, it was full of poison, rage, and magical power. One touch could melt it. The skeleton was kept here to be cleaned naturally using slaves, and Iron reached out to touch the skull. Iron used the blood demon technique on the dragon skeleton. Iron remembered the conversation with Mu Wan when he told him about the dragon embryo. Iron initially shared his plans to absorb the dragon with his teacher, and Mu Wan noted that it was for his own recovery. But after that, Mu Wan smiled, telling Iron that it would most likely be terribly painful. Currently, Iron continued to absorb the dragon, screaming in pain. Iron knew full well that he was already on the edge, and was only able to hold out until this point thanks to his training with the teachers. Iron felt his internal energy rapidly increasing. Despite the dragon having died long ago, Iron began to cough up blood. Iron suppressed the energy using his own blood technique, but the reservoirs were already full. Iron knew that stopping now would mean death from the energy flow, but trying to continue would mean an explosion from overcrowding. Iron had expected this, and remembered his conversation with the Demon Queen when he asked what to do if he couldn't absorb the dragon completely. The Demon Queen told him that dragons are highly revered even in Gehenna, and it would be difficult for an ordinary person to withstand their power. The Demon Queen pointed her finger at Iron, telling him that the answer was simple. Her eyes lit up, and she told him to become a dragon. Iron didn't believe her words, asking if it was possible. The Demon Queen reminded him of how much he had received from them, and that the dragon was just another step for him to regain his power. Iron opened his eyes, remembering the teacher's instructions. This only meant that he needed to go through another transformation. Iron's DNA began to change when he decided for himself that nothing was impossible, because he even received chaos inside himself. Mu Wan, who had overheard their conversation at the time, appreciated the Demon Queen's advice. Mu Wan told Iron that in the Silver Kingdom, there was even a name for those who obtained the body of a dragon. Iron continued to hold his hand outstretched towards the place where the dragon's skull used to be. The skeleton in front of him crumbled as Iron completely absorbed the powers remaining within it. Iron's pupils changed, becoming elongated like a dragon's. Energy emanated from Iron's entire body, as if enveloping him. Iron remembered that Mu Wan called it the Dragon Bone Body. At the same time, Shin Hong and his subordinates entered the burial site. They were surprised. In the place where there should have been a pile of monster bodies, there was not a single body, and they did not understand what had happened there. Shin Hong knew very well that even a guardian with the highest level was not capable of such a thing. He was nervous, trying to figure out what had happened. Another question appeared in Shin Hong's mind. He wondered if the same thing had happened to the dragon's body. Shin Hong gave an order to one of his subordinates to immediately report to the guild that all the corpses were missing. His subordinate rushed back down the tunnel while the others remained in the burial site. A black ball appeared in front of the subordinate who rushed to pass on the message to the guild. The subordinate managed to dodge him, exclaiming in surprise. But the next moment the ball burst, releasing energy from within. The subordinate let out a scream as his body burned from the explosion of unknown energy. Shin Hong and his subordinates heard a scream from the tunnel and turned towards the sound. The force of the explosion was enormous. It reached Shin Hong and his squad. Shin Hong managed to put out his hand and catch the charred corpse of his subordinate, which flew out of the tunnel towards them. Shin Hong continued to hold the corpse, not understanding what kind of explosion it was. The only thing he knew was that a couple more explosions, and nothing would be left of this area. A voice came from the tunnel, addressing Shin Hong, mocking him for still hiding behind his subordinates, even after becoming a commander. Iron pointed his finger at Shin Hong, calling him a traitor. Shin Hong looked ahead, not believing his eyes. He called Iron's name out loud. Shin Hong asked questions, asking if it was really that person in front of him, why he was still alive. A mixture of fear and anger was displayed on his face. Iron looked at his hands blankly, noticing that he was sad that he was not recognized because of such small changes. Shin Hong became even more angry as Iron said that he had become even more of a coward, despite becoming a leader by selling him out. Shin Hong clenched his fist in anger, breaking the neck of his subordinate's charred corpse while yelling at Iron to shut up. Shin Hong gave the order to his subordinates, the Black Hawks, to kill Iron immediately. The entire squad of Black Hawks rushed towards Iron. The Black Hawks were a special squad that was provided to the leader, and they were all experts, ready to become the strongest players. Iron watched them approach without much concern. Iron knew that the Black Hawks, who specialized in assassination, used stealth as their main technique, and their ability to become invisible could bring a lot of danger if the opponent is an ordinary player. Iron was very good at sensing internal energy. He noticed the approach from behind, and prepared a black ball. The black ball flew at the hawk, pushing it towards the other hawks. The third stage in the blood technique was black blood, which is what Iron used against the Black Hawks. The ball of black blood shot out multiple cannonballs, hitting the hawks that were about to attack it. The cannonballs, hitting their target, sucked out all the internal energy of the enemy. And after they exploded, Iron continued to stand in place while the Black Hawks exploded behind him. Iron raised his hand into the air, continuing to look ahead. Black balls with a translucent shell appeared on his hand. Iron clenched his fist, crushing the balls into tiny pieces that scattered in all directions. Small particles of black balls hit the remaining targets, killing all the Black Hawks. Shin Hong covered his face with his hands from the dust raised by the explosions, trying to understand where Iron got such a skill from. Shin Hong activated his information search skill through the system window. The system window appeared in front of his face. Shin Hong felt like his head was being pierced by an electric shock as he tried to read what was written. Shin Hong clutched his head as he watched the system window change color to red. Shin Hong's head was still splitting in pain as he looked at the system window. A red system window on which, instead of the usual text, symbols incomprehensible to Shin Hong appeared. Shin Hong stared ahead, realizing that he had never encountered anything like this when using the skill. He was pulled out of his thoughts by Iron's voice when he asked if Shin Hong was dying of curiosity. Iron calmly walked up to Shin Hong while a new black ball was forming on his finger, knowing that Shin Hong wanted to know about his power. Iron moved even closer, reminding Shin Hong that he never acted until he studied his opponent. Shin Hong flinched when Iron, out of habit, called him the guild's main tank. Shin Hong was filled with anger as he looked at Iron, asking if he was really that confident in himself. Shin Hong reached for the sword strapped to his back, telling Iron that he was no longer the tank he knew. Shin Hong pointed his sword at Iron, informing him that he was now the Hwasun guild raid leader. Shin Hong continued speaking, reproaching Iron for always thinking he was the smartest. When challenging Iron, Shin Hong said that he would see how he would do this time. Remembering old anger and grievances, Shin Hong shouted, remembering the old times, telling Iron to rush forward, forgetting about his comrades. But Iron didn't change his expression as he collected the black ball aimed at Shin Hong. He simply agreed, intending to do just that. A ball of black blood flew towards Shin Hong. Shin Hong held his sword out in front of him, using it to defend himself from the black ball flying towards him. The ball exploded, sending Shin Hong flying backwards with the shockwave. Iron was already behind him, telling him that despite him becoming the leader, Shin Hong hadn't changed at all. Iron attacked Shin Hong with a new black ball, concluding that he expected nothing less from the Hwasun guild. Shin Hong created a shield of earth behind his back to block the sudden attack. The ball hit the shield, exploding and causing cracks to appear. Shin Hong shouted at Iron to shut up as he launched another attack. Iron dodged the horizontal slash of the sword. Iron looked at the sword that was above his face as he arched back to avoid the blow. Shin Hong was furious and shouted at Iron that this was his end. Shin Hong's sword came into contact with the black ball that Iron created. Shin Hong swung his sword, sending the black ball flying and causing it to explode in the other direction. The shockwave from the explosion caused Shin Hong to jump back and thrust his sword into the ground for stability to keep his feet. Shin Hong looked at Iron, asking where he got so much strength from. Shin Hong was furious. He was absolutely sure that Iron had lost his powers and all this was impossible. Iron did not reveal the secret, telling Shin Hong that such a cowardly traitor would get no answer. Iron's words made Shin Hong even more angry. Shin Hong charged forward, shouting, "Die!" Iron reminded him that it was useless, stretching out his hand to create the black ball again. A black ball appeared in his hand. Shin Hong used his power to create a wall. This time, walls appeared around Iron, blocking him from all sides. Shin Hong was sure that Iron had nothing else but those black balls, and that was why he kept his distance. Shin Hong decided to stop him from retreating, and the walls around Iron became a cage through which Shin Hong thrust his sword. Shin Hong used the night weapon attack, putting a lot of energy into his sword. The sword that pierced the walls that held Iron glowed with the force of the attack. A powerful explosion occurred inside the walls, covering everything in flames. Shin Hong let go of the dream's hilt. Looking ahead at the dust from the explosion, he was sure that even the best ranker wouldn't survive this blow. Shin Hong's thoughts about that bastard Iron finally dying stopped as he stared ahead in shock. Iron, enveloped in energy, stood before him, whole and healthy, with the same bored face, as if there had been no powerful attack. Shin Hong was shocked by what was happening and tried to take out his second sword on his belt, but Iron stopped him from doing so. He grabbed Shin Hong's head with his hand and said that it was too late. Iron began to absorb Shin Hong's blood, increasing his energy as he groaned in pain. Iron looked at him like he was a pathetic little bug, noting that it was too easy for him. The chaos that Iron has trapped within himself thrives on the destruction of other worlds, and exists outside of time and space. Worlds that chaos descends upon meet their end when they find a source there, and Iron trained for over 100 years to be able to absorb chaos. Some time ago, Iron stood in front of the system window, in which the notification to overcome the path and become a source of chaos was glowing. His teachers stood behind him, concluding that they had done everything they could to help him cope with this task, and nothing more could be done. Iron stood with his back to them, continuing to look towards the system window. Iron thought that outside of this place where he had spent more than 100 years, everything had already been decided. Iron turned around, hearing Mu Wan calling him disciple. Mu Wan, who had been his teacher for over 100 years, asked Iron's name. Iron chuckled, surprised that Mu Wan was still interested in this after so many years. Mu Wan covered his face with his hand, admitting that he had become too accustomed to the boy, despite the fact that he had previously been considered a heartless ghost. As if surprised by himself, Mu Wan looked at Iron, saying that he had become attached to him. Lee Iron introduced himself with his full name. After some time, Iron absorbed the chaos into himself, enduring terrible pain. His entire body felt like it was being electrocuted as Iron tried to do what he had trained for so long. The Demon Queen caught his limp body, glad that he had succeeded. Mu Wan and the Sword King rushed towards him, not hiding their concern. Iron felt exhausted, telling his teachers that he was feeling sleepy. Mu Wan came closer, explaining that it was the influence of chaos that the body was rejecting him. The Sword King said that chaos was eating away at Iron's spirit, and that he would now be constantly haunted by nightmares. Iron rose to his feet, determined to fight off the drowsiness, realizing that if he fell into the nightmare, then chaos would awaken again. Iron took a couple of steps forward, admitting that he had expected this. Iron turned to his teachers, asking them to kill him. The three lords looked at him in shock after hearing Iron's words. Mu Wan noticed in confusion that Iron knew everything. Iron calmly agreed, noting that he was, after all, their student. Iron pressed his hand to his chest where chaos was imprisoned, telling the teachers of their goal to imprison chaos and destroy it. Iron looked at them, asking if their goal wasn't to destroy chaos, although Iron knew the answer perfectly well. The King of Swords looked at him, asking why Iron had gotten involved with them then, despite knowing everything. Iron lowered his head, telling them that he was betrayed and left with nothing, unable to trust anyone. Iron looked at them again, honestly admitting that his teachers allowed him to feel a long-forgotten warmth. Iron said that retribution meant nothing to him anymore if he could return the care he received from his teachers. Iron looked at them, stating his final request to know their real names. The three lords, his teachers, looked at him after his request. Mu Wan was the first to introduce himself, saying that his name was Shin Yu Wol. The second was the King of Swords. He said that his name was Sigurd von Damian, and the last one gave her name as the Demon Queen, introducing herself as Bergana. Iron clenched his fist, slightly bowing his head with a smile, and told them that he had no more regrets. Iron spread his arms out to the sides, saying that he would die here for his teachers. Iron kept his eyes closed, calmly awaiting his end. The King of Swords moved towards him, holding his hands behind his back. The King of Swords came close to Iron and called his name. The King of Swords placed his hand on his shoulder, telling him that Iron would not die here. Iron opened his eyes in shock, looking at his teacher, not understanding what he meant. His teacher stood right in front of him, telling him that Iron was their child and student. Mu-Wan asked, looking at him. How could they kill him with their own hands? Iron continued to stand his ground, reminding them of their mission, which they were now abandoning. The Demon Queen approached Iron, telling him that they would all share the burden of the chaos within him and seal it together. The Demon Queen pointed at Iron, reminding him that the chaos within him was shaped by their techniques. Their strength should be able to withstand it. The Demon Queen said that it would help him return to where he belonged, but Iron was worried about his teachers. The King of Swords informed Iron that they would be sealed somewhere deep, while all three lords reached out their hands towards him. Iron felt them filling him with their power, sealing away the chaos. Iron didn't want to part with his teachers so soon, but the three lords continued to share their power, telling him to move on and never try to find them. Iron was currently contemplating how far the power could take him as he sat in a tunnel filled with the corpses of Black Hawks. Iron knew the greatness of his power because he once almost became a high ranker, and he used to wonder how it would affect people. Iron still held Shinhong's face in his hand, pumping out the blood as he groaned, realizing that it was too easy. Iron looked at his former friend, knowing that he wasn't a weak ranker, and yet it was still easy. Iron thought that he could find other techniques besides the Blood Demon, and then he would be unbeatable. Even the Vulcan Guild leader, or the high-ranking experts of the Silver Squad, would be no match for him. Moreover, Iron understood that even people from other worlds, Einhard and Gehenna, would not be able to defeat him. Even those who stand at the top of the world will fall before his power. Iron kept thinking about how this kind of revenge had been planned for hundreds of years, but he didn't feel particularly thrilled. Shinhong called out to him, distracting him from his thoughts. Shinhong begged for mercy, starting to justify himself by saying that they had to betray him. Iron removed his hand from his face, asking again, and Shinhong said that otherwise they would have died. Shinhong continued to justify himself by saying that there was no other way to save them all. Iron got angry and asked if it was to save him. Iron reminded Shinhong that he became a captain while Iron suffered day after day, asking if it was for him too. Iron's anger materialized into a black ball, which he was about to explode, but Shinhong promised to tell him where the others were. Iron stopped, staring at his former friend. Shinhong begged him to spare him, promising that he would help him take revenge. Iron was silent for a while, and then said that Shinhong, who had already betrayed him, was again talking about betraying others. Iron grabbed Shinhong's face again. Iron promised, looking into his eyes, that everyone would hear about his death, and asked Shinhong to wait for the rest of them in hell until they joined him. Iron tightened his grip on his head, crushing it with one hand. After some time, one of the workers saw someone leaving the sealed area where the burial was. Iron broke the chains with his power without paying much attention to them. The slaves and guards intuitively understood that Iron had killed the Black Hawks and Kim Shinhong. Iron looked blankly at the slaves who trembled at the sight of him. Iron remembered his teachers with gratitude, because if it weren't for them, the same fate would have awaited him. Iron raised his hand, creating black orbs, deciding that he had to help them since they were going to die anyway. The slaves and guards rushed from the spot, running away from Iron. Everyone inside was hit by a black ball. Panicking, one man clutched his head, crying that he didn't want to die. But death did not await them. They felt the changes when the ball touched them. Realizing that he was not dead, the man was surprised. He began to examine himself like the others. They simultaneously realized that the slave mark had disappeared from their bodies. Iron paid no attention to them anymore, continuing to do his own thing. Iron blew up the cave ceiling. The former slaves saw this and looked up in fear. Iron brought them out of their shock by reminding them that they now had only two options: die under the rubble or escape. Iron used the flying debris as a ladder to climb out of the cave while the former slaves escaped through the tunnel. After some time, Iron stood on a ledge of rock, watching as dust from destruction rose from the burial site. Iron thought about how before meeting the teachers, he only thought about destruction. But after their sacrifice, he realized that this was not what was needed at all. Iron turned around, walking away from the ledge, thinking about what he needed to do with a world full of chaos. Iron walked forward, his eyes burning with anger and determination. His plans were to completely devour and take over this world. After some time, members of the Vulcan Guild tried to figure out what had happened at the burial site's rifts. Zhang In-woo, the leader of the Red Plum Raid of the Vulcan Guild, looked ahead, muttering that he didn't believe the report was true. In-woo stood over Shin Hun's headless corpse, thinking that this beggar who had been given the role of leader was nothing but trouble. In-woo turned to his subordinate to see how the slave's questioning was progressing. According to the subordinate, the slaves who were tortured to get the truth do not remember anything at all, and most likely someone erased their memory. In-woo asked about the missing slave marks, hearing in response that there were traces of someone's magic circle. Mentally noting that it had to be someone at least at the level of a master, Ying-woo asked if there were any other traces. The subordinate reported that there was no trace of the players or the master, and concluded that they were either Einhardt's mages or Gehenna demons. Ying-woo agreed that it was most likely Gehenna, almost naming the true purpose of these demons when he was interrupted by another subordinate. The subordinate who appeared in front of Ying-woo reported that the dragon's corpse had gone missing. Ying-woo only confirmed his conclusions because only the demons from Gehenna could use the remains without refining them. In-woo gave orders to contact headquarters so that they could conduct an investigation into all of Gehenna's movements over the past year. In-woo asked what that scum, Shin Hong, was doing here while looking at the corpse in front of him. The subordinate reported that Shin Hong was here to confirm the death of the slave Li Iron, and this information attracted In-woo. Ying-woo looked at the corpse in front of him, remembering how close Iron had been to becoming a high-level player before being betrayed by this scum. In-woo asked about Iron's corpse. His subordinate said that he had gone into the abyss about a month ago. Ying-woo, with a slightly sad face, concluded that Iron should be dead then because his body would not be able to withstand the poison. In-woo turned around, waving his hand, indicating that they were done with this. Finally, In-woo gave the order to his subordinate to find the remaining ones. At the same time, in Dongdaemun District, Seoul, Iron walked into a crowded bar. Around him, at almost every table, they were discussing what had happened at the burial site of the Vulcan Guild monsters. Each one told the rumors that they had learned by that time, especially convincingly implicating Gehenna in the incident. Everyone thought that the lull had ended since they had gotten involved with such a large guild as Vulcan. Iron hid his face under the hood of his sweatshirt, thinking that everyone was only talking about this incident. In his mind, he had already promised that they would all come to an end. All that was left was to wait, and it would not stop at just one large guild. Iron thought that he needed to find the abode of his teacher Mu Wan. This was the most effective way to become stronger. Iron walked up to the bartender's counter, thinking that this was the only way to find people. Iron ordered a cocktail that was not according to the recipe, and the bartender began to get indignant, trying to refuse him. But they were heard by manager Chan Ho-seok. Chan Ho-seok, who heard Iron's order, went to the bartender, replacing him and sending him to sort out the delivery in the storage room. Chan Ho-seok waited until his subordinate went into the storage room. Chan Ho-seok looked at Iron suspiciously, asking if he had been in the portal for 5 years to use such ancient principles. Iron ignored these suspicions, replying that it was more like 100 years than 5, which caused further surprise from Chan Ho-seok, who now thought that Iron was a demon. Iron looked up at him, saying that he wasn't a demon, but it didn't matter because they poured drinks for everyone here anyway. Chan Ho-seok, the head of the Seoul branch of the black market, leaned on the counter, asking what Iron wanted. Iron informed him that he needed a job after receiving a question from Chan Ho-seok asking if there were any criteria for the search. Iron said that any D rank or higher would do for him. Chan Ho-seok opened the cabinet under the bar with a key, saying that he had something suitable for Iron. Chan Ho-seok took out papers from the drawer. Chan Ho-seok threw them on the counter in front of Iron, asking him to make a choice. Iron looked carefully at the papers offered to him. Iron noted out loud that this job would involve stealing people. Chan Ho-seok nodded, explaining the scheme of how they lure newcomers into the portal and then demand a ransom from the parents. Chan Ho-seok added that the victims were children of wealthy parents and told Iron how much he would be paid for doing the job. Iron folded the papers evenly, tapping the stack on the table to even out the edges, and noted that the work sucked. Chan Ho-seok looked at him and asked again. Chan Ho-seok asked if Iron would be applying for the job. Reaching for the gun that was lying under the bar, Chan Ho-seok pointed a gun at Iron, lamenting that they often had idiot idealists come to them and try to cover for them. Chan Ho-seok continued to hold Iron at gunpoint, asking him if he had thought about what would happen to those who were left without jobs and where they would put their anger. Iron looked at Chan Ho-seok without much reaction. Chan Ho-seok's finger reached for the trigger of his gun. Iron asked Chan Ho-seok not to worry because he was enjoying everything. Iron pointed over his shoulder, asking Chan Ho-seok to have his men tone down their bloodlust. Chung Ho-seok chuckled at Iron's recognition of his men's bloodlust and agreed to give him a job. Chan Ho-seok handed him a burner phone, telling Iron that he would be contacting him soon and that he should be ready. Chan Ho-seok offered Iron a drink since he had already entered the bar. Iron refused, looking at his cell phone, causing Chan Ho-seok to be surprised again. Iron looked up at him, speaking with complete seriousness and bloodlust about how if he got drunk and fell asleep, there would be no one left alive. Chan Ho-seok backed off, saying he wasn't insisting. Iron said goodbye to him and headed towards the exit. Chung Ho-seok watched Iron leave, thinking that he was full of illusions and wouldn't last long at this rate. After some time in the city of Namyangju, at the D-rank portal next to which there was a guard, one guy from the approaching group of people happily greeted a guy named Chul Ho. Chul Ho, who was standing with his group, greeted An Min Hong by waving his hand at him and the others. Chul Ho pointed to the new arrivals, telling his group that they were like family to him and that they would be joining them today, and Min Hong's group bowed to their elders. Chul Ho asked Min Hong and his friends about their expectations for their first surgery. The guys were nervous, and Min Hong honestly said that he was a little worried. Chul Ho reassured them by saying that his comrades had been with him for about 3 years, and a D-rank portal was nothing to them. Chul Ho pointed to the side, intending to introduce the rest of the people. Chul Ho pointed at Iron and another man, calling them wanderers. Min Hong and almost his entire group were surprised to hear about the wanderers. Chul Ho reassured him by telling him that Iron and the second man were martial artists and had known each other for almost 3 years, after which Min Hong greeted them. Iron looked at them, understanding why they were worried. The wanderers were no worse than the demons from Gehenna. Iron was considered a wanderer in the black market too, but now he was interested in something completely different. He was looking at Min Hong's group. Iron noticed one member who didn't have a hint of surprise on her face when she heard about the wanderers. Iron focused his attention on her, realizing that he had finally found what he was looking for. That same evening, inside the gates of the established camp, most were sitting around a fire. Min Hong and Chul Ho looked like best friends as they drank together, Min Hong thanking the latter for the points he scored. Min Hong and his friend asked Chul Ho if they could go hunting tomorrow, saying that they left without telling their parents for the sake of glasses. Chul Ho hastened to calm them down, assuring them that he had already thought of everything, and that there was a place in this gate where the boys could hunt in peace. Chul Ho promised that tomorrow would be much cooler and advised to just rest for now. When Min Hong and his friend went into the tent, Chul Ho and his partner waved to them, remaining by the fire. Chul Ho and his partner chuckled as they watched them go, thinking they were naive fools. Iron sat away from them by the fire, simply staring ahead. A female player, Yoon Ha, approached him, not surprised at the mention of wanderers, asking if she could sit next to him. Iron simply nodded, staring back at the fire. Yoon Ha sat down next to him and started a conversation, asking Iron if he was a wanderer. Yoon Ha looked straight at him. She wanted to know what level he was if he was a martial artist, pointing out that he hadn't participated in the hunt today. Iron asked her if she knew that this was a rude question, but Yoon Ha simply brushed it off, citing the fact that she was new and didn't know. Iron glanced at her, trying to figure out what was going on in Yoon Ha's head. Yoon Ha continued to pester him with questions, this time asking for his name. Iron looked into her eyes. Yoon Ha instinctively felt fear in front of that gaze. Iron said his name, and Yoon Ha finally turned away from him, no longer feeling so confident. Yoon Ha thought that the name sounded familiar to her. Her thoughts were interrupted by another girl from their group, who told Yoon Ha that she could go rest because it was time to change. Yoon Ha said goodbye to Iron, saying that she enjoyed their conversation. But Iron didn't respond, not even looking in her direction. Yoon Ha kept looking back towards Iron as she walked towards the tent, thinking about the strange feeling she had about him. The next day, Chul Ho deftly wielded his sword against the monsters. His partner looked at his watch, loudly reminding him that the portal would be closing very soon. Chul Ho turned to Min Hong, saying that if they didn't leave now, they would have to kill the boss to open the portal again. Min Hong asked why they didn't go to the boss together, but Chul Ho told him that he was worried about the safety of his group. Min Hong sincerely wanted to help his new friend, saying that he was also a normal player and was not afraid of getting hurt. Min Hong was full of confidence and desire to help with the boss, convincing Chul Ho to go along. Chul Ho smiled, thinking that Min Hong had fallen into his trap. Chul Ho appreciated his attitude, suggesting that they first deal with the group of monsters that was approaching them. Min Hong and his group stood in the way of the monsters when he admitted that he was expecting this. Min Hong's group went on the attack against the ogres. Chul Ho passed on the secret sign to his partner. A system window appeared in the sky, notifying that the portal was closing. Min Hong defended himself with his sword against the ogre's blows. At some point, the ogre threw him back, hitting him with his shield too hard, and Min Hong dropped his sword. Min Hong looked at the ogre in front of him, realizing that they were stronger than he thought. Min Hong asked Cheol Ho for help without turning around to where Cheol Ho and his partners were fighting against another group of ogres. Cheol Ho told him that they had enough problems too, suggesting that he try to deal with it on his own. Min Hong felt uneasy when he realized that help would not come to him. At that moment, the ogre swung at Min Hong, trying to strike. Min Hong realized that he had no choice but to use his trump card. He pulled out a package from his pocket. Tearing up the paper with the magic circle, Min Hong shouted out a fire strike spell just before the ogre's axe touched him. The ogre and everything nearby were fried by the force of the fire attack spell. Min Hong tried to catch his breath as he looked at the charred corpse of the ogre in front of him. At that moment, Cheol Ho ran up to Min Hong, asking if he was okay. Cheol Ho apologized for not being able to come to their aid right away, glad that Min Ho had the strongest scroll for protection. Min Hong, still in shock, looked at his hands, saying that it was a disposable scroll that his father told him to only use in extreme cases. Cheol Ho asked if Min Hong had any more of those items, and Min Hong replied that he didn't because it was a very expensive item. Cheol Ho was satisfied with his answer and pulled out his scroll, causing Min Ho to have questions. Cheol Ho ignored his questions, using a binding spell on the clueless Min Hong. The tied-up Min Hong fell to the ground, asking Cheol Ho what came over him. Min Hong looked back, seeing that his group that came with him were also tied up with the same scrolls. Cheol Ho and his partners stopped hiding their nature, saying that Min Hong had bought into the whole thing. Min Hong, hoping that all this would be untrue, asked Cheol Ho to stop joking and untie them. Cheol Ho slapped him, leaving a mark on Min Hong's cheek. Cheol Ho asked Min Ho if he was completely brainless, because he grew up in a rich family while Min Ho was dumbfounded after the punch. Cheol Ho stopped laughing, coldly asking Min Ho if he still thought it was a joke. Cheol Ho put the sword to Min Ho's face, starting to explain what would happen to him, starting with cutting off his ear. Cheol Ho was interrupted by his partner's scream as Eun-ha cut him with her sword. Cheol Ho looked at Yoon-ha, who was moving towards him with Min Hong, in surprise. Cheol Ho blocked Yoon-ha's sword with his sword. Cheol Ho asked, not hiding his surprise, how Eun-ha had freed herself from the magical shackles. Yoon-ha ignored his questions, showing her true strength. Cheol Ho was surprised to see her sword aura. Yoon-ha swung for another, more powerful blow, but Cheol Ho managed to jump back to avoid being hit. Cheol Ho realized that the person in front of him was a martial artist who was not subject to magic, but he still wanted to know why his skill identified her as an ordinary player. Yoon-ha didn't intend to explain anything to him, responding that he was far from being a D rank, but was clearly a first-class C rank. The Wanderer approached them, telling Cheol Ho to step aside because a martial artist must fight his own kind. The Wanderer judged her skill from the sword's aura, stating that they were of the same level. The Wanderer asked her if she could handle everyone as Cheol Ho and his partners surrounded her. Yoon-ha assessed her chances against a superior martial artist and 3 C-rank players. The Wanderer didn't let her think about it any further, telling her that since she wasn't going to attack, he would make the first move, and he rushed into the attack. Yoon-ha parried his attacks with her sword, defending herself. The Wanderer felt a thrill, wondering if she would always be on the defensive. Yoon-ha held the sword with both hands to withstand the onslaught of his blows. Eun-ha rushed to the attack, realizing that it was not profitable to defend forever, telling the Wanderer that he should not underestimate her. Eun-ha continued to press the Wanderer, delivering her blows, from which he dodged into defense. Eun-ha noticed one of Cheol Ho's partners rushing at her from behind with his bare hands. Yoon-ha jumped out of the way of the strike, swinging her sword towards him. The thought flashed through Yoon-ha's mind that this was a very difficult fight because only one Wanderer was already a serious opponent. Cheol Ho shouted at Iron to not stand around doing nothing, and to catch Eun-ha since he didn't participate in the fight against the monsters if he wanted to get the money. Iron looked at him without much enthusiasm. Iron walked closer to Yoon-ha without taking his hand out of his hoodie pockets. Yoon-ha tensed as Iron approached, thinking about the conversation at the campfire yesterday. Iron just looked at her without making any movements. His inner strength could be felt around him. Yoon-ha felt it, felt that she was afraid to even look into his eyes, not understanding who he was. Yoon-ha continued to look at Iron, holding her sword down. Yoon-ha shook her head, pushing away the familiar feeling she felt from Iron. Iron looked at her without much emotion, remembering the conversation with teacher Mu-won. During his training, Mu-won told him that he was a master of the divine demonic cult. Iron then told him that he had only heard of a demonic cult, to which Mu-won explained that it originated from the divine. Iron inquired about the fact that the demonic cult was the sworn enemy of all guilds and brought only destruction to the world. Mu-won leaned towards him, pointing at himself and asking if Iron really looked at his teacher like that. Muon sighed as he said that after he left, the Fighting Alliance had been spreading the propaganda they wanted. Iron looked at Muon as he explained that they were just pitiful creatures. Muon chuckled as he looked at his disciple and told him to deal with them when he returned. In the present, Iron was thinking that Yunha couldn't deceive him like others. Iron looked at her, seeing her inner energy, already understanding without a doubt who she belonged to. Yunha still stood there, trying to fight her fear of Iron, her body enveloped in the power of the demonic cult. Iron remembered his conversation with another slave in the Vulcan burials, who told him that a demonic cult could be found on the black market. The slave laughed bitterly, honestly telling that he himself was one of those who had gone through this. Iron's thoughts about how easy it was to find her were interrupted by the voice of the Wanderer, who asked if he was going to attack yet. Iron simply told him to shut up, surprising Chal Ho and Wanderer. Iron turned his gaze to the Wanderer, saying that his mouth stunk, and there was no need to ask again if he was not deaf. Yunha had already raised her sword by then, but she looked at her opponents in confusion at how Iron responded. The Wanderer turned to Chal Ho, asking what was wrong with Iron, but he didn't know, saying that he had only hired him to clean up after himself. The Wanderer came to the conclusion that he could simply kill Iron. Without waiting for an answer, the Wanderer swung his aura sword towards Iron, who didn't even move to the side. Shock showed on the Wanderer's face as his sword broke. Iron raised his hand, which had many black balls on it, looking at the Wanderer without interest. The Wanderer glanced at the broken sword, surprised that it broke so easily despite the aura. The Wanderer looked again at Iron, who was much stronger than him. Guessing that he was of a transcendental level, Chal Ho's partners ignored the Wanderer's shock, deciding to attack at once. Iron prepared to release the black orbs, telling them that their deaths would no longer mean anything now that the portal was closed. The Wanderer screamed in fear, asking Iron to stop. Iron replied that it was too late, clenching his fist that held the black balls. The black balls reached their targets in the next instant, piercing through the bodies of Chal Ho's partners. The Wanderer, whose body was also pierced, thought that Iron was clearly the supreme master. In the place where the opponent stood, an explosion from the black balls thundered, raising dust around. The shockwave knocked Iron's hood off his head, but he still looked calmly at the place where his opponents had been. Chal Ho looked at Iron in shock, trying to understand what happened. Iron asked, looking at him, if he really had enough time to think only about him. Chal Ho didn't immediately understand what Iron meant, but it was too late. Yunha appeared behind him with a sword. Yunha took his head off with one blow. Chal Ho's head fell to the ground next to his body, eyes wide open. Yunha stood there with her bloody sword, trying to catch her breath, and Iron was now looking at her. Iron asked her if it was his turn now. Yunha sheathed her sword, refusing, saying that she was not stupid enough to attack knowing she would die. Yunha said that she was on a team with that guy just recently, pointing to Chal Ho's headless corpse. Yunha glanced sideways at the other corpses that Iron had disposed of alone, saying that she wouldn't even pretend that they were on the same side. Yunha looked back at Iron, telling him that she would help him with whatever his purpose was. There was uncertainty in Yunha's eyes as she asked Iron if he would spare her. Iron's words about how he might need her life made Yunha shudder. Yunha guessed that she would already be dead if that were the case. Iron chuckled, calling her insightful. The noise made them both turn around. A huge troll, the boss of this gate, was approaching them. Iron didn't even move when the troll appeared right behind him, asking Yunha if it was the boss. Iron was about to put his hood back on his head, telling Yunha that she was required to deal with the boss first and get them out. Yunha agreed, and rushed to attack the boss, who was already swinging his club in their direction. After some time, a portal opened on the playground and people came out of it. Min Hong climbed out of the portal, not believing that they had made it outside. Min Hong and his friends cursed Chal Ho, who had caused them to go through so much. Yunha followed them out, expressing regret for letting him go too easily. Min Hong's group bowed to Yunha, thanking her for saving their lives. Min Hong couldn't hide his curiosity as he tried to find out from Yunha why she hid the fact that she was a martial artist and joined the rookie squad. Yunha pointed towards the man in the suit, saying that he would explain everything to them. The man in the suit addressed Min Hong's team, promising to tell them everything while he accompanied them home. Yunha turned to Iron as the car with the others drove away, asking how she could help him. Iron looked at Yunha, initially intending to ask something else. Iron's question about choosing between the Heavenly Sect or the Blood Sect made Yunha flinch. She tried to pretend that she didn't understand anything. Iron continued to ask her if she was a member of a demonic cult, saying that he would not report her to the Fighting Alliance. Yunha regained her cool head by asking if Iron himself wasn't a cult member. Iron chuckled as he saw Yunha's expression change. He guessed that they would be on equal terms if he was a member of the cult. Yunha continued to ask him if he was a member of a cult. Iron calmly reminded her that he was the one who asked first. At that very moment, 6 guards appeared around Iron, pointing their swords at his head. Iron ignored their appearance, telling Yunha that this was her last chance. Iron's strength manifested around him as he asked Yunha again about choosing between the Heavenly Sect and the Blood Sect. The energy around Iron grew stronger. The guards felt incredible pressure coming from Iron. Yunha, realizing what consequences this could lead to, quickly replied that it was a bloody sexta. The guards were surprised that their madam confessed so easily. Unha asked them to put away their swords, calling Iron her patron, ignoring what they said about knowing the secret. Unha turned her gaze back to Iron. Iron looked at her calmly as she told her men that there was no use threatening him, and he would kill them without batting an eye if he wanted to. The guards put away their weapons, not hiding their displeasure, and walked away from him. Yunha looked at Iron, asking him to answer her question since she had answered his. Unha repeated the question of whether he was a cult follower. Iron hid his energy, calmly agreeing with this misunderstanding. Yunha honestly said that she didn't understand at all what Iron was pursuing. Yunha reminded him of her promise to help him get what Iron desired. Yunha gave Iron a choice to tell him now or go with them. Iron chuckled, agreeing to go with them. After some time, Iron and Yunha were sitting in the car. Iron looked at Yunha as she began to move, taking off her hoodie. Yunha explained that she needed to breathe, holding her face with her hand. Iron watched her actions with interest. Unha took off her mask, which was like a second skin. Iron immediately realized that it was the Infinity Mask. Yunha let her hair down, ignoring Iron. Unha's face was transformed beyond recognition as she finished removing the excess from herself. Iron calmly noted that Yunha was quite beautiful. Yunha thanked him, asking if she could see Iron's real face now. Iron honestly said that it had changed a little. Yunha continued asking, now wondering if Iron had introduced himself with his real name. Iron answered in the affirmative, causing Yunha to ponder the next question. But before she could ask again, Iron said it was his turn to ask. Iron remembered the comrades who were with her, assuming that they knew nothing about her, and she lied, saying that they would be taken home. Iron glanced at the Infinity Mask that was lying next to Yunha on the seat, saying that money was clearly not an issue for her. Iron looked at her, asking if she was recruiting followers for the cult. Unha honestly admitted that this was true. Unha rubbed her temple, saying that she should have taken things step by step, building connections, but Cheol-ho ruined everything. Iron yawned as he listened to her. He asked if she had earned it from the donations of rich children. Yunha agreed that they were collecting donations, but not something as absurd as what the association was asking for. Yunha continued to talk about how these people still needed a guild in the end. Yunha's explanation stated that the benefit of joining a cult was that it would help in establishing a guild. Iron thought that for players who can't level up without progressing, guilds are the best fit. Yunha took the initiative, asking what kind of technique Iron used at the portal. Iron chuckled at her persistence, to which Yunha honestly said that she expected to receive no less for revealing the secrets of the cult. Iron's words about not being able to use his martial art yet left Yunha incredibly shocked. Yunha asked how he could say such a thing after cutting off the head of a supreme martial artist. But Iron honestly said that it was just manipulation. Iron asked, wondering what the cult members had left on the black market, receiving confirmation from Yunha that it was for recruiting followers. Iron asked if they were learning to kill and kidnap while they were gaining followers. Yunha was offended by his assumption, saying that they only go after bad players and criminals. Iron asked if their goal was to recruit noble followers, and Yunha agreed. Iron smiled slightly, realizing that they weren't as bad as Teacher Mu-won had described, especially when compared to Hwasun, the real villains. Yunha decided to ask the last question, calling Iron a patron. Yunha called him the Killer Iron, bringing Iron out of her thoughts. Yunha regretted it as she felt the change in the atmosphere. Iron looked at her wordlessly, exerting incredible pressure. Yunha felt like she couldn't move, couldn't even lift a finger, trying to figure out the reason. Iron continued to look at her without saying a word. Yunha was shaking due to the pressure from him. Yunha had a vague feeling that this was Iron's killer. The car stopped and Iron turned his attention away from it, stopping applying pressure. Yunha was trying to catch her breath, sweat pouring down her as she finally managed to move. Yunha looked up at Iron, trying to figure out if this was a warning from him. Iron ignored her condition, assuming they had already arrived. When one of the men in the suit opened the car door, Iron told Yunha to lead the way. The car they were riding in stopped near the office of Ganha's company. It was a huge corporation with influence throughout Asia, and at its head was S-rank director Kang Nan-chol. Iron stood outside, looking at the building, saying out loud that no one would have thought that Ganha was the headquarters of a demonic cult. Unha got his attention by asking if he was coming. Iron asked if she would let him go if he didn't go, but Unha ducked the answer, saying that if he wanted to go inside, he would go. Iron looked at her, saying that if he didn't go, she wouldn't leave him alone, and not only Hwasan, but also the cult would be chasing him. Unha was surprised to hear his words about Hwasan. Unha looked at him, surprised to think that he really could be that Iron. Iron suggested out loud that if he kidnapped her, the persecution might stop. Unha asked him not to joke around like that here, explaining that she was also taking a risk just by bringing him along. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud scream from the side. An adult man, Director Khan, ran towards Iron, calling him an impudent scoundrel. Director Kang was furious, asking how he dared to threaten the lady, his energy raging around him. Director Kang rushed towards Iron, shouting at him to prepare for the consequences. Unha rushed forward, asking her grandfather to stop. Iron just stood there, looking at the approaching S-rank Director Kang, who Unha was unable to stop in time. Unha continued to scream, knowing it was too late. Unha could see the shockwave that rose when Director Kang, her grandfather, reached Iron. Director Kang winced as he heard Iron's voice as he calmly called the entire situation unbelievable. Iron blocked a punch from Director Khan, asking if this was really how the blood cult treated their benefactors. After some time, they were at a table full of food. Director Kang smiled as he told Iron that he had made a mistake during their first meeting. Director Kang told him to eat as much as he could, pointing to the table where he, Iron, and Unha were sitting. Iron looked at the different dishes in front of him. Director Kang told him to be calm, assuring him that there was no poison, and began his meal. Iron chuckled at his assurance. Iron started eating food. Iron calmly replied that the poison wouldn't work on him anyway, simply noting that he hadn't eaten normal food for a long time. Director Kang pretended to be surprised as he offered Iron some food to eat. Director Kang conducted a hasty investigation after learning that Iron was heading here, learning that it was Lee Iron, the killer of his own comrades. Director Kang looked at Iron, thinking that he was a slave to the Vulcan Guild, and now he was completely different from the description. Director Kang recalled the moment when Iron blocked his punch. Director Kang was sure that he felt Iron's inner energy, not the energy of a player. Director Kang kept his eyes on Iron, wondering who he really was. Director Kang watched Iron's calm expression, not understanding why he was so calm if his energy wasn't that much higher than his own. Director Kang was once again the first to speak, explaining that he had come because Unha was in debt to Iron. Director Kang extended his hand towards Iron, inviting him to speak, and he would give him whatever he wanted. Iron listened as Director Kang said that he needed to promise something first. Iron wiped his mouth with a napkin, calmly assuming that they wanted him to join the ranks of the cult's followers. Director Kang confirmed his words with a satisfied smile. Director Khan asked where Iron got such knowledge about their cult. Director Kang directly said that he had never heard that the killer Lee Iron was once a member of a cult. Iron's jaw tensed as Director Kang called him Iron the Killer. Iron looked up at him, clarifying that Director Kang had been making inquiries about him. Director Kang made no secret of this, saying that he could not let anyone into headquarters without having sufficient information about them. Unha tensed as she felt the atmosphere at the table change. Director Khan asked Iron if he joined the cult when he was at the burial site of the Vulcan Guild, to which Iron replied that that could be said as well. Director Kang remembered his question about his granddaughter choosing between the Heavenly Sect and the Blood Sect, and now asked about Iron's choice. Iron vaguely replied that they could now consider him on the side of the Bloody Sect. Director Kang asked him again, not understanding what he meant now, but Iron only said that he would gradually bring them up to speed. Director Kang decided to stop asking questions, resigned, and wanted to say something as an official member of the cult, but he was interrupted. Iron said that he was not going to obey them, causing confusion in Director Khan. Iron calmly said that the wolf should not obey some dog, saying that they would be the ones obeying him. Director Kang clenched his fist, trembling with anger, finding his words arrogant. Director Kang didn't hide his energy, which was growing from anger, as he asked Iron if he understood what he had just said. Iron calmly confirmed this, ignoring Unha who was trying to stop him. Iron crossed his arms over his chest, informing Director Khan that he would have to hand over the position of Blood Demon. Director Kang slammed the table, splitting it with his power. Iron continued to look at him calmly as the shockwave and heat from Director Khan's energy reached him. Director Kang was full of rage and told Iron that he had crossed the line. Unha tried to stop her grandfather, but Director Kang told her not to interfere. Unha paused, holding back the urge to speak. Director Kang asked Iron if he knew what happened when he defied a blood demon, warning him that the girl would not save him. Iron calmly looked at his hands, objectively understanding that he was a level below Director Khan. And although he was advancing quickly, he didn't have much time. Iron looked at Director Khan, who was engulfed in flame energy, realizing that his body was not yet capable of withstanding martial arts. Director Kang told him that if he needed weapons, he would provide them to Iron. Iron calmly refused, saying that he couldn't use the weapon or it would result in a disaster. Director Kang called him an upstart without taking his stern gaze away. There was no sense of his energy around Iron, and Director Kang asked if he wouldn't even try to fight him. Iron calmly replied that if he used martial arts, they would get into trouble too. Director Kang gritted his teeth, not hiding his curse towards Iron. Director Kang released his fire energy around him, asking in anger if Iron was really bullying him. Iron continued to stand as if nothing had happened, calmly replying that he was not doing anything like that. Director Kang told him to attack, giving him 3 seconds as a concession for being kind to his granddaughter, and beckoned with his hand. Iron chuckled, asking if the blood sect was really that grateful. Director Khan's eyes burned with anger as he reminded Iron that he was being treated as a guest, not an enemy. Eunha again asked her grandfather to wait a little, but was only told to step aside. Eunha started yelling at Iron, asking him to say that he was just letting it slip to smooth things over. Director Khan couldn't believe his eyes and indignantly asked his granddaughter why she was standing up for Iron like that. Iron watched them, agreeing that it made no sense. He thought that Eunha herself didn't understand why she was doing it. Iron looked at Eunha, knowing that this was too much, even though he had saved her life. Iron thought about how Eunha knew deep down who exactly could save the sect in its time of need. Iron looked at Eunha, expressing his thoughts about her being a priestess who served the blood demon, which made Eunha even more shocked. Director Kang rushed forward, calling Iron a scumbag for what he said about Eunha. Director Kang put all his energy into the strike, approaching Iron, who didn't even move. Eunha cried out, trying to stop the attack. A shockwave thundered through Gan's office building, knocking out all the windows on one of the top floors. Eunha tried to shield herself from the flames that Grandpa created from the blow. But Eunha quickly noticed something strange and looked up to where Iron and Director Kang were standing. Eunha watched as her grandfather's flame disappeared right before her eyes. Director Kang himself looked even more stunned, frozen in mid-strike, watching his flames fade away. Eunha looked with all her eyes, trying to understand what happened. There was a flame reflected in his eyes that, in fact, had not disappeared. Iron stood in front of Director Khan, enveloped in his power that had been stolen. Iron moved his hand, trying out the power he was stealing. Eunha watched as Iron stole Director Kang's power right before their eyes. Director Kang felt his powers being controlled, which was a clear sign of martial arts. Iron looked at them, asking if they recognized him now. Iron used the blood demon technique in front of them, indicating for them to kneel before him. Director Kang immediately fell to his knees, stuttering slightly at what he saw. Director Kang and Eunha, who were kneeling down, shouted a greeting to the bloody demon as they bowed before him. Iron looked down at them, confirming that he was their master. Director Kang and Eunha greeted the blood demon, Iron, who was surrounded by the energy that was taken from Director Kang. Director Kang knelt down with his head bowed, trying to figure out how the player knew the blood demon art. Iron asked if they were now ready to pass on the title of blood demon to him. Director Kang continued to kneel but did not respond, which piqued Iron's interest. Director Kang raised his head, wanting to explain. Iron was surprised to hear that the current blood demon was already in charge of the sect. Iron asked again to make sure there was already a blood demon and received an affirmative answer. Iron asked why they knelt before him then, causing Director Khan to lower his gaze again. Dark energy swirled around Iron as he listened to Director Khan explain that they thought he was stronger than their master. Director Kang recognized this as the true symbol of the blood demon, although he did not understand how Iron had mastered it. Iron laughed when he heard his words. Finding this statement about the true sign ridiculous, he covered his face for a moment. Iron looked at the ceiling, casually saying that the deplorable state of the sect was now clear to him. Director Kang raised his head in surprise, looking at Iron and trying to understand what he meant. Iron looked at him, telling him that their blood demon was unfinished. The dark energy swirling around Iron's feet surged forward. Director Kang could only watch as the dark energy blades threatened him, stopping right in front of his face. Iron looked at him, asking what position he held. After Director Khan admitted that he was the left guard, Iron continued by saying that he should understand that then. Iron released his dark energy around Director Khan, explaining that the symbol was not blood demon art. Iron corrected him, calling the symbol a true divine art of the blood demon. Director Kang swallowed, realizing that this was a real blood demon in front of him, as evidenced by the energy of the divine art. Director Kang and Yunha immediately responded by wishing eternal prosperity to the true demon, bowing to the floor to him once again. Iron glared at them, telling them to stop doing something so ridiculous, despite their hesitation to stop. Iron sat down on a chair, interested in the state of affairs in the sect. Iron told me to tell him anything that might be useful in driving out the imposter. Director Kong explained the structure of the sect, explaining that in addition to him, there was also a right guard, and that there were only 6 elders in the sect. Director Kang noted with concern that the elders would not be able to accept a new blood demon so easily, because the previous one had been with them for 10 years already. Iron asked about the easiest option, killing the elders, but Director Kong asked him to think about their usefulness. Director Kang asked for an order to be given to him, so that he could personally find out the opinions of the elders and obtain information, which was his specialty. Iron waved his hand, allowing him to do so, and Director Kang folded his hands in front of him in respect, accepting the order. Eunha watched her grandfather walk away, still sitting on his knees. Eunha turned back to Iron, who was sitting relaxed on the chair, and met his gaze. Due to stress, Yunha once again leaned over, wishing prosperity to the great demon, causing Iron to remind her to stop doing that. After some time, in the chambers of the bloody demon, in Namyangju, the place was strictly guarded, with security personnel posted around the entire perimeter. Yunha sighed, gathering her courage. Yunha began to greet the blood demon, but Iron interrupted her, allowing her to enter. Yunha entered the room wearing a beautiful dress. Yunha knelt down in respect, greeting the great blood demon. Iron turned to her, asking what was wrong, but Yunha simply said that she came to greet him in the morning. Iron's brows furrowed, asking if she really got dressed just to say hello. Yunha answered affirmatively, still not raising her head. Iron turned away from her, telling her to stop this from tomorrow, and Yunha began to complain, saying that this was the duty of a priestess. Iron waved his hand, saying that it would be better for her to sleep longer, but Yunha was sure that she had to adhere to her master's schedule. Iron stopped her thoughts by telling her that he was not sleeping. Yunha stared at his back in surprise. Yunha asked if he was joking, thinking that it couldn't be, but Iron repeated his words, telling her to finish with the morning greetings. Yunha confidently stated that she shouldn't sleep then either, causing Iron's displeasure. Iron turned back to her, telling her that this was an order and she should act like she was in the portal and not follow stupid formalities. Yunha stopped and stared at him. Yunha started mumbling something, waving her hands while Iron looked at her, asking what was wrong with her. Iron rested his head on his hand in boredom, indicating that she had suddenly realized that the blood demon was a player. Yunha waved her hands, convincing him that it wasn't that, but Iron interrupted her again, telling her to stop speaking so forcefully. Yunha listened to his words. Lowering her head slightly, she began to answer as he asked. Iron immediately asked if there was any news from the guard, Director Khan. Yunha raised her head slightly nervously, reporting that they hadn't received anything from him yet. Iron began to rise, accepting this calmly and assuring that his goal was still unchanged, causing Yunha to ask about his goal again. Iron stretched his shoulder muscles as he looked at Yunha and said that he was going to get rid of that imposter. Yunha looked at him, listening to his reasoning that in this world the strongest wins, and everything will fall into place after his victory. Iron said that he needed to train, and asked Yunha to take him to the gym in that place, confident that it was there. Iron remembered the time he was training with Muwan, when he wondered when he would teach him martial techniques. Muwan then turned to him, saying that it was a good question. Muwan pointed at him, explaining that all the techniques of the 3 overlords were adapted for him so that he could comprehend them fully. Muwan compared it to a mechanism of gears, in which sequence is important, saying that a certain order is needed. Muwan calmly explained that Iron would not be able to use martial arts and weapons until he fully mastered the Blood Demon technique. The Sword King at that moment handed him his weapon, saying that it was better to feel it for himself to understand. Iron took his sword and tried to use it, encountering the pain that Muwan had warned him about. At the moment, Iron was thinking that he didn't even want to imagine the pain he felt back then, sitting in the training room. Iron sat in the lotus position, thinking that he had almost managed to reach the limit, but still had not reached full development. Iron felt the dragon's blood circulating within him. Blood particles that he had absorbed from the dragon's skeleton began to rise from his skin. Iron sat with his eyes closed, concentrating on getting rid of the poison and absorbing only the life force. The entire training room was filled with his energy raging around him. A week passed. Yunha was kneeling in front of the door to the training room, waiting for him to return. Yunha tried to understand what Iron was doing there, not believing that it was possible to train the art of the blood demon in an empty hall. Suddenly, the door opened slightly, releasing smoke outside. Iron was ready to go out. Yunha was surprised as she greeted the venerable blood demon. Iron walked out of the training room looking stronger than before. Iron looked at his hands, feeling like he had finally succeeded. Iron had reached the final stage of the blood demon divine art, which was called True Blood. After the workout, there was a hearty meal on the table. Iron replenished his strength by eating calmly. Yunha stood a little to the side, looking at him in surprise. Iron turned to her, asking if she wanted to eat, but Yunha was completely lost in her thoughts, realizing that only a week had passed since Iron's training began. Yunha looked at Iron, feeling that his strength had grown. Yunha stood there with her mouth open in surprise, thinking about the blood demon's art. Yunha knew that without pure blood and a special ritual, it couldn't be practiced, and she didn't understand how Iron had reached this level in an empty hall. Iron repeated the question again, asking if she would eat, which brought Yunha out of her thoughts. Yunha bowed to him, nervously saying that she would cook more herself next time, but Iron stopped her, saying that it was not necessary. Iron turned the other way, wanting to add something. Iron invited the people hidden above the ceiling to join him in the meal. Yunha was even more surprised when Iron was able to spot the Black Shadow Squad. The Black Shadow Squad were elite guards trained personally by the Elder. Yunha still couldn't believe that Iron had so easily exposed those equal to the famous Murim Phantom assassins. Yunha watched as Iron waved his hand at the surprised guards to sit down, not understanding how he had noticed them. Iron resumed training in an empty gym. Iron felt his progress as he sat in the lotus position. Iron felt like he had almost completely absorbed the Black Dragon's blood. The only thing left for him to do was to cleanse it, perfecting it to the perfect blood within himself. Iron came out of the shower after training, thinking that he only lacked time and needed to seize control of the sect as quickly as possible. Yunha was standing in the kitchen stirring the food and immediately reported that everything was ready when Iron walked in on her. The rice looked like it was burning from the amount of spices. Iron looked at the plate with disbelief, reminding him that he was going to handle the food himself. But Yunha replied that that was what she was there for. Iron interrupted her, pointing at the plate and asking if she had added too many spices to it. Yunha, thinking that it tasted better this way, fell to her knees, saying that she had committed an unforgivable sin. Iron started to scold her for acting like that again, but quickly got distracted when he sensed something. Iron looked away from Yunha, remaining silent. Yunha rose from the floor, calling out to him to find out what happened. Iron briefly informed her that they had guests, slightly unhappy about it. Meanwhile, on the street, security was informing the intruder that he could not pass. The man asked the security service to repeat the words he had heard, asking if they knew who he was. In front of them stood Third Elder Han Do-baek, a cold-blooded Taoist master, holding a sword in his hands, lowered into the ground. The head of security politely replied that, of course, they all knew Sergeant Major Han. Senior Khan, who was slowly getting cold around him, asked if they really didn't intend to let him in, even knowing who he was. The guard, despite the pressure put on him, said that he was acting in accordance with the order of the left guard not to let anyone in without permission. Chief Khan raised his sword with one hand. Sergeant Major Han swung it lightly to the side, making a warning blow. The guards, near whom a trail of ice blocks appeared, grabbed their weapons when Chief Khan said that it was not their fault. Sergeant Major Han continued, intending to give one last warning. Senior Khan pointed his sword at the guards, saying that if they retreated now, he would turn a blind eye to their rudeness. Sergeant Major Han waited for an answer, showing how serious he was. The head of the guard swallowed, looking at Senior Khan, who was superior to them in strength. The head of the guard placed his hand on his sword, drawing it from its sheath, and asked for forgiveness from Elder Khan, informing him that he would not leave. Senior Han was pleased with their decision, believing that this was how a follower of the sect should behave, and rushed to the attack. The head of security was surprised by his sudden approach, not understanding when he had managed to do so. The street was cut by a cry calling for Sergeant Major Khan to stop. Senior Han stopped the sword strike, barely missing Yunha, who appeared in front of him. Yunha looked straight at Chief Han, whose blade almost killed her. Sergeant Major Han turned to her, asking why she was acting so recklessly. Yunha didn't answer his question, spreading her arms and asking why Chief Han was acting like this when the left guard didn't give permission. Senior Han looked at Yunha, asking if she really didn't understand what the left guard was planning. Senior Han began to speak out about how the left guard had committed treason by trying to disunite the sect. Senior Master Han said confidently that he could not afford to stand by and watch the unification efforts collapse. Unha reported that the blood demon was chosen by her, the priestess, wondering if Elder Han still had doubts. Senior Han asked if she could explain how the former player had mastered the art of the blood demon. Yunha was surprised by his knowledge as she continued to listen to what Chief Han was saying. Senior Khan said wearily that there were always imposters posing as the Blood Demon. Yunha held back as Chief Han suggested that he might be a spy from the Heavenly Clan. Chief Han looked at Yunha, saying that the law forbade having two lords, even if he really was a blood demon. Senior Khan said that they would be convicted of treason if this continued. Senior Han pointed his sword towards Yunha, saying that he had decided to take care of this in advance. Sergeant Major Khan asked her to step aside, saying that he did not want to lose her in the left guard. Yunha looked at him, saying that they would never be forgiven for this anyway. Senior Han closed his eyes, telling her that he had already made his decision, even if he had to quarrel with the left guard or die. Senior Khan promised that he would do everything in his power for his neighbors, calling energy into the sword. Chief Han told Yunha to step aside, saying that he couldn't stand it anymore even for her sake. Yunha looked at him, not intending to back down. Sergeant Major Khan met her gaze. Chief Khan raised his sword to strike, asking forgiveness for his rudeness. Director Kang, who had been running at full speed behind him, appeared out of nowhere, causing Chief Han to be surprised by the suddenness. There was an explosion of energy as Director Kang reached Chief Han. Sergeant Major Han defended himself from the blow by blocking it with his sword. Elder Khan looked at the one who had called him by his position as Elder. Director Kang, engulfed in flame energy, corrected himself by calling him by name. Director Kang was furious at what he saw and asked him what he was doing. Director Kang and Chief Han, representing opposite elements, stood opposite each other, ready to fight. Director Kang thought that he had expected this outcome. Standing before him was one of the 6 elders of the sect, and Director Kang didn't fully understand why everything was unfolding so quickly. When Chief Han informed them that the Hwasun Guild had begun to act, Yunha and Director Kang were surprised. Sergeant Major Han continued, telling how the Hwasun had stumbled upon their trail. Senior Han was sure that it was too dangerous to talk about the Blood Demon now. Senior Master Han looked at Director Kang, saying that they would be the first to be thrown at the enemy as bait. Director Kang disagreed with him, saying that there was no point in Hwasun confronting the Blood Demon. Senior Khan asked if he could be a spy. This statement made Director Kang furious, the veins on his forehead bulging. Director Kang shouted that this was nonsense. There was energy in Director Kang's head that was directed towards Chief Han. Director Kang was angry that Chief Han implied his inability to recognize the true art of the Blood Demon. Senior Han ignored this, saying that the Heavenly Clan had long been trying to master the art of the Blood Demon. Director Khan interrupted his reasoning, not wanting to listen. But Elder Khan did not stop. He said that even if this is the truth, then nothing changes. Director Kang froze at these words, staring at Senior Han. Elder Han said that Iron had achieved the split of the bloody sect. Senior Khan was sure that the only right step was to kill him. Director Kang clenched his fist, calling Sergeant Major Han by name to shut him up. Director Kang didn't want to listen to him anymore, telling him that he had finally crossed the line and was preparing for battle. Senior Khan said that he could not stand aside while his comrade was voluntarily running into trouble, and he stood at attention, holding his sword tighter. Senior Master Han and Director Kang rushed at each other. Director Kang talked about the sergeant's future with cutting off limbs and begging for forgiveness, ignoring his words. None of them were going to give up the fight and their beliefs. Iron appeared out of nowhere and told them to stop. Senior Master Han and Director Han froze, stopping their blows inches from each other when they heard his voice. Sergeant Major Han didn't understand how Iron could be behind him. Director Kang saw Iron, surprised by the bloody demon's appearance. Director Kang knelt down to greet his master. Sergeant Major Han slowly turned around to look at Iron. Senior Khan realized that he didn't even sense his presence. Director Kang yelled at Senior Han, telling him to immediately kneel before the blood demon. Sergeant Major Han thought about his chance to kill him, seeing that Iron's hands were hidden in his pockets. Senior Han felt the pressure coming from Iron, wondering if he really was a blood demon. Senior Han looked at Iron with red hair and eyes, undeniable proof of the blood demon's art. Senior Khan put his sword back into the sheath on his back. Sergeant Major Han bowed to Iron, folding his hands respectfully in front of him. Iron stopped them both, telling them to stop bowing despite attempts to object from Director Khan. Iron scolded them, saying that they decided to cut off each other's limbs despite the sect's instability. Iron walked closer to Sergeant Major Han, causing him to flinch. Iron asked Senior Khan directly if he had come here to kill him. Iron looked at him, not hiding his energy, saying that mercy would only be promised to him if he lived up to expectations. Sergeant Major Han felt himself sweating from the pressure being placed on him. Senior Khan replied that Iron's words were true, deciding not to hide his intentions from him. Elder Han said that the sect was already serving another blood demon, and he did not want to split when everything was just getting better. Iron chuckled at his bold answer and complimented him on how fitting he was for the role of an elder. Iron continued to look at Chief Khan, asking if he was up to his standards. Sergeant Major Han was under even more pressure from Iron, speaking about the evidence. Senior Master Han gathered his strength, repeating more clearly that he needed proof. Iron scratched his chin, thinking about his words. Iron extended his finger forward, releasing a small red ball of his blood. Senior Khan froze, looking at the small ball approaching him. Senior Han was amazed at what he could feel from such a small drop of blood. Senior Han felt a sea of demonic energy pouring out from this drop. Sergeant Major Han fell to his knees before Iron, greeting the great blood demon. Senior Khan began to take his sword out of its sheath, saying that he should cut off his hand for doubting the bloody demon. Senior Khan swung his sword with a cry, intending to cut off his own hand. Senior Khan's sword flew to the side. Sergeant Major Han still had his hand raised as if it contained a sword when his weapon plunged into the ground behind him. Iron noted with displeasure that he had already said that nothing could be cut off while holding the finger with which he had knocked the sword out of the hands of Senior Khan extended. After some time, Eunha, Chief Han, and Director Kang were kneeling on the floor in the house. Iron rubbed his face tiredly, telling Director Kang to sit on the sofa, but he refused, saying that he couldn't sit next to the Great Master. Iron gave in, deciding there was no point in arguing further, and Director Kang looked up at him. Director Kang looked at Iron, who was thoughtful and sitting on the sofa, and vaguely felt that he had become even stronger over the past week. Director Kang asked if he had reached the transcendental stage, distracting Iron from his thoughts. Iron answered honestly that he had not yet reached that level, but Director Kang assured him that with such progress, it would be very fast. Senior Khan intervened in their conversation. Elder Han said that the current blood demon and the first elder, his advisor, had already reached the transcendental stage. Elder Han added that among the remaining elders, there was no one who could defect to the new demon, Iron. Yunha, who had been listening attentively to Chief Han's words, said that there was only one way out. Yunha said that, thanks to his rapid development, Iron needs to reach the transcendental stage and personally go up against the current demon. Yunha assured Iron that in that case the elders would have no choice but to accept him, but Iron was interested in the timing. Iron honestly said that he wasn't sure he could even reach her, surprising Yunha, who was sure that such a thing couldn't happen. Iron looked at her, asking if she really thought they were just going to sit back and watch. Iron looked at the elder and asked him the same question. Iron said that now everyone in the sect knows about him, which is why they rushed to attack him. Director Kang didn't give anyone a chance to get a word in and, screaming for forgiveness, hit his head on the ground. Director Kang apologized for approaching an elder who had already sworn allegiance to another demon, but Iron tried to stop him. The three of them looked at Iron as he called it nothing and started a new thought. Director Khan's forehead was bruised from the intensity of the blow. Iron smiled, saying that now was the time to overthrow the blood demon. When players entered the portal, they found themselves in an unknown land full of monsters. But the dungeons were different from the portals. If you went through them, you could find yourself in another world. The world first learned of the existence of the dungeons when a rift occurred, and monsters began to appear all over the earth. The monsters, sweeping away everything in their path, were ready to devour humanity, but humanity was saved. This salvation came in the form of people with incredible power who came from other worlds, even though later on, super players with abilities began to appear among humanity. The efforts of these players still couldn't compare to what those from other worlds could do. The people from other captured worlds had experience fighting monsters for several centuries. Eventually, the world overcame this invasion, and Murim controlled Asia, and Einhart took control of the West. These forces, coming from other worlds, divided the world into spheres of influence. Murim, who came from the territory of South Korea, was convinced that the bloody sect had hidden itself from other eyes. At present, Iron and the three people accompanying him approached the huge gate leading to the dungeon. Iron looked at the door, wondering why it seemed so out of place in the landscape and whether it had always been there. Yunha bowed, admitting that she felt it was right that the door leading to the blood demon should be revealed. Eunha calmly answered his question about whether she tried to hide the door at least a little, telling him about all the traps and barriers along the way. Yunha looked at Iron in front of her, reassuring him that he was the only one who had made it this far. Yunha asked Iron if this was his first time in the world of Murim. Yunha was surprised to hear that he had been there before. Iron listened as Yunha praised his past as a player. Iron noted out loud, closing his eyes, that he wouldn't have been able to get here if he had continued living as before. Yunha asked him again, but Iron told her to forget and open the door. Yunha placed her hand on the door, pouring her energy into him. Iron, Sergeant Major Han, and Director Kang watched as the doors slowly opened. The door opened, illuminating everyone from the passage with a bright light. Yun-ha turned to Iron and extended her hand towards the door, telling her blood demon welcome to the Blood King's fortress. Iron looked around inside, dumbfounded. The place was in disrepair. People were dressed in tattered clothes, and the sky was cracking. Iron honestly said that despite the rumors, he didn't think things were that bad. Director Kang and Sergeant Han bowed their heads, asking for his forgiveness. Iron walked forward down the street, wondering what had brought the fortress to such a state. Yun-ha began to tell him that Murim was part of a destroyed world, which few people knew about. She looked at the cracked sky, saying that this world needs constant support. Yun-ha said that peace can be maintained with the help of the monster's magic stones, but the Blood King's fortress is very large. Yun-ha said that the fortress's territory was large, even compared to other parts of Murim, and Iron guessed that it was absorbing a lot. Iron noted that he now understood why the Sexta was so desperately looking for followers, and Yun-ha could only agree. Iron wondered why the guild, which was part of a huge corporation, was not participating in collecting stones. Director Kang responded first, saying that he shouldn't draw too much attention to himself. Director Kang said that the outcome if Hwasan found out about her current situation was too uncertain to take any risks. Yun-ha agreed with the left guard's words, but added that the elders were also against hunting in portals. Iron asked with displeasure what kind of nonsense they were talking about. Yun-ha replied in a dejected tone that the elders had decided that hunting ordinary monsters would be against the laws of the Great Demon. Iron sighed, covering his face with his hand, and noted that he would have to work hard. Iron suddenly turned to Chief Han, asking if he had participated in this, but he assured him that he was against this decision. The conversation between Iron and the others was interrupted by unexpected guests who greeted them. Swordsman Captain John Ji-soo informed them that he had been waiting for them, approaching along with his subordinates. Yun-ha was surprised by the approach of the Bloodlord's squad, the black swordsman who approached them. Captain Chong greeted them, informing them that they had been ordered to escort them, and asked them to follow them. Yun-ha pulled her sword out of its sheath. Yun-ha pointed her sword at the squad, asking if they were going to take them away by force. Captain Chong looked at the sword that was facing him, indicating that he was only following his master's orders. Director Kang asked them if they thought their group would go willingly. Yun-ha and Senior Han had already shown their energy for battle. Captain Chong closed his eyes, telling them that they had not come to fight, but were prepared to do so. Captain Chan and his subordinates drew their swords, revealing their energy. The atmosphere of readiness for battle was interrupted by Iron's calm voice, which simply told them to go. Yun-ha turned to her master in surprise, but Iron only said that since the squad had come all this way to meet him, he would go. Iron walked forward, ignoring the surprised looks of the people who came with him, and told them not to be afraid and just follow. Yun-ha, Director Kang, and Senior Han looked at each other, not understanding his intentions. After some time, they were all standing in the Bloody King's fortress in the throne room. Director Kang looked ahead in surprise, realizing that the current blood demon had finished his solo training. Director Kang saw that he had become much stronger than before. The Bloodlord's chief advisor spoke first, wanting to shame the left guard for betraying his lord. The chief advisor looked at him, asking how the closest person to the Bloodlord could do such a thing. Director Kang did not flinch as he reported that he had beheld a true blood demon. The chief advisor became angry when he heard his statement. The followers of the Sexta present in the throne room began to be indignant upon hearing Director Khan's words. The current blood demon stroked his beard, amazed at his eyes. The current blood demon looked at Iron with a hint of madness, amazed that there was another blood demon besides him. The followers who had been indignant a moment ago fell silent, understanding the meaning of their bloody lord's words. The Blood Lord didn't pay attention to anyone. He was talking about how Iron had appeared on time, and he had already perfected the art of the blood demon. The Blood Lord laughed maniacally, saying that absorbing Iron's powers would allow him to become a blood god. Director Kang and Sergeant Han froze upon hearing his words. The followers of the current Blood Lord began to praise his wisdom. Iron was calm as he called the current Blood Lord's words nonsense, cutting off his followers' words. All the followers fell silent, turning their indignant attention to him. Iron looked at the current Blood Lord, telling him to stop talking nonsense and come down to him. The current Bloodlord's face froze in rage as Iron said that he would show him how pathetic he really was. The current Bloodlord clenched his fist, breaking the armrest of the throne into splinters. There was an energy blazing around him filled with anger as he asked Iron again. One of the followers, an elder, began to curse at Iron, defending his bloody lord. He turned to his Bloodlord, asking him not to interfere, for they were capable of handling this themselves without him being disturbed. The other elders supported his idea to join the fight and protect their Bloodlord. The current Bloodlord gave them his permission. The elders blocked Iron and his men from reaching the current Bloodlord, having received permission. Director Kang was stunned that the elders had decided to unite. Everyone except the first elder, who was the current Blood Demon's chief advisor, came out to them. Director Kang was glad that the first elder did not consider it fair to fight with a bunch of people against one, and decided to refrain. But Director Khan also thought that there were enough of those who blocked their path. He believed that the difference between their forces was obvious. Director Kang prepared for battle, thinking that it would be best to eliminate the elders one by one. Director Kang looked at Iron, who continued to stand calmly, and did not understand why he went to the enemy of his own free will. Iron turned his attention to Yunha, who was ready to fight, but it was clear that she was trembling. Iron didn't turn to face her, simply telling her not to be afraid. Yunha flinched when she heard Iron's voice, asking him again. Hearing Iron say that he won't die, Yunha asked him if he was immortal, feeling slightly nervous due to the adrenaline. Iron calmly replied that he was not immortal, but he was confident that he would not lose to these guys because the whole world depended on his life. Iron continued to talk about how he wasn't going to destroy the world yet, because he wanted to find his teachers, which made Yunha ask questions. Yunha asked him directly, wanting to know what Iron was talking about. Iron said thoughtfully that he had been thinking for over 100 years about what he would do when he returned. Iron looked down at his hands, honestly admitting that the first thing that came to mind was revenge. But he also wanted to thank his teachers. Iron clenched his fist in determination, declaring that he would find all of their legacy and restore it, and would never allow anyone to destroy it again. Iron thought, looking at his hands. Iron remembered Mu Wan, who gave him strength as promised. Iron chuckled as he thought about how his teachers were a bunch of crooks. Iron thought about the people standing behind him, knowing that his teachers were counting on Iron finding something valuable that he wouldn't destroy. Iron stood before his opponents, fully understanding and accepting the intention of his teachers. He told the elders to attack. One of the elders used the phantom blood poison technique, releasing poison with his breath towards Iron and his men. Director Kang rushed towards Iron, shouting at him to retreat. Chief Han saw Director Khan rushing forward towards Iron to save him from the poisonous technology. Sergeant Major Han called Director Kang an idiot while trying to grab him by the collar of his jacket. Senior Master Han pushed Director Kang back, cursing that he might die. Sergeant Major Han turned around, trying to figure out where Iron was. The poisonous breath of the bloody technique was getting too close to them, and Sergeant Major Khan had no choice. Elder Han used his strength to swing his sword and create a fence of ice in front of him to block the poison. The poison slammed into the wall of ice that separated Iron, who was at the epicenter, from the rest of the group. The elder who used the poison technique was happy, thinking that his technique was strong, since the current Bloodlord was afraid of it. He glanced at his Bloodlord, believing he had left a good impression of the fight. He was aiming for the position of left guard, which would be vacant due to Director Khan's betrayal, believing that he already had it in his pocket. At the same time, behind the ice wall, Director Kang fell to his knees. Director Kang stared blankly ahead, not believing that everything would end so easily. Yunha walked up to him, placing her hand on her grandfather's shoulder and saying that the blood demon was okay. Director Kang turned to her, asking her in confusion how she knew. Yunha began to talk about how dangerous the phantom blood poison was and Iron's level relative to the other opponents. Yunha placed her hand on her chest, saying that her instinct still told her to follow him because Iron would save the blood cult. Iron continued to stand calmly in the fog of poison that filled the space of the throne room. Iron's eyes lit up as he looked ahead. Iron calmly walked forward to meet his opponents, asking if this was all. The elders were shocked to hear his relaxed voice and see the movement in the red mist of poison. Iron continued speaking, indicating that he was not at all surprised that the cult was on the verge of collapse. Iron walked out to the elders, who flinched at his appearance, indicating that they did not leave their fortress. Iron pointed his finger at them, saying that they were unremarkable and that the world was full of people like them. Iron continued to press their ignorance, comparing their strength to that of a large guild at best. The elders continued to listen as Iron scolded them, telling them that they had ignored important advice from the left guard and the priestess. One of the elders took courage, calling on the others to attack at once and not listen to Iron's words. The elders raised their weapons, ready to attack Iron, their bodies enveloped in the energy of the blood demon. Iron continued to stand calmly as the elders rushed towards him. Iron ignored the weapon that was almost to his neck, asking if they knew why the followers revered the blood demon as a god. All the elders froze in space, unable to reach Iron. Iron continued to calmly talk about how the blood demon was absolutely everything to the cult, holding them back with his power. The elders felt they could not move. Iron, seemingly not noticing the many weapons and hands in front of him, continued. calmly noticing the joy of how the techniques had been passed down all these years. Director Kang and Yunha peered out from behind the ice wall. They didn't have time to figure out what was going on because Iron immediately asked the left guard who should be left alive. Director Kang felt an incredible amount of pressure, but he still said who should be left behind, listing the 1st and 6th elders and the Bloodsword Squad. Iron listened to his words and snapped his fingers without changing his expression. At the moment of the click, everyone whose head was not named by the left guard, Director Khan, exploded. The current Bloodlord watched as his elders fell to the floor, their heads removed. The current Bloodlord was shocked when he saw Iron's technique. Iron looked at him, noticing the oddity of him remaining alive if he had followed the path of the Blood Demon. Iron asked with interest why his head was still on his shoulders. Iron called the current Bloodlord a false one, causing him to become angry. Iron stood in the middle of the throne room among the corpses of the elders and those who remained alive at the direction of the left guard, and looked at the false demon. Iron was the first to break the silence, addressing the false blood demon. Iron calmly asked if he was right that he wasn't real. The false blood demon yelled at him, gripping the armrests. The false blood demon stood up from his seat, shouting at Iron. The false blood demon began to shape the blood energy between his palms. The false blood demon pulled out a sword from his blood, looking straight at Iron. Yunha was scared when she saw this sword. She saw a dragon emerge from his energy, recognizing the blood demon's sword art. Iron looked at him, frowning slightly. The false blood demon named his technique as Yunha said, indicating the 3rd form. The false blood demon extended his hand with a sword, pointing towards Iron. A dragon created from his blood energy rushed towards Iron. The dragon swallowed Iron, leaving only his silhouette, cracked into pieces, visible. Yunha and Director Kang were scared when they saw this with their own eyes. The false blood demon promised Iron that it would tear him to pieces, leaving only a pool of blood behind. From within the dragon, Iron's voice came out, calling the false blood demon a mere piece of shit. Iron tore the dragon into tiny pieces, appearing before everyone in a small sphere that protected him. The false blood demon asked Iron again, not believing his ears. Iron lowered the sphere's boundaries, ignoring the blood, asking again about his technique. Iron looked at the false blood demon, telling him that his teacher had not created anything like it. The false blood demon called it nonsense while Iron continued to say that his teacher never mixed his art with the sword. The false blood demon shuddered, trying to understand why he was speaking as if he had been taught by the creator of the blood demon art, who had died thousands of years ago. Iron scratched his neck, thoughtfully saying that some fool wrote this down and passed it on, causing even more anger in the enemy. The false blood demon charged again, screaming that Iron should stop talking nonsense. Iron didn't move as the false blood demon swung his sword at him. Iron calmly blocked his opponent's sword with his palm, causing him to be surprised, and admitted that he didn't care about the intricacies of technical history right now. Iron thrust his palm forward, releasing several needles created by his blood energy. The false blood demon was surprised to see the flying blades. The false blood demon jumped away from Iron. The false blood demon looked at the blood demon energy needles that had latched onto him, not believing his eyes. The false blood demon looked at the yawning Iron, not believing that he was using the blood demon's energy. The false blood demon had always thought of it as a simple fighting technique, but these needles sucked out his blood, destroying his inner strength. The false blood demon reflected the needles, throwing out his energy, asking not to be made fun of. Yunha watched the battle closely, surprised that the false blood demon had blocked the attack. The false blood demon continued to scream, saying that all of this was just tricks and manipulation. The false blood demon extended his hand upward, gathering his energy into the sword, and shouted that he was the true blood demon. The false blood demon screamed as he poured a large amount of internal energy into his sword. Iron watched his actions, waiting to see what he would come up with next. The false blood demon used the 6th form, which was called the Blood Dragon's Fury, which soared above him. Yunha and Director Kang stepped back in shock as they saw the huge dragon created from blood energy. The false blood demon pointed its sword at Iron, screaming for him to die. The dragon charged at Iron, following the trajectory of the false blood demon's sword. Iron accepted this calmly, resignedly. Iron said that he would have fun according to the rules of the false blood demon, collecting a ball of blood energy in his palm. A small dragon created from his blood energy appeared above Iron. Iron directed his small dragon forward with a flick of his hand. The false blood demon began to laugh at Iron, saying that he was only capable of creating such a pathetic worm. The false blood demon screamed about destroying Iron as their dragons approached each other. The huge dragon opened its mouth and the little dragon Irona swam in. The dragons disappeared in a flash of light as the huge one swallowed the small one. There was an explosion where they were. Director Kang and Yoon Ha covered their faces with their hands, hiding from the shockwave. Through the rising dust, two silhouettes were visible. Iron and the false blood demon standing opposite each other. The false blood demon coughed up blood. The false blood demon fell to his knees in front of Iron, exhausted. The false blood demon thought about what he clearly felt at the moment their energies connected. He looked at Iron in front of him, whose clothes were torn, certain that Iron had reached the extreme level of the demon realm. Iron distracted him from his thoughts by asking if he was really the youngest in the cult. Iron said that it was strange that a moron who came out of nowhere with the art of a blood demon was immediately accepted to the throne. Iron looked down at him, surprised that he hadn't even mastered the bloody art. Iron guessed that the false blood demon kneeling before him was on the side of the heavenly sect. Iron took his silence as consent and said that he had many questions for the false blood demon. The false blood demon was still shaking with rage, ashamed of his defeat, when he heard Iron's words that he would still be useful alive. The false blood demon dug his fingers into the floor, asking again that they would not kill him. An unfamiliar energy, similar to demonic energy, rose up around the false blood master. Blood flowed from the eyes and mouth of the false blood master. The false blood demon had changed. He was still angry, asking what Iron was pretending to be. The false blood demon rose to its feet, spreading its energy around. Iron looked at him boredly, trying to understand what kind of transformation he had performed. Unha exclaimed in surprise, saying that it was impossible, which attracted Iron's attention. Everyone who came with Iron looked at the false blood demon while Unha spoke about his new appearance. Unha saw him as a blood god after his transformation. Iron heard her words, saying that this couldn't be. Iron looked at his opponent, who had changed in appearance, and explained that this was a desperate last struggle in the form of a reversed blood flow. The false blood demon rushed at him, confidently declaring that it would devour Iron and finally become a blood god. Iron stood quietly, waiting for him to approach, saying that he could try if he could. The false blood demon rushed forward and extended its hands towards Iron. Iron caught his hands with his own, continuing to calmly look at his opponent. Iron called his plan to suppress with stronger internal energy expected. The false blood demon shouted at him that Iron couldn't be an upstart because they had different levels of internal energy. The false blood demon used the blood demon absorption technique, causing Iron's shirt to tear completely. The false blood demon with a wild smile was confident of his victory, thanks to his 20 years of experience and the blood he had absorbed. He was sure that Iron would not be able to withstand the pressure of his internal energy, increased by the reverse flow of blood. The false blood demon looked like a madman with a smile and faith in his victory. Despite this, Iron continued to speak calmly, asking him about his plan. The false blood demon was surprised by Iron's calm and conversation during a battle that required attention. Iron continued to speak calmly to him, explaining that during the battle, this could indeed play a decisive role. Iron reminded him that this technique was about absorption, not burning, and he gripped his opponent's arms tighter. Iron became serious, saying that he would show how it should be done, pointing out that the main thing in all this was to manage energy correctly. The false blood demon exclaimed in surprise as it sensed the change in Iron's mood and surrounding energy. Without giving him a chance to twitch, Iron resorted to the blood demon absorption technique. Iron squeezed the false blood demon's hands even tighter, not allowing him to escape. The false blood demon began to release its internal energy, which was absorbed by Iron. The false blood demon screamed as he felt his strength draining away. Yunha and Director Kang couldn't take their eyes off what they saw. The false blood demon looked like it had been drained of all its life. His eye sockets turned white as the false blood demon fell inside Iron. The false blood demon found himself in complete darkness. The false blood demon tried to figure out where he was by looking around. The false blood demon felt something incredible behind him, attracting his attention, and turned around in awe of it. Iron's inner energy was reflected in his eyes. The false blood demon saw how brightly the flame of this energy burned and how powerful it was. The false blood demon felt genuine fear as he looked at this. Footsteps were heard next to him as the false blood demon trembled and couldn't take his eyes off what he saw. Iron, like a madman, asked if he had seen what Iron wanted to show him. The false blood demon opened his trembling lips, about to answer. The false blood demon turned around at the sound of Iron's voice, feeling happy and not hiding his tears that he was able to see this in life. In reality, before the last of his strength left his body, the false blood demon whispered to Iron that he was a great blood god. Iron stood over the withered corpse, looking down at it. Iron felt that the blood he had consumed was full of impurities. Iron decided to cleanse it of impurities immediately, getting rid of the unnecessary through the blood rising from his body, leaving only the useful. Iron gathered energy in his dantian, preparing to absorb it. The gears that Muwan had once told him about began to spin, removing the chains that were restricting Iron. Iron felt like he had reached the pinnacle of pure blood. Iron felt his body overflowing with the energy that the blood demon divine art had given him. Yunha and Director Kang couldn't take their eyes off of Iron as he reached the maximum level right before their eyes. Director Kang couldn't help but shudder at what he saw. He remembered that in the beginning it was just a game because their cult needed changes. At the same time, the cult followers were heading towards the fortress of the bloody demon. They felt the change from Iron's presence in the cult, and they were drawn to that feeling. Director Kang thought that they had no future before even if the blood god had appeared earlier, and so they switched sides. They had hoped that this sacrifice would awaken the blood cult, but now Director Khan looked at Iron in front of him, and at Iron's feet lay the withered corpse of the false blood demon that had been overthrown. Director Kang looked at the first one to perfect the blood demon divine art, and still suffered defeat. Director Kang clearly heard the defeated man recognize Iron as the new blood god at the last second. Director Kang looked up at his granddaughter and called out to her, but he quickly corrected himself. He addressed Yunha as the priestess she was. Director Kang asked her if she had foreseen this outcome, seeing her weak smile. As Iron walked away from them, Yunha replied that the blood demon was the king of the blood cult. Yunha confidently said that this god was capable of miracles as Iron climbed up the stairs. Iron turned around as he reached the place where the throne stood, while Yunha was talking about how she just recognized the true blood demon. The elders who were spared couldn't take their eyes off Iron. The Bloody Sword Squad entered the throne room. Iron watched calmly as people gathered in the hall. All the residents and servants of the bloody demon's fortress lined up in front of Iron. Iron remembered his teacher Mu Wan and felt pity. Iron's gaze remained thoughtful as he thought about Mu Wan's past. Iron's attention was brought back to the present when someone stood below him. The first elder, who was the chief advisor of the defeated blood demon, looked at Iron. Director Kang called out to him, breaking into a shout. Director Kang thought that the first elder had witnessed what happened and didn't understand why he couldn't accept the truth. The first elder did not pay attention to Director Khan, who held the position of left guard. The first elder raised his hands, praising the blood demon and wishing for his eternal reign. Left guard Kang was surprised by the first elder's reaction, not expecting such a quick acceptance from him. The first elder fell to his knees, bowing to the blood demon. The rest of the followers fell to their knees after him, wishing honor and eternal rule for the bloody demon. Iron looked at them, remembering himself. Iron saw before him poor people stuck in the ruins of their lives. As his followers praised him, stretching their hands to the sky, Iron thought that they were similar in that they had lost everything and dreamed of revenge. Iron closed his eyes, deciding that as a student of his teachers, he had to answer this call, and blood began to flow from his eyes. Iron kept his eyes closed as the blood drew a pattern on his body using internal energy. Left guard Kan continued to kneel and couldn't believe his eyes as he watched the pattern spread across Iron's body. Iron was almost finished with the blood pattern decorating his body. The sight captivated all who could see. The left guard could not take his eyes off it, saying that Iron was the one they had been waiting for so long. The god of their cult. Iron opened his eyes, looking at his followers. The followers saw behind his back a gathered energy, depicting a bloody demon. The followers bowed to the ground, praising the power of the true blood demon they had seen. Iron continued to look at them as the blood pattern slowly disappeared from his body. The elders continued to praise Iron. Iron interrupted them with one word. Iron began to walk down the stairs, rubbing his face and saying that he knew it would end like this while his followers looked at him. Iron told everyone to get up because he didn't like that, and the first elder started speaking doctrine that said to behave like that. Iron turned to Yunha, asking what this doctrine was. Yunha rose to her feet, quickly explaining that it was a set of rules from one of the former lords. Iron pointed his finger towards the first elder, voicing the conclusion that he himself determined how his subordinates should behave. The first elder slightly lowered his head, saying that he would obey Iron's wishes. Behind Iron, the withered body moved slightly. Senior Khan noticed this. Chief Han reached for his sword, surprised that the false blood demon was still alive. Iron simply waved his hand, telling Chief Han to forget about it, because he didn't stand a chance anyway. Iron looked at the false blood demon, realizing that it was completely broken. The false blood demon, completely dried up, moved slightly on the floor. Iron scratched his neck, clicking his tongue in displeasure, and said that he planned to take care of the Heavenly Clan as well, which raised questions from the first elder. Iron raised his hand, extending his index and middle fingers, saying that he would show everything now. Iron pressed on the important points on the false blood demon's body. The elders watched him, not hiding their surprise. The body of the false blood demon rose from the floor. Its limbs twisted in a spasm, and it began to shake. The elders exclaimed, trying to comprehend what they saw. They saw how the body of the deposed lord changed, recognizing the technique of reverse transformation. Senior Han and left guard Kang were shocked to hear that no one had noticed this technique before, not even the former leader. Iron interrupted them, reminding them that he was from the Heavenly Clan, despite the left guard's misunderstanding. Iron checked whether the left guard knew that this technique allows one to change the body at will. Left guard Kang fell silent, realizing that this was a heavenly demon technique. Iron patted the left guard on the shoulder, saying that they would discuss this later. Iron called out to Yunha the priestess, who immediately responded to him, saying that she would obey any of his orders. Iron walked closer to her, ignoring the others, and asked if the pond of 10,000 bloods had disappeared. After some time, Yunha, the priestess, led Iron down the stairs under the palace building. Iron felt that the place was full of demonic energy that was helping him to cleanse himself, noting that people outside the cult would not be able to withstand such a flow. Yunha stopped when she reached the end of the stairs and informed Iron that they had made it. They stood at the approach to the pond of 10,000 bloods, where the blood of all the occultists was collected. Yunha added that this is the place where the cult leader sheds his blood for the blessing ceremony, just like the previous one did. Unha handed Iron the ceremonial robes, but Iron refused, saying that he did not need unnecessary formalities. Yunha, the priestess, wanted to argue, but Iron interrupted her, asking what a god was in her opinion. The priestess thought for a moment, trying to figure out how to answer correctly. The priestess was confident in her answer, saying that the blood demon, Iron, was the true god. But Iron said that he was expecting a different answer. Iron asked her to talk about the concept of a god, so she would answer what makes a god, making it clear to Yunha that she wanted to hear the definition of a god. Hearing the answer that it was a super being that led to prosperity and fulfilled human desires, Iron agreed. Iron raised his hand, asking the priestess why he was considered a god. He agreed that he defeated the others, but the punishment did not make him a god. Priestess Yunha looked at him, not quite understanding what he meant. She was saying that having control over the blood art was enough. Iron took a step forward, telling her what she didn't understand. Iron walked towards the lake, telling Yunha, who was looking at him, that no one had ever shown her this before. Iron extended his hand over the lake of 10,000 bloods, telling the priestess to watch carefully. Iron released a drop of blood into the lake, telling Yunha that he would show her why he was a god. His blood mixed with the blood that filled the lake. Even the people in the throne room at this moment felt the vibration that passed through the fortress of the blood demon. The elders and the left guard looked around, intuitively understanding that this was the work of Iron, their blood god. Iron closed his eyes, focusing on the sensations. Iron could sense the energy of all the cult followers in the fortress, no matter where they were. And the followers also felt his presence. They looked towards the palace. Iron opened his eyes, filled with energy. A tornado of blood rose from the lake. Yunha covered herself from the gusts of wind and energy with her hands, while Iron stood calmly on the shore of the lake. Yunha couldn't believe her eyes. She had never seen or heard of anything like this. Yunha shouted at Iron that she had never even read about such a thing, and Iron wasn't even surprised. Iron continued to look at the tornado in front of him, reaching out his hand towards it, and explained that during Teacher Mu Wan's time, such a thing was not possible. Iron thought again, remembering the past with the teacher. Iron remembered listening carefully to Mu Wan's words about the divine art being slightly different from the one Mu Wan had learned. To satisfy Iron's curiosity about why this happened, Mu Wan told him what the Demon Queen had told him back then. Mu Wan shared that the divine art reminded him of the magic of the destroyed Gehenna race, and Mu Wan had to overcome it. And so, Iron learned that Mu Wan and the Demon Queen were working together to redefine the divine art. Mu Wan then said that strength was needed to test the power of the new divine art, and mentioned a new feature in the technique. In the present, the energy from the tornado above the lake spread out around, drawing a pattern, while Iron recalled the words about the combination of magic and combat techniques. Iron drew a magic circle with energy, recalling Mu Wan's words about blood art acting like a spell. Iron finished the inscription by saying that a god must not only punish, but also bless, otherwise he will not be a god. At Iron's command, energy from the blood tornado spread around. Unhaye had to close her eyes from the bright flash of light that covered the entire dungeon where the lake was located. The blood tornado disappeared, leaving behind faint swirls of blood that faded over time. Bloody rain began to fall from the ceiling, and Iron reached out to catch a few drops. Priestess Aeonha, who was standing behind him, looked at the ceiling in surprise, not understanding what had happened. Yunha turned to Iron, her lord, asking what was going on. Without waiting for an answer, Yunha felt a strong weakness throughout her body and fell to her knees. Her eyes were wide open when she suddenly felt something all over her body. Iron turned slightly towards her, telling her not to worry. Feeling even weaker, Yunha heard Iron say that she would feel different after waking up. Yunha fell to the ground. Yunha was lying unconscious on the ground near the Lake of 10,000 Bloods. All the followers who were in the fortress of the Bloody Demon repeated her fate. They lay unconscious on the street. Sometime after everyone woke up, Left Guard Khan couldn't hide his satisfied smile. Iron sat on the throne, looking at his subordinates, who were excited about the changes, and asked if they liked it, if they felt better. The faces of the Left Guard and the elders glowed with happiness and health. The gray hair disappeared. They couldn't contain their impulse, and all fell to their knees before Iron, thanking him for the Bloody Demon's immeasurable mercy. Iron reminded them that he had already told them not to prostrate themselves before him, looking at his subordinates who had become younger and had increased in strength. Everyone stood before him, feeling grateful as he looked at their red eyes, symbolizing the cult. Iron ordered 3rd Sergeant Han to cut his finger and show his blood, and he followed his leader's orders without question. Sergeant Major Han made a small cut on his finger. The elders and the Left Guard stared at the finger, exclaiming in surprise. They watched as a drop of purple blood flowed from the wound while Iron explained. Senior Han didn't expect to see purple blood on himself, exclaiming in shock, and Iron asked if they knew what it was. Senior Han pulled himself together and looked at Iron on the throne, honestly admitting that he didn't know what it was, but he felt much better and stronger. Iron listened to his words, explaining that it all depended on the level they were at before he gave them the blessing. The Left Guard and First Elder looked at Iron as he spoke about how they should be at that level too. But the next words, that the priestess should already be at the next level. Black blood shocked Yunha. Yunha tried to understand why she had become stronger despite having less achievements to begin with. And Iron simply pointed out that she was a priestess. Iron pointed to himself, explaining that he was now influencing her power. Iron explained that he had used the new ability of the Blood Demon Divine Art on the followers. Now, all who join the cult and learn the bloody arts will become stronger, but will become Iron's debtor. Iron rose from his throne, saying he wanted to see the rest of the followers, and the Left Guard offered a seat. The people in the Blood Demon Fortress began to look much more alive and healthy after receiving Iron's blessing. The Left Guard told Iron that even the most hungry and sick had become more lively as they watched from the terrace. Iron agreed with his words, continuing to look down on his followers, but noted that this would not last long. Iron turned slightly to the Left Guard, asking about the problem of money that they lacked, and Guard Khan winced. The Left Guard and the First Elder lowered their heads, admitting that it was all the fault of the guards and elders. Iron corrected him, saying that it was all the former leader and the dead elders. Iron turned to face them, saying that they would not find peace even after death, and would pay dearly for what they had done. Iron closed his eyes, frowning, and noted that they could have kept everything from falling apart so badly. The Left Guard hesitated when Iron asked about the cult not lasting until next month. The Left Guard admitted that they had even sold their shares in Gava's company in order to get out of trouble. But the guild was on the verge of collapse. The Left Guard continued to talk about how they were going to clear a couple of portals, but Iron appeared, sighing at that moment. Iron was devastated by this news. He looked up to the sky, wondering why the teachers sent him to these people. The Left Guard again drew his attention, saying that the biggest problem was the lack of elders. He explained that each elder was responsible for his own palace, holding a specific role, and their head was the leader. Iron waved his hand when he heard that there was no one to do the work of the dead. He suggested simply promoting the deputies who were trained by the elders. The Left Guard reminded Iron that the deputies were loyal to their elders. The Left Guard was adamant that anyone who did not swear allegiance should be executed, and the First Elder felt uneasy. Iron corrected him, saying that it was not worth getting rid of people when there were few workers. But the Left Guard was afraid of a rebellion. Iron asked honestly if the Left Guard really thought they could go against him, but he didn't wait for an answer, leaving his word final. The Left Guard bowed respectfully, accepting the order. Iron remembered something else, catching the attention of the Left Guard, Khan. Left Guard Khan was shocked when Iron told him that he would become the leader of the cult. Iron calmly repeated, saying that he would become the leader, not paying much attention to the shock of Guardian Khan, who began to talk about the role of the leader. Iron interrupted him, saying that the cult leader is not a bloody demon, that these roles need to be separated, and that this was simply not thought about before. Iron continued speaking, pointing out that the Left Guard had kept the corporation afloat for decades, despite it coming to an end. The Left Guard continued to listen to him with his mouth slightly open when Iron reminded him that he also took care of the blood cult. Iron pointed out his understanding of what was happening outside, in the world, and what was happening inside the cult. Iron came even closer to him, saying that the role of the cult leader should go to him, and the left guard turned to the elders. The elders bowed, saying that they would follow whatever the blood demon ordered. Iron looked back at Khan's left guard, drawing his attention to himself. The left guard froze when he heard Iron say that he was now the leader of the bloody cult. Left guard Khan covered his mouth, which had been open in shock the entire time. Left guard Khan dropped to one knee in front of Iron. Left guard Khan took on the role of cult leader, vowing that he would prove himself worthy of such responsibility. Iron leaned towards him and placed his hand on his shoulder, stating that the words of the cult leader Khan already sounded like the words of a true leader. Iron looked at him, his eyes lit up with inner energy. His mood changed as he asked the cult leader Kanu a question. Cult leader Khan became nervous when he heard Iron asking how he was going to solve the income problem. Iron looked up at the others, causing them to flinch, and asked if they had any ideas. The elders bowed their heads in silence, not knowing what to answer. Behind them appeared the priestess Yunha, who asked that this matter be left to her. Yunha moved closer to Iron and the new cult leader, Khan, stating that she may not know as much about the cult's affairs as her grandfather. Yunha was confident as she continued to say that she understood the situation from the outside better than anyone else and had experience in managing a corporation. Iron looked at her, doubting Yunha's claim that she could solve the cult's income problem in a week. Yunha waited for his decision, while Iron thought that she could handle it if she had experience with her grandfather's corporation. Iron agreed, giving her the right to decide the matter. A week later, Yunha stood in front of the closed door with a tablet in her hands, asking Iron, the blood demon, for permission to enter. Iron sat in the lotus position with his back to the door and allowed her to enter to report the situation. When Yunha opened the door, Iron asked how things were going, slightly nervous. Yunha turned on her tablet and began talking about all the company's stocks and assets. Iron's face was full of shock when he heard that everything was sold, and the only thing he could do was ask her again. Iron regained his composure and sat down facing Yunha, asking her again what she did. Yunha confirmed, and Iron asked if it was true that they had to sell absolutely everything. Yunha told him that the corporation had already served its purpose, but Iron could tell that he wanted more details. Yunha continued, explaining what the corporation had already done, pointing to the blocking of the entrance to the Blood Demon's fortress. Yunha mentioned that a way was devised to keep the company afloat. Yunha continued speaking while looking at her tablet, explaining that many shares had already been sold, and the company's growth would make it difficult to sell their stake any further. Yunha ended by concluding that she had simply solved the problem ahead of time, while Iron listened to her detailed explanation in surprise. Iron praised her, realizing that she had done the right thing, and Yunha bowed to him in gratitude for his words. Yunha continued by saying that she also abolished both guilds, which sparked new interest from Iron. Yunha recalled the conversation with the third elder, looking at Iron, who continued to sit on the floor. Iron remembered that their guilds were influenced by Hwasun, which he was not happy about. Iron thought, putting his hand to his chin, knowing full well that now was not the best time. His success in turning the cult around and subjugating the cultists was only possible due to the Blood Demon's art and connection to the cult. Iron knew that he couldn't go against the Hwasun guild now because he might lose everything he had worked for. Meanwhile, Yunha continued, saying that she decided to start their activities from scratch. Iron folded his arms across his chest again, wondering what that could mean. Yunha excitedly said that she was going to open a new guild and build it from scratch. Yunha's idea was like trying to cross high snowy mountains, but she was aware of the risks and competition. Yunha confidently stated that the blood cult was not the same as before, feeling that everything would work out. Iron brought her down to earth, saying that they had only gotten a little better and still had a lot of problems. Yunha, who fell to her knees in surprise, looked at Iron, losing her previous confidence. Iron began listing the problems, pointing out that the cult lacked experience, and that fighting monsters was different from fighting people. Yunha lowered her head, acknowledging his point. Hearing Iron's words about how they could gain experience and become stronger, Yunha looked up at him, asking what kind of method that was. Iron promised to tell her later, and asked if she had chosen a name, which made Yunha gather her courage again, sitting up straight on the floor. Yunha, with sparkling eyes, declared that she would name the guild after Iron, listing in the name all the titles that she considered him worthy of. Iron turned pale upon hearing the title, telling Yunha to seriously forget about it. Yunha placed her hands on the floor as if she had been hit by his reaction, not understanding why Iron didn't like it while he was talking about the title. Yunha came to her senses after hearing that her name would be in the title and began asking Iron about his choice. Iron pointed his finger at her, saying that she would be the guild leader, but Yunha started to insist that only he could be the leader. Ayunha stopped arguing loudly and stared at him when Iron said that she was very stupid sometimes. Iron began to explain to her, asking if she had forgotten who he was and reminding her that he was not allowed to operate outside the fortress. Iron pointed at Yunha, who was listening attentively, saying that she was suitable for the role of leader because nothing was known about her. Iron concluded, mentioning that the Hwasun Guild might still be keeping an eye on him. After some time in the D-rank portal in Namyangju nearby, inside the portal, zombie-like monsters rushed to attack like madmen. The squad member swung his sword, cutting off the fingers of the humanoid monster that was trying to grab him. The squad member swung his sword at the monster, which did not stop moving despite being wounded. The squad member plunged his sword through the monster, saying that the hunt was over considering the monster dead. But despite the sword thrust into his chest, the monster grabbed the blade, preventing it from being pulled out, and continued moving towards the squad member. The squad member was shocked, trying to understand why the blow to the heart did not kill the monster. At that moment, the monster in front of him was cut into small pieces. The silhouette of Yunha, holding a sword in her hands, could be seen through the crumbling remains of the monster. Yunha threw an item to the squad member, explaining that the undead die from weapons covered in sacred magic, and he caught it. The other members of their squad informed Yunha that everything was cleared. At the command of Yunha, who was now the guild leader, the squad members dropped to the ground and pressed their hand to the ground. In Eunha's memories, Iron appeared, explaining to her the art of absorbing the blood demon. Eunha didn't understand how they could use it, but Iron reassured her that it was possible because of his connection with his priestess. Currently, the squad members were experiencing the art of absorbing the blood demon in practice by collecting energy from the monsters they killed. That same evening at the pier bar in Dongdaemun, rumors were spreading inside the bar, with patrons discussing the new guild that had settled in Namyangju. Many shared gossip that they had heard somewhere. There you could also hear rumors about the Hwasun Guild. They discussed that the leader of the Scarlet Plum Blossom Squad, In-woo, was leaving somewhere. Iron walked straight to the bar where Chan Ho-seok stood, wiping glasses. Chan Ho-seok saw a familiar face approaching him. Iron stopped in front of him, not saying anything first. Jang Ho-seok took out a clean glass, telling Iron that if he held a grudge about the past, it was better not to talk about it. Jang Ho-seok poured him some alcohol into a glass, saying that it was a common thing in a place like this. Iron looked at the glass held out to him, remaining silent. Iron raised the glass to his mouth, continuing to look at Chan Ho-seok. After placing his empty glass on the counter, Iron heard a question from Chan Ho-seok about how Iron ended up joining the clan. Jang Ho-seok continued speaking, mentioning that the black market is on good terms with the blood cult. Chang Ho-seok suggested that Iron was unlikely to come with a personal question if he was an occultist, and Iron finally agreed vaguely. Chan Ho-seok adjusted his glasses, asking Iron what brought him here. Iron said he needed access to the black market. Chang Ho-seok looked at him seriously, saying that Iron did not have the authority to make such a request. Iron wordlessly threw the medallion with the tassel onto the bar counter. Chan Ho-seok stared in surprise at the tassel medallion on the bar counter. Chang Ho-seok picked it up to take a closer look, asking Iron if he was really a great elder in the blood cult. Iron sarcastically asked if it wasn't obvious, but Chan Ho-seok honestly said that he found it hard to believe, but access would still be expensive. Iron, without hesitation, immediately said that he had information for Chan Ho-seok. Jang Ho-seok tensed up a little when he heard his words and asked what kind of information it was. Iron's eyes lit up with internal energy as he informed Jang Ho-seok that this generation's blood demon had been deposed. Jang Ho-seok asked in surprise about the overthrow of the blood demon. Chan Ho-seok looked at Iron, saying that this just couldn't be happening. It was obvious that he was nervous. Iron chuckled, telling him that he reacted as if he knew very well about the king's bloody fortress. Before Chan Ho-seok could respond, Iron's bloody needle flew towards his neck. Iron didn't move from his place. He continued to talk about how Chan Ho-seok knew so much, but not about overthrowing the former blood demon. Iron pulled out his hand from his pocket, which was enveloped in a weak energy, and guessed that there was a rat in the fortress, watching Chang Ho-seok's reaction. Jang Ho-seok asked Iron if he understood what he was doing, regaining his composure with the needle threatening him at his neck. Iron ignored his question, continuing to ask him about his place in the blood cult. Chang Ho-seok slowly reached for the weapon under the counter, warning Iron not to do anything he would regret. Behind Iron, Jang Ho-seok's subordinates did not hold back their killing intent as they looked at Iron. Chan Ho-seok grabbed the sword under the counter. Iron noted that his information gathering wasn't that important right now, dispelling the energy of the needle at Chang Ho-seok's neck. Iron asked again about the black market, as if nothing had happened while Chang Ho-seok was adjusting his collar after the needle disappeared. Chang Ho Seok replied that he could not guarantee anything, and first needed permission from his superiors. Iron wasn't surprised, saying that he knew about it, and led to another, once again attracting Chang Ho Seok's attention. Iron's words about needing to meet the Black King caused a strong reaction from Chang Ho Seok. Chang Ho Seok's subordinates sitting behind him at the bar reacted the same way. The next moment, Chang Ho Seok and his subordinates pointed their swords at Iron. Iron didn't even bat an eyelid when Chang Ho Seok pressed the tip of his sword to his neck, telling him that Iron had crossed the line. Chang Ho Seok was angry, saying that Iron wouldn't be able to get away with it after he so easily named the Black King. Iron asked if they were going overboard with a certain name, and Chang Ho Seok replied that he didn't believe that such an ignorant person could be an elder. Chang Ho Seok adjusted his glasses, without lowering the sword that threatened Iron. He concluded that Iron did not belong to the blood cult, and asked about his purpose. Chang Ho Seok's sword drew blood from Iron's neck when Chang Ho Seok told him that if he told the truth, he would be released. Iron calmly said about the blood, which puzzled Chang Ho Seok. Iron looked down at his sword, saying that the blood was flowing as drops of blood ran down the blade to the hilt. Iron's blood reached Chang Ho Seok's hand. Chang Ho Seok flinched as he felt that it wasn't just blood. Chang Ho Seok screamed in pain, but did not let go of the sword pointed at the calm Iron until his subordinates realized what was happening. Iron told him that the blood of true followers of the cult is not affected by the poison that Chang Ho Seok added to the whiskey. Iron watched as Chang Ho Seok held the sword, which was now too heavy, with a trembling hand, saying that that poison could kill anyone. Chang Ho Seok's subordinates shouted at Iron, but he did not take his eyes off Chang Ho Seok, saying that he would not kill him so as not to spoil his relationship with the Black King. Iron repeated his question, looking at Chang Ho Seok's agony from the poison that still held the sword, asking for his right to see the leader. There was blood spreading on the floor around Iron. The swords were still pointed at him. Iron clarified about the Black King being saved by the previous blood demon. Games jumped out of the pool of blood on the floor, as Iron said that the Black King maintained good relations with the cult in order to get even. Chang Ho Seok's subordinates looked at the many bloody needles that were pointed at them in surprise. Iron finally turned to look at them and gave them his attention, his eyes glowing with inner energy as he announced that he was the new blood demon. Chang Ho Seok was shocked by his words, not believing that such a thing could be true. Their conversation stopped when a voice came out of nowhere, saying that Iron really did have the right to meet then. The Black King's voice gave orders to his men to bring Iron. Iron chuckled, asking if he had really been watching this whole time. Chang Ho Seok didn't understand what was happening when he heard the Black King himself speaking to them. Iron raised his hand, taking back all the blood energy and cleansing Chang Ho Seok's body of the poison. Chang Ho Seok screamed again as his body was being forcibly cleansed, but Iron ignored him, telling him to take him to the Black King. After some time, he was brought to a nightclub, near which there were a lot of people standing in line. Inside there was a wild rave atmosphere complete with light show. Iron followed behind Chang Ho Seok, noticing that it was too noisy here. Chang Ho Seok looked over his shoulder at Iron. He thought he was worried. Iron followed behind him with a solemn face, while Chang Ho Seok thought that he was simply the ruler of a fallen world. Chang Ho Seok was sure that for the Black King, who ruled the darkness across the continent, Iron was nothing but dust under his feet. But even this confidence did not stop Chang Ho Seok from thinking about why he still wanted to see him in person. Chang Ho Seok walked up to the door where two guards were standing. One of the guards held out his hand, stopping Chang Ho Seok. The guard sternly told Chang Ho Seok that he could not pass. Chang Ho Seok turned to Iron, calmly informing him that he could not go any further. Chang Ho Seok pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, arrogantly wishing Iron luck as he walked back. The guards looked at each other as he left. One of them took out a key card and applied it to open the doors. The guard turned to Iron, telling him to follow him, and walked through the opened doors. Iron followed up the stairs into the dimly lit area. Iron thought that it was ridiculous for such a strong man to stand guard at the door. Iron turned around, remembering the people who were in the bar. Iron recalled those he had seen, recognizing most of them as high-ranking members of the Black Sect. Iron was distracted from his thoughts by looking ahead. The guard pointed to the stairs, where there were many guards standing on both sides, showing Iron the way. Iron walked up the stairs, ignoring the guards he passed. Iron reached for the door to open it. The next moment, Iron was transported to another place, looking ahead in surprise with his hands still outstretched. Iron was inside the normal apartment, still in shock at how everything around him had suddenly changed. The man on the couch caught his attention by saying that he didn't mean to scare Iron and apologized. The Black King with his tie half untied indicated that he had strong protection due to the importance of his peace. Iron looked at the Black King greeting him. The Black King introduced himself with a predatory smile, calling himself the master of this place. his body enveloped in energy. The Black King pointed to the sofa, inviting Iron to sit down. Iron sat down with a not very pleased face, listening to the Black King's offer of a drink. Iron thanked him, but said that there was no point in it, since he did not get drunk. The Black King didn't try to persuade him, he simply snapped his fingers, dissolving the bottle on the table. The Black King challenged Iron, wanting to know why he wanted to see him. Iron asked directly about their assistance to the blood cult all this time. The Black King said that kindness is valued in the world, trying to refer to this while taking a sip of alcohol. Iron called kindness as a reason nonsense, attracting more attention from the Black King. Iron remained confident that there was another reason, not taking his eyes off the Black King. The Black King smiled at the corners of his lips when he heard his words. The Black King placed the empty glass on the table, saying that the information about the change of the blood demon was useful to them. When the Black King said that Leader Khan was now in charge of the cult, Iron asked a question, wanting to know if all the rats had died. The Black King quickly justified himself by naming the elder who shared information with them and was killed by Iron. Iron lowered his head, calling the dead man an idiot, and the Black King cheered up, saying that they could consider each other comrades in exchanging information. The Black King agreed, calling the elder a fool who had long since fallen behind the times. The Black King continued to talk about how choosing Kang as the leader was the right thing to do, and that it would help expand the influence of Yun Ha's guild. Iron looked at the Black King, who placed his hands on his knees and leaned closer to him to say something. The Black King folded his hands in front of him, trying to find out from Iron if the blood demon and the cult leader were working together. Iron didn't give him a clear answer. Iron chuckled as he asked the Black King about the rules of the black market, where any information was provided for a fee. The Black King laughed, agreeing with him, but said that he had too many questions for him. The Black King pointed at Iron, calling him by his full name. Iron was not pleased to hear his name reminding him of the past. The Black King began to talk about what happened at Vulcan's burial site, mentioning the corpse of Shin Hong, who was looking for a specific slave there. That same day, a huge hole was found in the ceiling, and most of the slaves escaped from there. The Black King continued speaking, mentioning that at the same time, someone appeared on the black market who mentioned an incident from 5 years ago. The Black King mentioned that the slave Shin Hong was looking for had also entered the guild 5 years ago, and the Black King didn't think it was a coincidence. The Black King was sure that he had solved the riddle, but until the moment when Iron raised his head and said that he did not believe in coincidences or fate, Iron looked at the Black King, not hiding the inner energy in his eyes, saying that he was building his future with his own hands. The Black King was amazed. The Black King covered his face with his hand, finally realizing that Iron had intentionally left hints about himself, and said that he was much more interesting than he thought. Iron waved his hand, saying that he had only come this far thanks to them. Iron said that it was still difficult for him to learn about them on his own, looking very serious. The Black King asked again, seeing Iron's confidence. Without waiting for an answer, the Black King burst out laughing, throwing his head back. The Black King wiped away tears of laughter, telling Iron that they would work together. Iron watched the Black King closely as he regained his composure. The Black King spread his arms out to the sides, asking Iron to tell him what he needed. Sometime after the meeting between Iron and the Black King at other closed doors, the Black King adjusted his loose tie, giving himself a serious look. The Black King entered these doors and moved forward along the dark corridor. The Black King dropped to one knee, announcing that he had returned. His mistress, to whom he addressed himself, stood at the window, looking out onto the street. His mistress did not turn to the Black King to ask how everything had gone. The Black King stood on one knee, head bowed. He said that he now understood why she was so interested in him, and he was not an ordinary man. The Black King continued to say that the ordinary player Lee Iron, who was a slave, had obtained the power of a martial artist. The Black King continued to talk about how it was unclear how he became a blood demon, without having detailed information about Iron's past. His mistress listened as the Black King asked if Iron could really be the legendary blood god. His mistress squeezed their clasped hands tighter when he finished speaking, saying that Vulcan had nothing to do with it, and that they didn't know how to develop a player. The Black King raised his head to look at her and asked what she thought. His mistress asked him in a trembling voice about his calling Iron a man, saying that it could not be. His mistress trembled, feeling the pressure of Iron's gaze on her, as if he was there, saying that he could only be a monster. The Black King was surprised to hear from her, an order to promise Iron everything he wanted, and an instruction to come in person. The Black King did not argue, accepting his mistress's order. His mistress looked out the window, thinking that the one she had been waiting for had finally arrived. That same evening, at Leader Kang's villa in Namyangju, Iron sat on the couch, energy swirling around his hand in the form of vortexes, as he thought about how there was a big risk today. Iron looked at the swirls on his hand, thinking that he was indeed curious about the power of the Black Cult, but not to this extent. Iron remembered the Black King, realizing that he definitely couldn't handle him now. Iron clenched his fist, crushing the vortexes of energy, deciding that he could confirm that their aid to the Blood Demon cult was not without reason. Iron remembered Mu Wan's words that the Blood Sect and Heaven Sect were equally important, but one group only helped the Blood Sect. Iron looked ahead, remembering that that secret group was called Hao Moon. The next day arrived. Yunha stood there in shock, her mouth open and staring straight ahead. Iron was the first to break the silence as Yunha tried to get over the shock. Iron asked the Black King, who was sitting on the sofa in front of him with a friendly smile, why he had come. The Black King looked at Iron with the same glowing goodwill, informing him that the investment issue had been resolved. Iron looked at him, not understanding what he meant, and asked about it. The Black King pointed his hand at Yunha, who was holding the documents, saying that the Blood Sect needed changes. Next, the Black King pointed at Iron with the documents in his hands, saying that a new blood demon had appeared. The Black King pointed to himself, saying that any investor knows that it is worth investing in adventures with great potential. The Black King, Ha Se-min, extended his hand to Yunha, remembering that he forgot to introduce himself, and she gave in to the moment, but quickly turned away to Iron. Yunha panicked and told Iron that the investment conditions were incredibly favorable. Yunha said that it was too profitable and too suspicious, getting closer to Iron with a panicked face. Iron asked her to move away and stood up from the sofa, turning to Se-min with an offer to talk in private. Se-min, the Black King, looked at Iron with full willingness, and agreed. Iron closed the door behind them as they went into another room. Iron sat down at the table opposite the smiling Se-min, starting a conversation. Iron immediately asked why he had actually come, not wanting to beat around the bush. Se-min pretended not to understand what he meant, repeating the words about investing again, but Iron quickly cut him off. Iron continued to try to get to the truth, asking what Se-min meant when he talked about the guild. Se-min looked at Iron, honestly admitting that he thought he already knew. Se-min began to explain his idea to Iron, gesturing vigorously. He said that the blood demon was full of secrets. Se-min pointed to himself, saying that they, the black market, were very curious about them, and he wanted to see for himself. Iron asked if he was sure of his words, causing Se-min to be surprised. Iron pointed his finger up, asking if this was definitely not an order from the higher-ups. Se-min frowned, saying that he didn't understand what Iron was talking about. He had declared himself as the king of the black market. Iron watched his reaction, thinking that he had hit the nail on the head. Iron waved his hand vaguely, grinning, and said that if there was a king, then there must be an emperor. Se-min continued to frown, telling Iron that he had a bad sense of humor. Iron didn't pay attention. He asked if the king could walk like that, and received the answer that his company was good and could function without a leader. When Iron said that he was jealous, Se-min told him not to worry, because his cult would face the same thing, because Se-min was going to help. Se-min told Iron that he had access to the black market, once again turning Iron's attention elsewhere. Iron noted that he hadn't received anything yet, asking what access he was talking about, but Se-min began to say that it wasn't that simple. Se-min explained that the black market is a place where information from all over the world is collected, and access allows one to get there. Se-min said that he would represent Iron's interests for the time being, since he could not reveal his identity as a blood demon. Iron accepted his explanation, noticing that he had regained his composure and was beginning to act businesslike again. Iron also switched to a businesslike conversation, folding his hands into a triangle under his chin, and asked about his request. Se-min was ready to answer right away, saying that this was exactly what he was getting at. Se-min reported that he had found the magician he needed. Iron thought, remembering the mage Bondeno from the past. The skinny guy surfaced in Iron's memories. Iron truly believed that he was already dead. Se-min interrupted his thoughts by informing him that there was a problem, taking out his phone. Iron looked at Se-min's phone, which he placed on the table as he started talking about the Bondeno dungeon. Iron looked at the phone screen as Se-min spoke about how Armo's location had been exposed. The photo showed a fenced stone structure that looked like a passageway, and Se-min said that it was in the territory of the Hainam Guild. After some time, many people gathered at the stone passage in the territory of the Hainam Guild. Everyone turned in one direction, hearing the order for everyone to gather. Yuksa Gul, the leader of the Hainam Guild, greeted the assembled group along with his subordinates. People recognized him by the nickname Lightning Sword, rejoicing at his appearance. They greeted him respectfully, not hiding their joy at Yuksa Gul's appearance. One of the players on the side clicked his tongue after hearing them praise Yuksa Gul. This player and his comrades were cleaning their weapons on the sidelines, saying that Yuksagul was annoying him. The player shut up when Yuksagul appeared right behind him with the same smile he had come with. The player nervously tried to justify himself, not realizing how much Yuksagul could hear. But Yuksagul didn't even give him a chance to get a word in, punching the player in the gut. The player coughed up blood from the force of the blow. Yuksagul looked at the player who had fallen to his knees from the blow and was trying to catch his breath. Yuksagul called him a worm, looking at the player with disdain. The player became scared when Yuksagul began to draw his weapon from its sheath, saying that the player's head was full of demonic thoughts. The player begged for mercy, shaking with fear, when Yuksagul said that he would personally rid him of these thoughts by pointing a gun at him. Yuksagul swung his weapon at the player, intending to kill him. Another player stepped between them, asking Yuksagul to stop. Yuksagul asked the leader of the Gyodon Guild, Kang Cheol-woo, who appeared between them, if that player was one of his people. Cheol-woo looked at Yuksagul, nervous about the situation, without giving an answer. Yuksagul said that even this could not stop him from fulfilling his duty as a righteous sword, raising his weapon once again. Cheol-woo said that he guaranteed that his subordinate was not connected to the demon while he was nervous with fear behind his leader. Yuksagul became even more angry, asking Cheol-woo how dare he say that he is wrong. Cheol-woo did not give up trying to save his subordinate, saying that he would prove it in the dungeon. Yuksagul looked at Cheol-woo silently for a while. Yuksagul sheathed his weapon, saying that he would believe him. Yuksagul turned away from them, saying that he would see what would happen in the dungeon. Yuksagul walked on, leaving the two players behind, saying that they would soon be entering the dungeon. Cheol-woo shook his hand at his subordinate, saying that to people like Yuksagul, they were just pathetic dogs. Cheol-woo continued to tell him that martial artists like Yuksagul become stronger through training and insight. Cheol-woo said that such ordinary players who become stronger through fighting monsters mean nothing to them. Cheol-woo told him the only principle to survive with martial artists, advising him not to bark if he can't bite. The still trembling player listened to Cheol-woo and looked at the hand that was extended to him. The player told the leader that he understood his words and grabbed Cheol-woo's hand to get up from the ground. Cheol-woo turned to the other people, asking if they were from the Shadow Guild. Cheol-woo gave advice to the Shadow Guild boy to be careful if he wanted to survive. He smiled after hearing Cheol-woo's advice. Iron, hiding his blood-red hair and eyes under his disguise, accepted his advice, standing surrounded by his followers. Iron's hands were clasped behind his back, bloody energy gathering in them as he chatted pleasantly with the leader of the other guild. During the meeting with Se-min, he told Iron that the key to the dungeon was in the hands of the Haenam Guild. Se-min sat across from Iron at the table, saying that he wanted to figure it out on his own, but the squad had already been formed. Se-min showed Iron 2 fingers, giving him 2 options to get out of this situation. Se-min suggested disguising himself as a member of a phantom guild that rarely showed their appearance and joining the party. And the second option that Se-min pointed out was to steal the key. Se-min put his hand to his chest, saying that this was really doable and he only needed Iron's word to begin. Se-min looked at Iron with a smile, asking what he would choose. Iron's face showed displeasure, and he asked Se-min if he was checking him out. Iron guessed that Se-min would charge a pretty penny for this request, and he didn't want to get into debt for such a trifle. Iron was serious when he warned Se-min not to test him. Se-min chuckled softly with the same smile upon hearing his words. Se-min folded his hands in front of him, asking Iron if he understood what the Black Cult's investment meant. Se-min stood up from his chair, coming to the conclusion that they would stick to the first option, asking for the people to be prepared. Se-min headed towards the exit of the room, wishing Iron good luck. Iron continued to sit in place until the door closed behind Se-min, thinking that he couldn't act like this forever. Iron glanced over his shoulder, not hiding the energy blazing with anger around him, thinking that it was Se-min who needed to be tested, not him. In the present time, in the dungeon, Yuksagul used his martial art. His blow caused cracks to appear on the wall in front of him. Yuksagul sheathed his weapon as the wall debris fell to the ground. The people following him flattered him about the broken wall, and Yuksagul accepted their flattery with a smile. Yuksagul turned to the other side, wiping the smile from his face, and coldly asked why everyone was standing there. Yuksagul's gaze fell on Cheol-woo, the leader of the Gyodon Guild, telling them to move forward. Cheol-woo accepted his words with a smile and politeness, telling his subordinates to move. As Cheol-woo and the others advanced, Yuksagul called them useless idiots, not hiding his disdain for the players. Cheol-woo explained to the guild members that they were acting as a reconnaissance squad, and they needed to carefully examine the dungeon and report back. Cheol-woo explained to the guild members that this was a mage dungeon, and they had to be careful not to fall into a trap as they walked forward. One of the guild members was walking a little ahead and didn't notice the magic trap under his foot that he activated. Chul Wu rushed towards him, shouting for everyone to be careful. The inattentive culprit of activating the traps looked at the guild leader with confusion as he rushed towards him, his hand outstretched. An explosion thundered, and the guild members covered their faces with their hands, protecting themselves from the debris and bright light. Explosions began to ring out throughout the corridor one after another as the debris activated further traps. Chul Wu, with the culprit in his arms, was thrown to the side by the blast wave. Chul Wu addressed the boy with the wounds, Minho, by name, asking if he was okay, but Minho only asked for forgiveness. Chul Wu told him that there was nothing to apologize for, and took out a bottle of potion for Minho to drink quickly and heal his wounds. Chul Wu looked back at the other guild members, some of whom were also drinking the potion, relieved to see that there were no serious injuries. Yuksagul came up behind Chul Wu, commenting that they couldn't even dodge that, calling them idiots. Yuksagul ignored the wounded and said that now was not the time to whine, and that they needed to move on to the next area. Chul Wu asked for a break so that they could take care of the wounded and not cause more trouble later. Yuksagul said that nothing would have happened if they hadn't fallen into the trap, but he still allowed it. Chul Wu remained on one knee as Yuksagul walked away from them, shouting for the others to take a short break. Chul Wu turned around, looking around as if he was thinking about something. His attention was drawn to the Shadow Iron and his squad, disguised as a guild, who were standing calmly and waiting for them to move on. Chul Wu was shocked to realize that there wasn't a single scratch on them. Chul Wu thought about how there was not a speck of dust on them after the explosion, not knowing that Iron and the others were protecting themselves with internal energy. Chul Wu couldn't look away, thinking that they had used some expensive item to protect them. Black Swordsman Captain Zhong Ji-Su telepathically transmitted to Iron undercover that Chul Wu was looking at him closely. Iron stopped him when Ji-Su suggested taking him out, reminding him that Bondeno was not an easy opponent, and the dungeon would not be easy. From the outside, it looked like they were just standing there while Iron mentally said that they could deal with him later if necessary. At that moment, a girl ran down the corridor to the place where they had stopped for a rest, calling for her leader, Chul Wu. She pointed to the side saying that they had found a way out. Chul Wu accepted the news saying that they were almost done here. His subordinate was a little nervous, not knowing how to talk about the problem they were facing. Chul Wu looked at her with confusion, waiting for an explanation. The whole group came to the right place and saw in front of them a huge magic circle blocking the way to the door. Yuksagul looked ahead in surprise as his subordinate recognized the sacrificial magic circle. Chul Wu looked at Yuksagul, suggesting that he retreat and wait for the deactivation master. Yuksagul ignored him, commanding everyone to step aside, and released his internal energy, preparing to strike. Yuksagul was preparing to use the blue wave sword technique. A huge blue wave came out from his weapon, hitting the magic circle. Yuksagul was confident that they could destroy this magic circle themselves. Looking at the place where he struck, dust rose from the ground where the magic circle had been, and Yuksagul was confident that he had succeeded. But his eyes widened in shock as the dust cleared. The magic circle blocking the way was intact and unharmed. Yuksagul stared ahead, trying to figure out if this was really a magic circle. He tried to understand where he could have come from if this place was far from the western lands. Yuksagul clenched his fist, trembling with indignation. He believed that they couldn't just retreat like that. Chul Wu suggested that he retreat, but he didn't even listen to him, starting to think about the nature of the magic circle for sacrifices. Yuksagul turned to Chul Wu, looking like a madman, and suggested that they sacrifice someone to pass on. Chul Wu fell silent, staring at him, realizing that this old man had completely lost his mind. Yuksagul turned to Chul Wu and his guild, saying that he would give them a chance to die with honor. Chul Wu tried to dissuade him, reminding him that this was only reconnaissance and there was no need for unnecessary casualties. Yuksagul shouted at him, ordering him to remain silent. Yuksagul insisted that the mages in this dungeon could get out and harm their comrades while they were hesitating. The Gyodin Guild listened in shock as Yuksagul screamed that idiots like them couldn't defend themselves against mages. Yuksagul pointed a gun at them, threatening to personally kill those who disagreed with him. The weapon was pointed at Chul Wu when Yuksagul reminded him of his promise to prove that his guild was not traitors. Yuksagul was completely serious. He told Chul Wu to choose who would be the victim. Chul Wu clenched his jaw, mentally cursing at Yuksagul. Chul Wu has been preparing for death his entire life as a player, due to the danger of fighting monsters. But now, in front of Chul Wu stood the greedy scum that were influencing his life. Chul Wu stood motionless as the sword was pointed at him, fuming at why he was only going to die a miserable death. Chul Wu resigned himself, saying that he could not make a choice, but he immediately fell silent when he heard a telepathic message asking him to tell him how Chul Wu could survive. Chul Wu glanced over his shoulder, recognizing the voice that sounded in his head. Behind him stood a disguised Iron with his squad under the guise of the Shadow Guild. Chul Wu was shocked that a normal player could use telepathy if it was a combat technique. Yuksagul took Chael Wu's gaze as choosing someone outside of the Gyoden Guild as a sacrifice, but Chael Wu tried to dispute it. Iron's voice telling him to do as he said sounded in Chul Wu's head again. Iron continued to stand calmly with his squad, telling Chul Wu that he could choose a shadow to sacrifice, stating that he should obey if he wanted to live. Chul Wu couldn't understand what was going on in his mind. He thought that Iron didn't care about his own life at all. Yuksagul was tired of watching them, rushing Chul Wu to make a choice. Iron also urged him on with telepathy, telling him that if he continued to remain silent, he would die. Chul Wu's hands, clenched into fists, trembled as he thought about how he didn't want to die. Chul Wu looked at Yuksagul and said that he chose the Shadow Guild. Yuksagul nodded, letting Iron know that they should go to the magic circle for the sacrifice. Jisoo was seething with anger at Iron, not knowing that Iron himself gave the orders, and asked for permission to beat up Chul Wu. Iron ignored him, mentally conveying the instruction that they needed to look around, and took a step forward towards the magic circle. Chul Wu and his subordinates couldn't look at the Shadow Guild that was chosen as the victim and look down. Iron was the first to step onto the magic circle. All the people who were assigned to the Shadow Guild stood on the magic circle, calmly looking ahead. Chul Wu didn't understand what was happening and why the circle wasn't activating. Yuksagul distracted him by saying that the circle that could withstand his attack probably needed more victims. Yuksagul said to choose the next victim, pointing out that such magicians are very powerful and they simply have no choice. Chul Wu cursed him in his mind, finding his game of righteousness rotten. Iron gave him another telepathic message, getting his attention and telling him to choose someone else. Iron looked at Chul Wu as if evaluating him, and asked him to choose who he would save. Chul Wu didn't understand how choosing a victim for the magic circle would result in salvation for the unfortunate person. Iron didn't explain anything, continuing to pressure him to choose the victim he wanted to save. Chul Wu stood rooted to the spot, looking at his shadow, not knowing whether to believe Iron or not, and trying to figure out what to do. Yuksagul yelled at Chael Wu, saying that they don't have time and that he should choose a victim. Chul Wu knew that anyone who stayed with Yuksagul would be killed, because they didn't want to spread rumors about what happened here. Chul Wu made a decision, seizing the small chance to survive rather than die at their hands. Without looking at him, Chul Wu called out Minho's name, choosing him as the victim, stunning the young man. The other members of his guild began to protest, putting themselves in the role of the victim, saying that Minho was still a child. Chul Wu yelled at them, ordering everyone to shut their mouths. Chul Wu's hands were clenched into fists so hard that his nails were drawing blood from his palms, and he repeated the order for Minho to become the sacrifice. Minho tried to calm his guildmates down by saying that their leader's decision was the right one, and he was glad to be of use to them for once. Minho bowed to Chaeol Wu, who couldn't look at the young man, thanking his leader for everything. Minho approached the magic circle for sacrifices. Minho was shaking with fear and his face was pale. Gathering his courage, Minho stepped on the drawn circle. With both feet inside the circle, Minho waited for it to activate, but nothing happened. Some of the Gyodon Guild members breathed a sigh of relief, but they were quickly cut off by others who realized that there had to be someone else. Yuksagul yelled at Chaeol Wu, ordering him to choose victims from his guild until the magic circle was activated. After some time, while Yuksagul continued to command that the next one be chosen, there were many people in the circle. Chul Wu looked at the circle that contained almost his entire guild, except for him and the second leader Yang, who stood next to him. Chul Wu felt nervous as he thought about how he had never encountered such a huge magic circle before. Chul Wu looked at Iron, meeting his gaze, not understanding how a normal player could have such power to do something to the circle. A thought flashed through Chul Wu's mind that he might actually be able to survive if there was enough room for him and the second leader, Yang. But Iron dashed his hopes by telling him it was time to choose the latter. Iron continued to calmly look at Chul Wu, transmitting telepathic messages that this would be the last chance to survive. Chul Wu was shocked when Iron directly told him to choose between life and death, meaning the choice between him and second leader Yang. Chul Wu lowered his head, looking at his shadow again. He knew very well that he wanted to survive. To say otherwise would be a lie. Chul Wu thought about how all this time he was like a pathetic dog, flattering bastards like Yuksagul in order to survive. Chul Wu closed his eyes for a moment, making his final choice. He knew he wasn't ready to choose life over someone else. Chul Wu turned to second leader Yang, saying that he was sorry, and that leader Yang would have to be the next victim. Second leader Yang told Chul Wu to raise his head, Second leader Yang said that he wanted to become a victim all along, but Chul Wu did not name him. Chul Wu didn't dare raise his head as leader Yang spoke about how he was curious about his behavior since he always did the best for the guild. Second leader, Yang didn't blame him. He put his hand on Chul Wu's shoulder, saying that he probably had personal reasons for this. Chul Wu couldn't help but shudder as he watched leader Yang walk towards the circle, thinking that he would be remembered as a disgusting person who sacrificed others. Chul Wu raised his head to the ceiling, resigning himself to the fact that he wouldn't be able to survive. The thoughts of the others wouldn't matter, because they had a chance to survive. Chul Wu thought that he had lived his life as a miserable dog, but he was not going to die a miserable death. His attention was drawn again to Iron's voice, which hummed thoughtfully as the second leader, Yang, entered the circle. Iron chuckled as he looked at Chul Wu and said out loud that there were still not enough sacrifices, telepathically adding that he was interested in Chul Wu's choice. Chul Wu chuckled when he heard Iron say that he was testing him, mentally calling him a scumbag. Yuxagul took a step towards Chul Wu, saying that it was finally his turn to be the victim. Yuxagul and his assistants looked like madmen, grinning as they told Chul Wu that they would not forget these sacrifices. Chul Wu turned away from him, no longer being polite, and told him not to talk nonsense as a parting word. Yuxagul's subordinate rushed after Chul Wu, calling him a bastard, but was stopped by being told that Chul Wu was finished anyway. Iron urged Chul Wu, who was walking into the magic circle. Chul Wu approached him, finally managing to ask if Iron was sure that everyone here would survive, shocking his chosen victims. Iron said vaguely that they would soon see what would happen. The magic circle activated after Iron's words, causing everyone except the Shadow Guild to become nervous. Yuxagul ordered his men to get ready after seeing the magic circle activate, but he and his subordinates quickly experienced shock when they saw the glow from the magic circle beneath their feet. Yuxagul didn't understand what was happening. There was a loud explosion. Everyone standing in the sacrificial circle watched as the explosion engulfed the area where Yuxagul and his men remained. Chul Wu's mouth dropped open in shock, not expecting such a turn of events. Iron spoke up, motioning for everyone to keep their eyes open. He looked at the explosion, saying that this was the fate of those who sacrificed others. The ceiling of the corridor collapsed due to the explosion. Everyone standing in the magic circle looked at the debris under which Yuxagul and his subordinates were. Chul Wu still stood there with his mouth open, looking at what was happening, while Iron told him that there was originally a magic circle like this here. They looked at the passage they came from, and Iron calmly said that when a sacrifice was made, the passage would explode. Chul Wu turned to Iron, asking how he knew, but Iron simply replied that he knew a lot of things in general, without giving any specifics. Chul Wu didn't bother to question Iron, sighing in relief that the number of victims was equal to the number of players, and they were saved from the explosion. Iron calmly said that only one victim was needed for such a circle. Chul Wu couldn't hold back his emotions, asking Iron again with a puzzled expression. Iron tapped the magic circle, saying that he couldn't create a new one or destroy the old one yet, but it was easy to make adjustments to it. Chul Wu was shocked, doubt swirling in his mind that an ordinary player would be able to make adjustments to the magic circle. Chul Wu couldn't help but ask a question. He asked Iron how this was possible. At that moment, internal energy began to rise from under the rubble in the passage. Yuxagul smashed the debris with his weapon and rose to his feet. Yuxagul was furious and asked Iron who he was. Without waiting for an answer, Yuxagul attacked from a distance, releasing internal energy. Iron didn't move as the attack got closer. Jisoo, the captain of the swordsmen who played the role of the Shadow Guild along with Iron, rushed forward while drawing his weapon. Jisoo blocked Yuxagul's attack by standing in front of Iron. Jisoo was angry. He clenched his jaw and shouted at Yuxagul that he was a shameless scoundrel. Jisoo and the squad members stood in front of Iron, protecting their master. He yelled at Yuxagul because he interfered with the internal energy. Yuxagul asked again in surprise when he heard about internal energy. Yuxagul and his subordinates who had crawled out after the collapse looked at them, and he asked if they were martial artists. Yuxagul assumed that the shadows had hidden their identities to harm them, and his subordinates shared his rage. Iron looked at his opponents carefully, noticing the weapon in Yuxagul's hands. The sword that Yuxagul held caught his attention because it was because of it that everyone around him survived. Iron knew that the debris from the ceiling must have turned them into mangled bodies. Iron gathered black balls of his internal energy on his hand, wanting to see if Yuxagul and the others could continue to stand firm. Jisoo walked up to Iron and asked if he could rely on him, bowing his head. Jisoo began to complain about their behavior, almost blurting out that Iron was a blood demon. Iron stopped him, slightly suppressing him with his internal energy. Jisoo froze as he listened to the telepathic message from Iron, who asked with displeasure if he had decided to reveal his identity to everyone. Jisoo continued to talk about how he couldn't stand by while someone almost touched Iron, and Chulwoo listened with confusion. Iron gave the go-ahead, lowering his hand and dissipating his energy. Iron turned away from Yuksagul and the others, telling Jisoo that they seemed like suitable opponents for him, to which Jisoo bowed. Jisoo was determined to show his loyalty because he couldn't do it on the day the blood demon appeared in the fortress. Jisoo believed that he had committed an unforgivable sin by not recognizing the true blood demon and drawing his sword against it. Wanting to atone for his sin at least a little, Jisoo went forward and addressed his subordinates under the cover of the Shadow Guild. Jisoo said that they would get rid of their guild members' enemies. He and his subordinates were burning with determination to prove their usefulness to their master. All members of the squad rushed into the attack, full of their duty. Yuksagul was furious. He didn't understand why they were talking about him so easily, as if they had forgotten who he was. Yuksagul shouted that he was the foreman of the Great Hainem Guild, preparing to enter the battle. Jisoo launched the first sword strike, which Yuksagul blocked. Yuksagul was surprised to feel the power of Jisoo's attack. Jisoo told Yuksagul that his sinful soul would be washed away with blood while their swords were crossed. The rest of the Shadow Squad rushed to attack after their captain. Yuksagul's subordinates entered the battle to help their superior. Iron sat on the ground to the side, calmly watching the battle, while Chulwoo and his men stood behind him in shock. Chulwoo hesitantly asked Iron if he should help them, and Iron turned to him and asked again. Iron looked back at the fight, asking who Chulwoo wanted to help. Chulwoo started to reply that he naturally wanted to help his people, but he stopped, looking up at the battle. Jisoo's subordinates pressed back their opponents. Looking at them, it seemed like they didn't need any help. Chulwoo and his men watched the battle with their mouths open, not believing that Shadow was defeating the warriors from Hainem. Jisoo was pushing Yuksagul himself before their eyes. Jisoo displayed amazing swordsmanship while Yuksagul defended himself from his attacks. Iron looked at them calmly, continuing to talk to Chulwoo. He said that he needed experience points, and Chulwoo asked again, not understanding. Iron kept his eyes on the battle, stating that it was time for them to understand what modern martial arts were. Jisoo felt a little uneasy at that moment as he continued to attack Yuksagul, who definitely felt weaker than him. Jisoo looked at Yuksagul, not understanding why there was such calmness in the air during their battle, in which he was at a disadvantage. Yuksagul parried the new blow and asked Jisoo if he belonged to the Wanderer sect. Yuksagul looked at Jisoo's sword, stating that it was weak and most likely hadn't trained enough. Jisoo launched another attack, causing Yuksagul to jump back into the distance. Yuksagul tightened his grip on his sword, pouring internal energy into it, and decided that it was time to show Jisoo. Yuksagul raised his sword above his head, his entire body enveloped in inner energy. He was about to show true swordsmanship to Hainem. Jisoo watched him carefully, not expecting such a turn of events. Jisoo jumped from his spot, closing the distance between them. Jisoo moved towards Yuksagul, noting that the opponent's expression had changed. Jisoo attacked Yuksagul, knowing that his expression indicated that he wanted to end everything. Yuksagul's sword stopped Jisoo's attack without much effort. Jisoo was surprised. He had accurately aimed at the open area, but his sword attack was blocked. Yuksagul called out a call of speed before Jisoo could fully analyze the situation. In an instant, Yuksagul appeared behind Jisoo, preparing to attack. Jisoo turned towards Yuksagul, shocked by the speed of the attack. The sword almost touched Jisoo's eyeball. In a split second, Jisoo dodged Yuksagul's attack. Jisoo was shocked. There was a small cut on his cheek from me, Yuksagul. The floor beneath Yuksagul's boots broke as he took a step. Yuksagul uttered the next name, summoning his strength, and prepared to strike again. Yuksagul swung his sword, leaving behind a trail of energy. Jisoo blocked his sword with his own, trying to stop the attack. He was still amazed at how Yuksagul had changed. Jisoo deflected Yuksagul's attack and the floor around them crumbled. Jisoo continued to block Yuksagul's sword, focusing his attention on it. Yuksagul took advantage of the moment and kicked Jisoo in the ribs. Jisoo coughed up blood, slowly boiling. Jisoo had to jump back to put some distance between them. Jisoo, who had blood flowing from his mouth, looked at Yuksagul, trying to understand what he had done that his strength and speed had become stronger. Yuksagul once again uttered the call to use inner strength out loud. An internal force swirled around Yuksagul, lifting the debris from the floor. Having reached his maximum point, Yuksagul rushed to attack Jisoo. Their swords clashed in battle. Jisoo tried his best to defend himself from this attack, but it wasn't enough. Yuksagul's inner strength pushed Jisoo back. Yuksagul stood and watched as Jisoo crashed into the wall behind him with great force and spoke up about how he didn't understand what was happening. Yuxagul continued to tell Jisoo that he was a head stronger than him before as Jisoo tried to get up from the strong blow. Yuxagul swung his sword again, saying that he should personally enlighten such a moron. Yuxagul proudly said that this was the power of a divine weapon while looking at Jisoo. Meanwhile, Jisoo was seething with rage, angry that he had suffered such humiliation in front of the bloody demon. His killing intent grew as he prepared to finish off Yuxagul for his humiliation, and Jisoo gripped his sword tighter as he rose to his feet. Yuxagul mocked him, asking what Jisoo should do now. Yuxagul summoned his rage, moving again. Jisoo was shocked when Yuxagul disappeared from his sight and appeared behind him. Yuxagul prepared to strike, saying that rage was not something weaklings could do. Jisoo turned to face him, seeing the sword approaching incredibly fast, and realized that he wouldn't be able to dodge it. A voice echoed through the room, ordering them to stop, causing them both to freeze. Yuxagul was shocked to realize that his body was unable to move. Iron calmly moved towards them, emitting a killing intent that subdued them, and asked Jisoo if he understood his difference from the others. Iron continued to talk to Jisoo, saying that Yuxagul was nothing, and that there were 100 stronger warriors with better weapons in Haenim. Iron asked if it was now clear to Jisoo and his squad what price they would have to pay if they followed the previous master's precepts. Jisoo turned to Iron, humbly saying that he understood everything, and the belief that warriors should not rely on their weapons was wrong. Yuxagul was shaking, unable to move under the pressure. Yuxagul felt a cruel aura, wondering if it was really demonic energy. Yuxagul noticed that Iron had already suppressed his killing intent, but he didn't understand why his body still couldn't move. Yuxagul's eyes widened as Jisoo spoke to him, expressing his gratitude for helping him realize the gravity of his sins. Yuxagul looked at Jisoo in disbelief. The powerful aura that was preventing him from moving now belonged to Jisoo. Jisoo rushed at Yuxagul, saying that this was his retribution for helping him. Yuxagul screamed, trying to stop Jisoo, but Jisoo didn't listen to him, and with one blow he cut off Yuxagul's head. As payback, Jisoo killed him painlessly. Yuxagul's head fell to the ground, and the Joden Guild members who had been watching the fight the entire time were shocked. Jisoo gave orders to his subordinates to get rid of the enemies, no longer hiding that they were the Blood Squad and not the Shadow Guild. On command, each member of the Bloody Squad killed their opponent with ease. It looked like they hadn't used their powers to their full potential before. Chulwoo was shocked. He extended his hand to them because Iron said that he would show them the way to survival. Iron, who had regained his red hair and eyes, and his squad, who had finished the cleanup, were now the main threat in Chulwoo's eyes. Chulwoo was scared. He saw a whole squad of demons in front of him. Iron walked towards him, distracting him from his thoughts. Chulwoo fell to his knees, begging Iron and his squad for mercy, because he didn't know what else he could do to save his guild. Iron walked straight to the door past Chulwoo, who was kneeling with his head down and fear in his heart. Iron turned around and looked at Chulwoo, asking why he was lying there and if he was going to move on. Chulwoo looked back at Iron in shock, not understanding anything, and the Blood Squad members moved towards Iron, moving away from the lesson they had learned. Iron stopped in front of a huge door with a face carved into it. Iron looked at him carefully, thinking about the look he saw. Iron's hands touched the door leaves. Iron slowly pushed them, and a bright light came through the door. Everyone stood on the threshold of the door, looking forward at the world that opened up before them. Jisoo turned to Iron, no longer hiding his identity as a blood demon, and suggested that he go ahead in case of traps. Iron looked at Jisoo, reassuring him that there would be no more traps and that everything had a limit. Jisoo didn't hide the fact that he didn't quite understand what Iron meant about the limit. Iron calmly began to explain that what people called a dungeon was simply a fragment of another world, just like their fortress. Iron reminded Jisoo that such a world required support, and the price of a dungeon with traps was just extra resources. Jisoo listened to Iron's words about how the dungeon had nothing more to take due to the huge magic circle, proud of his lord's knowledge. Iron explained this by saying that he once led a guild. Iron looked at the space that opened up before them, saying that only the inhabitants of this world would be waiting for them from now on. Iron took a confident step forward, telling the others to follow him. The others followed Iron down the aisle, and the space around them swayed slightly. Iron thought about his words about once leading a guild, remembering the day he met the Black King. Magic circles appeared around them, interrupting Iron's thoughts. Magic circles appeared in front of each person, and the people from the Gyodon Guild felt that the sensations had changed. The energy of the magic circles distorted and changed the space behind them. Out of nowhere, a group of magicians appeared in front of everyone's eyes and created these magic circles. The Gyodon Guild members covered the leader of Chulwoo, asking him to stay behind, but it was useless because the circles were everywhere. Chulwu was shocked, but something was bothering him. Chulwu looked at the mages who had created the magic circles and didn't understand why they weren't activating them. The magicians noticed that something was wrong. They looked at Iron, who had energy swirling around his hand. This energy penetrated into all created magic circles. Iron advised the mages to be careful. According to Iron, anyone who deactivates the circles now will feel their mana flowing in the opposite direction, causing excruciating pain. The magicians were shocked by the interference with their magic. One of the elders was amazed that Iron had found the center of the magic circles so quickly and simultaneously disrupted the axes of all of them. Iron continued to calmly watch the mages whose hands were shaking, saying that they could feel everything without explanation. The magic circles began to disappear, which surprised Iron. One of the mages stepped forward, speaking to Iron. He suggested that it was Iron who destroyed the magic circle of sacrifices. The guy looked at Iron, waiting for his answer, and at the same time made the fate of other magicians easier by killing their magic circles. Iron recognized him and told him that he was right. Iron looked at his old friend Bondeno, who had overcome the mana flow disorder and become a true genius while they were apart. Bondeno looked at Iron, considering him a stranger, trying to understand how he was able to understand a type of magic circle unknown to him. Iron stood among the other members of the squad, and Bondeno could not understand what such a talented magician was doing among the warriors. Iron interrupted Bondeno's thoughts by saying that he still had the same stupid expression on his face, which surprised Bondeno. Iron continued to have fun, telling Bondeno that his hairstyle was clearly not suitable for a magician. Bondeno was disoriented, asking Iron if he knew him. Iron said that he knew, of course, how could it be otherwise? Iron said the words that he came to save him, calling Bondeno by name, and this made Bondeno even more surprised, remembering the past. A moment from the past surfaced in their memories, when Iron tried to escape from pursuit. 3 people were chasing Iron, not lagging behind him even a step. Iron felt that sooner or later his pursuers would catch up with him. He had no chance at all to break away from them. Iron's attention was drawn to a telepathic message showing him the way. The pursuers saw Iron dash into the alley. The pursuers reached the alley and stopped. They looked ahead in surprise, not understanding anything. The alley was completely clear. They wondered where Iron could have gone. One of the pursuers didn't want to waste time thinking and assumed that Iron had jumped to the other side. The pursuers rushed after him, jumping over a high wall in a few leaps to catch up with Iron faster. Iron couldn't believe he had managed to fight off the pursuit. Iron and Bondeno were sitting in that alley in Bondeno's magic circle, which hid them from the others. Iron turned to the then stranger and thanked him for Bondeno saving him. Iron was worried that helping him would only bring the guy problems, and asked him to leave quickly. Bondeno ignored the words spoken, asking him if it was true in front of Lee Iron. Iron was surprised that this guy knew him. Iron watched Bondeno rise to his feet and asked him how he knew him. Bondeno turned around and said that he and Iron were alike, and that was all. Bondeno confidently told Iron to follow him, intending to help him get out. Iron followed, not understanding anything and demanding at least some kind of explanation. After some time, they were attacked. The attacker recognized Bondeno, calling him a little rat. The man using internal energy who cut Iron was moving towards Bondeno. Iron was lying on the ground trying to get up, not understanding how they found them. The attack was so fast that they didn't notice it. Iron looked up to see the attacker moving towards Bondeno. Iron tried to stop him with horror in his eyes, not wanting Bondeno to die. At this moment, Bondeno looked at Iron, not understanding who was in front of him due to his changed appearance, and asked him again about his intentions. Bondeno didn't understand anything, saying that he didn't understand why Iron would save him if he didn't even know him. Iron chuckled slightly as he watched Bondeno's reaction. Iron said that they were just similar, repeating Bondeno's words from the past, awakening his memory. Iron came closer to Bondeno, saying that this was the whole reason. Bondeno began to stutter, not believing what was happening. Iron smiled at Bondeno, saying that they had not seen each other for a long time, and Bondeno recognized the features of Lee Iron, whom he had known. Bondeno's mouth dropped open in surprise when he recognized Lee Iron. Bondeno knew that Iron had been enslaved by the Hwasun Guild, and he couldn't believe his eyes that he had managed to escape. Iron interrupted his thoughts by asking why Bondeno had saved him in the past. It was important for Iron to find out. He continued to say that during that period he was betrayed by everyone, even those he trusted the most. Iron looked at Bondeno, saying that he had risked his life back then, without even knowing Iron. Bondeno was able to cope with his surprise, and listened to Iron, who wanted to find out the motivation for his actions from the past. Bondeno took a deep breath and began to explain his reason to Iron. He said that for him, Iron was a hero. Iron listened carefully to Bondeno, a little surprised by the statement. Bondeno spoke of the past, when he left Arno to save himself, desperately trying to save himself and hide from everyone. It was then that Bondeno saw Iron and his then guild fighting against injustice, and it gave him strength. Iron smiled slightly when he heard his answer. Iron remembered the question from his teacher, the Sword King, who asked him if he really wanted everything to disappear. Now Iron knew that he couldn't destroy everything because right in front of him stood a man who believed in him. Iron extended his hand to Bondeno, surprising him, and said that he had saved him, and now Iron would help Bondeno. The remains of the magic circles were destroyed behind Iron, who smiled at Bondeno and offered to come with him. Bondeno looked at him with wide eyes filled with hope. Bondeno couldn't control his emotions. He pressed his lips together to somehow calm down. Bondeno trembled, honestly admitting that when Hanam found the passage, he thought it was the end for Arno. Bondeno smiled with tears in his eyes and looked at Iron, telling him that he was glad they were alive. Bondeno shook Iron's outstretched hand, thanking him as his hero past and present. Iron, just in case, clarified that in order to survive, they would have to leave Arno, observing Bondeno's reaction. Bondeno tapped his head with his finger, saying that everything was fine and it was just in his head, but the other old mages behind him were shocked. Bondeno told them that the second squad of Hanam was waiting outside, and they had to leave to survive. The mages began to talk about how Arno held a huge history, and asked why they couldn't try to protect this place. Iron looked at them without interfering, comparing them to the fools from the Blood Demon Fortress. To Iron, they looked like they were rotting in place because they refused to look at the rest of the world. Iron looked at Bondeno, waiting with interest to see what he would do. Bondeno shouted at the others, calling for them to be quiet. The magicians fell silent, not expecting to hear Bondeno's cry. Bondeno scolded, asking how they could ask Iron and the others to risk their lives when they had already put their lives on the line to save them. Bondeno continued to swear, asking how they could imagine fighting an entire guild that they were powerless to stop. The old mages were ashamed when Bondeno said that if everyone died, no one would be able to remember Arno's story, which was so important to them. Iron approached Bondeno, drawing attention to himself, asking to be allowed to clarify something for the others. Iron made no secret of his murderous energy, saying that he had come here to save Bondeno and didn't care about the rest. Iron created orbs above his palm, saying that he would kill them personally if they got in the way. Iron, emitting incredible pressure, hurried the old mages to make a decision. The old mages felt the thirst for blood that Iron was emitting. They understood perfectly well that he was not joking and was ready to kill them. The old mages stepped aside, accepting the option of escaping from Iron, letting him and Bondeno go deeper into Arno. Bondeno turned to Iron, calling him to go further. They moved down the long corridor, following Bondeno, in a group of Iron, Jisoo, and Cheol Woo. Cheol Woo asked Iron if he really planned to destroy the dungeon, and Iron asked him if he was really sorry that Arno would fall. Cheol Woo said that he was worried about his guild dying in a permitted dungeon, and Iron turned to him. Iron asked Cheol Woo why he was telling him this. Cheol Woo swallowed, nervously before answering Iron. Cheol Woo fell to his knees in front of Iron, bowing his head, and asked him to take the Gyoden Guild with him. Young Woo was saying that they wouldn't be able to hide from Hanem after what happened here. Iron, Jisoo, and Bondeno listened to the kneeling Jung Woo, who said that even if they were lucky enough to hide, they would lose their families forever. Cheol Woo looked up at Iron with a determined gaze, promising that they would do everything in their power if he helped them survive. Iron quickly agreed, but only on one condition, and Cheol Woo began to listen attentively, ready even for the impossible. Iron's condition surprised Jisoo. He looked at his lord as he told him to never kneel before him, as he was quite tired of it. Cheol Woo looked at Iron, finally realizing that he had originally intended to take them with him, not leave them to die. Cheol Woo couldn't help but ask if Iron was a Miltia, but Iron just asked in surprise if they still existed. Cheol Woo thought about his answer. Cheol Woo's words about him recently saving some people from Miltia caught Iron's interest. Iron wondered if there were any Miltia left alive. Bondeno interrupted them, suggesting they discuss everything after they got out, and continued down the corridor. After some time they came to a large magic circle, and Bondeno said that they were there. In the middle of the magic circle lay a book with a seal, and Bondeno said that this was the center of Armo. Iron wanted to come closer, but Bondeno stopped him, saying that they needed to wait until the magic circle deactivated. Iron disagreed, saying they didn't have time for that. Iron's internal energy flowed from under his feet across the floor. Iron's energy moved towards the magic circle. Bondeno grabbed Iron by the shoulders, saying that this magic circle was much more complex and one mistake could lead to their death. But Iron didn't listen to Bondeno's attempt to stop him, telling him to just shut up and watch. Bondeno turned his head towards the magic circle where Iron had pointed, not hiding how worried he was. Bondeno's eyes widened when he saw what Iron did to the magic circle. Bondeno looked at the magic circle Iron cast in surprise. Iron calmly said that he couldn't activate it, telling Bondeno to do it. But Bondeno tried to figure out where Iron learned to do that. Iron answered honestly that he was trained by the Demon Queen. But Bondeno did not believe him, and Iron simply hurried him. Bondeno knelt before the circle, saying that he was the great genius of this time, and everything should work out. Bondeno shouted a spell, and a pillar of light rose from the center of Arno where the book lay. The energy of iron and magic mixed around it. Iron calmly watched as the original magic circle dissolved under the influence of the cast magic circle. When it was all over, Iron walked forward. Iron approached the pedestal on which lay the book that was the center of Arno. Iron placed his hand on the book, which was enveloped in energy. Iron's eyes widened as he saw something he didn't expect. A system message appeared in front of Iron, saying that the book was a fragment of Einhart, and that a contract could be established. The center of the system was the power that awakened players received, and it was something that Iron was very familiar with. Iron looked at the system window in front of him, thinking that he was sure he had lost the center of the system, since he hadn't seen the system windows for a long time. Iron remembered the last system window he had seen, where there had been an offer to become a vessel for chaos. Iron pressed his hand to his chest, confident that there was no center of the system inside him, only trapped chaos. Iron was trying to figure out if chaos could replace the center, and Bondeno approached him worriedly, asking if he was okay. Iron turned to him, asking if Bondeno had ever received notifications from the system, but Bondeno said that was impossible. Iron looked at Bondeno and asked how he became the master of the dungeon. Bondeno remembered the ritual in which he spilled his blood into the magic circle that Iron destroyed and told about it. Iron looked back at the system windows in front of him, deciding he needed to try it out for himself. Iron gave the registration command. The book that was the center of Armo was brought to light. Several system windows popped up in front of Iron. They said that Iron had registered as the new owner of the fortress. The next system notification asked if Iron would accept the position of master of the Blood King's fortress. Iron tried to understand why they were talking about the fortress again, since Iron had already managed to establish a connection with its center. Iron continued to look at the last system message, trying to figure out if he could have failed to meet all the conditions up until this point. Iron repeated the registration command again, giving his consent to become the master of the Bloody Fortress. Iron kept his eyes on the system window, waiting for the next message. A smile spread across Iron's lips. Without turning around, Iron called out to Bondeno, who had been standing behind Iron the whole time. Iron was pleased to report that there would be no need to get rid of Armo. The system messages in front of him informed him that Iron was now the master of two worlds and could unite them. Iron looked at the last system window, which asked which world he wanted to make the main one. Iron didn't even have to think. He immediately named the Fortress of the Blood Demon. A bright light spilled out from the system window, filling the entire room, and Jisoo and Bondeno covered their eyes with their hands to avoid being blinded. Bondeno rushed towards Iron, worried about him and shouting his name. Jisoo rushed towards Iron, worried about the Blood Demon. Iron stood with his back to them, ignoring the overly bright light in front of him as they rushed towards him. They almost managed to reach Iron when the light swallowed everything around. Outside the dungeon where Hanem's second squad was waiting, light illuminated everything around the entrance. The members of the second squad of the Hanem Guild looked at the entrance to the dungeon in shock. The dungeon disappeared right before their eyes, leaving behind a small hole in the ground. Jisoo opened his eyes, frowning, trying to figure out what happened. Iron asked what he was doing, and only then did Jisoo realize that he was holding Iron's leg tightly while lying on the ground behind him. Iron and the others were transported to the Blood Demon's fortress, and Bondeno and Jisoo ended up on the ground right behind Iron. Jisoo took out his sword, about to punish himself for daring to touch the body of the Blood Demon, but Iron stopped him, asking him not to exaggerate. Everyone who was in Arno had been transported to the fortress, and were now trying to understand how it had happened. Remembering only the sudden flash of light, the leader, Khan, moved towards their group, enveloped in his own inner energy, asking if the unknown people had any idea where they had ended up. Leader Khan moved towards them, saying that he didn't care how they got here, but they wouldn't get out of here alive. Jisoo turned to him, and Leader Kang restrained his energy, asking the Blood Squad captain in surprise what he was doing here. Iron, who was standing a little to the side, simply said that he had transported Arno to their fortresses, his statement surprising both Jisoo and Leader Kang. Iron pointed to the dumbfounded Bondeno and Chul Wu behind him, telling Leader Kang to say hello to their new men. The old magician Jekyll asked in confusion what was going on here. Iron, remembering something important, turned to the people he had transported here and asked for a moment of their attention. Iron, enveloped in his energy, raised his hand, stating that they had tight security in the fortress, and he needed to set some restrictions. The people he carried with him were frightened by his statement. After some time, Iron and Leader Khan stood near the Lake of 10,000 Bloods. Iron asked Leader Khan if this lake was the center of the fortress, and Leader Khan said that it was the passage to the divine relic. Leader Khan said that only the priestess knew how to open it, and said that he had already contacted her, but Iron simply stated that it was not necessary. Iron raised his hand over the lake, saying that he could feel everything from here too. Blood from the lake began to rise under the influence of Iron's powers, shocking Leader Khan. The system window popped up in front of Iron again, informing him that the entry of a new squad into their fortress had been confirmed. The next system window asked if Iron wanted to move Armo, who was attached to the fortress. Iron gave his consent. A map of the area drawn by the system center appeared in front of Iron. A system window notification informed Iron that it was possible to expand this world. Iron gave the command to expand the world, thinking that, it turns out, boundaries are mobile. Everything around Iron and Leader Khan began to move and noise could be heard. Leader Khan asked Iron what was going on, but Iron didn't give a specific answer, simply telling him not to worry. The entire territory of the Blood Demon Fortress shook, and people outside saw what was happening. They were shocked. Some tried to stay on their feet. Occultists saw with their own eyes how their world expanded in that moment. An updated map of the area appeared in front of Iron, and the system window reported that the world expansion was complete. Iron studied the map, now understanding how it worked. A new system notification informed Iron that he could now select the dungeon's guardians. The system window offered to select a guardian for Arno and the Blood Demon Fortress. Iron asked the system window if he could become a guardian himself. The system window's response was short, and it said that the owner could not become a custodian. Iron asked if the keeper could leave the dungeon and learned that it was possible if the keeper paid to leave the dungeon. Iron thought about it. Regarding the fortress, he immediately chose the Leader Khan. But for Armo, he did not want to choose Bondeno, not wanting to limit him. Iron remembered the old magician Jekyll and chose him to be Arno's guardian. The system window reported that the assignment was made. Leader Khan, who was standing behind Iron, began to turn pale. Iron turned to him, sensing something was wrong. Leader Khan looked at his hands, not understanding what was happening. Leader Khan looked up at Iron, asking his master an unspoken question. Leader Khan continued to shout, addressing the Blood Demon as his master. They had already moved to the throne room, and Leader Khan continued to bow to Iron, who was sitting on the throne. Iron interrupted his praise, saying that there was no need to be so happy about what had happened. Leader Khan, who had become the guardian of the dungeon, looked at Iron, never ceasing to be happy because he had become younger again, and his strength had increased. Iron reminded Leader Kanu that he would not be able to leave the dungeon without permission, and that there would be a price to pay. Leader Kang beat his chest, confidently saying that dedicating his life to the sect was a great blessing for him. Leader Khan continued to bow to the floor like a madman, swearing allegiance to Iron, and Iron cursed, saying that the floor was going to crack. They were interrupted by the voice of another person who was in the throne room. Leader Kang stopped bowing and turned towards the sound. Jekyll, who became the keeper of Arno's dungeon, also rejuvenated and given more power, asked what he had done to deserve this honor. Iron rose from his throne, repeating the question of the magician Jekyll. Iron moved closer to Jekyll, saying that he was the only one Iron could trust with this. Jekyll listened to him attentively, a little worried that Iron was so close. Jekyll was nervous as he waited for Iron to state the reason for his trust. Iron said, in all seriousness, that the reason was that Jekyll was the only one who knew his name. Jekyll was at a loss what to say because of the absurdity of the reason. Iron ignored Jekyll's confusion, asking if he didn't like it. Jekyll looked at his hands, disagreeing. He said that Iron not only saved his life but also gave him strength. Jekyll, as the foreman of Armo, said that he spoke for all the people who came from Armo. Jekyll bowed to Iron, thanking him for saving them. Leader Khan, still kneeling, listening to him intently. Iron reminded about the permission to leave the dungeon and clarified that Jekyll belongs to the fortress of the Blood Demon. Iron concluded by saying that Jekyll's life was in the hands of the king, Iron, and Leader Khan, who had finally risen from the floor. Jekyll still stood bowing, humbly accepting the role with gratitude. Bondeno's voice appearing behind him made Jekyll start. Bondeno looked at his hands, saying that he could no longer feel Armo's power due to Jekyll becoming the guardian. Tears welled up in Bondeno's eyes, and he began to say that he was a genius of his age. But now he was left without a circle and power, predicting his own end. Jekyll turned to the trembling Bondeno, trying to calm him down somehow. Iron chuckled as he watched him. Bondeno heard the laughter and exploded, asking Iron if he found Bondeno's situation funny. Iron walked up to him and put his hand on his shoulder, telling him to stop whining and follow him. Bondeno looked at the smiling Iron with disbelief, but Iron was confident, declaring that he would help him regain his lost power. Sometime later, Iron and Bondeno were standing in an isolated training area. Bondeno asked Iron again if he could really help him regain his strength. Iron chuckled, sensing the disbelief, and asked if Bondeno didn't think Iron would be useful to him. Bondeno corrected him, saying that it was much more complicated than that. He had never heard of a broken circle being restored. Iron said that this was often quite realistic. He stretched out his palm, and on the floor, bloody needles lined up according to his plan. Bondeno watched his actions closely, listening as Iron spoke of how he would need Bondeno's help. At Iron's feet, a magic circle was emerging from the blood as he said that he still couldn't activate his magic circles. Bondeno screamed when he saw the circle Iron had drawn on the floor. Bondeno asked Iron why he drew the contract magic circle. Iron said the main thing was that Bondeno trusted him. Bondeno didn't believe what was happening. He knew that such a circle could only be used by demons from Gehenna. Bondeno looked up at Iron, asking him not to say that he had become a demon while they were apart. But Iron said that the circle was not his. Iron told Bondeno that this was the circle his teacher created when he thought of the Demon Queen. Bondeno wanted to know more about the teacher, but Iron said it was too long to explain, promising to tell him later. Bondeno looked at the circle again, now thinking that it was quite possible. Iron reminded Bondeno that the contract magic circle takes a price, and the higher the price, the more power the circle will bring. Iron looked at Bondeno, who was standing on the other side of the circle, and asked what he would offer in return. Bondeno thought about the price. He said that he had only one valuable thing. Bondeno's look was determined as he said he was ready to stake his life and soul. Iron smiled, appreciating his bold proposal. Bondeno said that the moment he decided to save Iron, he was already putting his life on the line. Bondeno chuckled, asking Iron if he would take the life of the bastard who attacked them. Iron nodded confidently with a smile. Bondeno bit his finger, receiving Iron's answer. Bondeno extended his hand over the contract magic circle, dropping a drop of his blood onto it to activate it. Bondeno looked back at Iron, indicating that he was now activating the circle. Bondeno stood over the magic circle with his arms outstretched, activating it, while Iron watched as energy rose from the circle. At the same time, Leader Kang was in the territory of the Blood Demon Fortress. Leader Kan used his internal energy on the tree while the new arrivals stood behind him. Leader Kan turned to them, informing them that there should be enough materials to restore them, and they bowed to him in thanks. The area was in full swing of restoration work. Someone was shouting that they needed help. They were building new houses. Leader Kang called out to Captain Jisoo, who was standing behind him. Leader Kang couldn't help but smile as he said that everything was going well. Jisoo told him that it was all because Leader Kang brought the Blood Demon, because without him, it would have been much more difficult. Leader Kang told Jisoo that Iron himself had sent him. There was no credit for this from Leader Kang, and he wanted them to be able to repay him for his favor. Jisoo bowed respectfully to Leader Kang, agreeing with him. Leader Kang turned to Jisoo, asking if it was true that Iron had gone into seclusion, and Jisoo confirmed it, saying that he was with Bondeno. Leader Khan looked back at the restoration work, noticing that Iron was already at the limit of his strength, but wanted to become even stronger. The peaceful scene was interrupted by a powerful explosion of energy behind Leader Kang and Jisoo. Leader Kan turned towards the explosion, immediately realizing where it was coming from. Leader Khan's eyes widened when he noticed that there was a training hall there. Leader Kang didn't understand how he could sense the heavenly demonic energy from there, which completely enveloped the training hall. Leader Kang, Jisoo, and Senior Han burst into the training hall and broke the wall. Leader Kang called out to the Blood Demon, worried about his safety. They all felt the incredible energy of a heavenly demon from the man who was only a silhouette that was visible. Sergeant Major Han drew his sword, asking the silhouette whose energy they could not recognize who he was. Leader Khan was ready for battle, but the thought that occupied his mind was that they had to find the Blood Demon first. Leader Khan was genuinely worried about Iron, seething with rage at the thought that he could receive even the slightest injury. He would grind anyone into dust. A silhouette approached them, emerging from the vast heavenly demonic energy. Leader Khan and Elder Han opened their mouths in surprise when they heard Iron's voice, asking why they were so surprised. Iron looked at them as they asked him where all this energy came from. Iron clenched his fist, his body looking even stronger than before. He asked carelessly if he had forgotten to tell them about this. Iron ran his hand through his hair, which had returned to its natural color, and announced that he was both a heavenly and a blood demon. Iron remembered how the teachers taught him the blood art first to build up his inner strength. But the body remains human, and that is why Iron could not use martial arts. The heavenly demon art balances this by making the body strong enough to withstand internal pressure. But the celestial art does not work by itself without the power of the sexta of the celestial demon, which works like forging iron in a forge. Leader Kan, when they first met, told Iron that they did not maintain contact with the heavenly sect. Iron then remembered well his words about how they had been enemies for many generations. Therefore, in order to comprehend the divine art of the heavenly demon, Iron asked Bondeno for help in activating the circle. Before everything happened, Iron and Bondeno were in a closed training room covered in magic circles. Bondeno couldn't believe his eyes when he recognized the holy magic circle that was used by the three Einhart sects. Bondeno muttered that it couldn't be created as easily as the circles from Gehenna, not understanding how Iron had managed it. Iron got his attention again, asking if Bondeno could handle the activation. Iron was serious when he asked Bondeno to activate him. Bondeno was not confident in this undertaking. He knew that if he made a mistake, he could die in the process. Iron repeated his words about death. Iron remembered that death was no obstacle to his path to chaos. Iron repeated confidently, telling Bondeno that none of this mattered, and again asking him to activate the circle. Bondeno was angry at Iron's pushiness and told him not to blame him if something went wrong, but Iron told him not to worry. Bondeno extended his hands, activating a huge magic circle that was written all over the walls and floor. Bondeno screamed, straining. The magic circles activated, and energy began to flow out of them. Bondeno continued to scream, pouring his power into them to activate them. The energy flowing out from the magic circles flowed straight into Iron. The energy formed magical circles on Iron's body. It spread across Iron's entire body, repeating the circles on the walls. Iron exhaled the energy of the blood demon, preparing for what was to come next. Aroin's body was covered in numerous cuts. Iron's eyes began to bleed from the strain. Iron screamed, throwing his head back as the energy from the magic circles poured into his body. Bondeno panicked when he saw this. He told Iron that this was too much and that it had to stop immediately. Iron screamed in disagreement and coughed up blood. Iron looked at Bondeno with a confident gaze, telling him to continue even if it seemed like Iron was about to die. Bondeno didn't stop, thinking that an ordinary person would have long since lost consciousness from the pain. Bondeno believed that Iron was only kept going by his obsession with vengeance. Iron suffered terrible torment thinking about his teachers. Iron thought that they had given the orphan real warmth. Iron believed that they gave him a home to which he could always return. He remembered them with warmth as he moved on, wanting to feel their body again at least once. It was these thoughts that helped him survive the hellish torment. Light appeared around Iron as the magic circles completed their work, filling his body with the energy of the heavenly demon. Bondeno reached out to him, afraid for Iron. The gears inside him that Mu Wan had once spoken of when explaining the sequence of study began to move again. They adopted a new position thanks to the development of Iron's martial arts. In the present, Iron stood in front of Leader Kang, Chief Han, and Jisoo. Leader Kang looked at him in surprise, thinking that usually these opposing martial arts could not coexist together. But right before his eyes, Iron was controlling the energy of both the heavenly and blood demons. Leader Kan asked Iron if he really combined two arts at once, while Chief Han sheathed his sword. Iron said it was a stupid question, causing surprise among his followers. Iron raised his hand, releasing some of his internal energy, saying that the two arts used to be inseparable. Iron continued to say that everything stems from the divine demon. Iron offered to show them in practice, telling them to move to a more suitable place. Iron pointed to Bondeno, who was lying unconscious on the ground, asking to be carried back to Armo, and the others only noticed him. After some time they stood at the wall of the fortress. Iron chose this place, saying that it was ideal. Iron waved his hand and asked everyone to step aside. Iron swung his fist towards the wall. His fist cut through the air and stopped. Following the impact, a wind picked up along its trajectory. Leader Kan looked at the wall with interest, seeing how it changed slightly. At the same moment, a powerful internal energy passed along the trajectory of the blow, digging a trench in the ground. Leader Kanu and the others had to cover their eyes from the brightness of this sight, the internal energy crashing down on the fortress wall. Where Iron's energy had been concentrated, there was now a neat hole in the wall. Iron said that this technique was called Shining Void, and the others behind him opened their mouths in shock. Leader Kang couldn't believe it when he saw the heavenly demon's divine art with his own eyes. Iron clicked his tongue, not listening to Leader Khan's surprise. Iron looked at his hand, muttering in displeasure that he thought so, that it was too much for him. The surprise on Leader Khan and Chief Khan's faces turned to concern when they heard Iron's words. At that very moment, the hand that Iron had used to demonstrate the heavenly demon technique was torn apart. Leader Kang and Chief Han shouted at the same time. Chief Han didn't know how to approach Iron, and Leader Kan was shouting for someone to call a doctor until Iron stopped them. Iron said nothing serious happened, and his arm recovered almost immediately, returning to its previous healthy state. Iron looked at his restored arm, thinking that it was clearly hindering him, and he couldn't use martial arts even a little. Iron was determined to get stronger faster. He knew that if he faced that guy now, he would hardly win. Iron called out to Leader Khan, who was still recovering from the shock of everything he had seen. Iron asked him to tell him that he needed to change his image. A few days later, at the B-rank portal in Namyangju, Ayun-ha repeated the information to the guild members that a new member would be joining them from today onwards. The guild members felt uneasy knowing who exactly was coming to see them. Un-ha asked them not to talk too much so that he wouldn't stand out, and Iron appeared behind her, asking why they were standing still. In an instant, Yun-ha and the rest of the guild members fell to their knees to greet Iron, but he asked if it wasn't too strange. Iron told them to get up, reminding them that he had already explained why he had come to the guild. Some time ago, in the guild office, Iron was talking about how he needed training in real combat, so he would join them. Yun-ha sat on the floor in front of him, saying that she would immediately hand over the leadership rights to Iron, but Iron stopped her. Iron thanked her for her efforts, noting that the guild's reputation had risen and people were talking about it. Yun-ha listened to Iron's words about how it would be strange if she left her post, and his name should not be revealed so as not to be caught by Vulcan. Se-min, the Black King, intervened in their conversation, saying that he was also interested in this point. Se-min asked Iron why he was clinging to his old name when he wanted to create a new image. Iron waved it off, saying that no one would check everyone in the guild anyway, and that the leader Yun-ha handled all the affairs. Iron mentally added that this way his teacher would be able to find him if he was still alive. Currently, Iron was fighting monsters at the gate. Iron used the art of the Heavenly Demon, honing his skills through practice. With each blow, his arm was torn apart, but Iron didn't pay any attention to it. Se-min noticed his progress, noting that they had only gone on a few raids, but he was already having trouble sensing his presence. Se-min asked Iron if he still had the strength of a player. Iron's arm recovered while he was asking Se-min if he noticed right away, and talked about how he didn't have a system core. Iron commented on Se-min's actions, asking if he was that bright-eyed. Se-min frowned, understanding the hint. Iron changed the subject. Looking at the new monster, he asked Se-min what his purpose was in coming to help with the raids. Se-min began to speak to the point, mentioning that Hanem suspected that an unknown group was involved in what happened in Arlo. Iron killed the monster, calmly talking to Se-min about how Hanem didn't know about Bondeno, otherwise he would have sent a stronger squad. Se-min corrected him, saying that the Hanem higher-ups were aware. Iron's arm was recovering from the attack when he asked Se-min how he knew about this. Se-min revealed that he himself sold them this information, explaining his confidence. Iron stood over the monster's corpse, saying that Hanem had intentionally sent the people to their deaths. Se-min nodded, saying that the Hanems were determined to use this as an excuse. Iron became interested, asking if he meant the Iron Sword Alliance. Se-min nodded, confirming Iron's guess. Se-min explained that Hanem had his eye on their territory after absorbing Ganghwa and Icon. Se-min continued his explanation, saying that Hanem was going to blame the Alliance for the failure of the operation and the murder of the Elder. Iron chuckled, knowing that they were planning to start a war, and he was very interested in how the Alliance would react. Se-min replied that they had already started to act towards Yun-ha's guild, which got Iron interested in it. At the same time, Chul Jung-hui, the leader of the Iron Sword Alliance, struck the armrest, shattering it into pieces. Chul Jung-hui was shaking with anger as he spoke about the bastards from Hanem. Anger raged within him as Cheol Jung-hui understood the rules Hanem was going to play by. Chul Jung-hui looked up at his interlocutor, asking what the others were saying about this situation. Guild leader Du Jung-hui responded to Cheol Jung-hui by telling the others to remain silent. Chul Jung-hui still didn't believe it and was angry, asking Do Jung-hu if the Hanem were really going to start a war with them. Chul Jung-hui stood up from his seat, saying that they needed to prepare to fight back and that they needed to gather everyone from their territory. Du Jung-hu asked what to do if someone refused. Chul Jung-hui said that anyone who disagrees will be considered a pawn in the hands of the devil, because the alliance stands for justice. After some time, Iron entered the office, dressed in a decent suit. Iron asked the secretary who was in the office, and she became nervous when she met Iron, but told him that the guest was from Do-cheon. Iron asked again about the Do-cheon guild, slightly displeased. At this point, 3 men came out of the office, saying that their proposal should be considered, and that they should contact him as soon as possible. The representative of the Do-cheon guild froze upon seeing Iron. He looked Iron up and down with displeasure, and he spent the longest time looking at Iron's hand, which he held in his trouser pocket. Representative Dojong asked Iron if he was a member of Yunha's guild, but Iron only asked so what. Representative Dojong became angry, calling Iron's attitude disrespectful, and asked him if he didn't know who was visiting. The representative introduced himself as Du Sang-muk, son of the guild leader Du Young-hu, lord of Gyeonggi province, and vice leader of the guild. Iron listened to him without much interest, and asked what was wrong, which irritated Do San-muk even more. Iron remained calm, saying that if he had nothing more to say, then he should leave and not interfere. Do San-muk gritted his teeth in anger, feeling the killing intent rising within him, and mentally called Iron a scumbag. Eun-ha walked out of her office after hearing a noise outside. Eun-ha asked what was the matter and saw the representatives of the Dojong and Iron Guild. Do Sang-muk told Eun-ha that she should give the guild members a refresher because Iron didn't recognize him. Do San-muk and his men walked towards the exit, saying that he would turn a blind eye to it this time, but next time it would be different. The door slammed as they left the office. Iron chuckled as he watched them go. Eun-ha couldn't hold back her anger, asking how dare he do this. Eun-ha was filled with murderous intent and was ready to tear Do Sang-muk to shreds for his treatment of Iron. Iron told her to sit quietly unless she wanted to start a war with the Alliance, and asked why he had come. Eun-ha turned to Iron, telling him that he had suggested that the guild unite. Iron asked if he meant an alliance, but Eun-ha, unable to contain her anger, said that Do Sang-muk said that they should join the Dujan Guild. Eun-ha said that she refused right away, but Do Sang-muk told her that they should think again. Iron asked her what would be best for them if they put aside their pride and looked only at the facts. Eun-ha replied seriously that she needed to think about it. Eun-ha was sure that the Haenim were only after part of the Alliance's territory, and would eventually come to a truce, and the cult would not be able to take everything away from the Alliance. Eun-ha continued to say that the Alliance would never give up Gyeonggi, meaning the location of their fortress would be safe. According to Eun-ha, if they help Dujan win, they will be able to gain great influence in Namyangju. Eun-ha finished her explanation and asked Iron what he thought about it. Iron turned to leave, telling her to do as she wanted because he had already trusted her to make decisions. Iron headed for the exit, saying that he would just solve everything if problems arose in the end. He suggested that Eun-ha take a break for a cup of coffee. Eun-ha agreed with a grateful smile when she heard that he would wait while she changed into something comfortable. They took a table at the guild cafe in Namyangju. Iron pointed at the workers, noting that they were already getting used to life outside the battlefield. Iron took a sip of his coffee, noticing that the guild members' energy had become stronger, and Eun-ha confirmed this, explaining that they were hunting monsters. Iron said that they still had a lot to learn, and needed to be trained so that they could be useful. Eun-ha nodded at Iron's words that some mages from Arno would soon join the cult, and asked her to take care of them. Eun-ha sensed danger. Eun-ha stood up from her seat, asking Iron if she could move away, but Iron told her to stay, assuring her that he would come anyway. Iron continued to drink his coffee calmly as people entered the cafe. Do Sang-muk, surrounded by even more security, greeted Eun-ha, saying that they met again. Eun-ha asked Do Sang-muk what brought him here, saying that they had already discussed everything during the meeting. Do Sang-muk said that Namyangju originally belongs to the Chodong Guild, and he can go wherever he wants. Do Sang-muk glanced displeasedly at Iron. Iron, who had shown no interest in him, heard Do Sang-muk ask what he was doing here. Iron showed him the mug, saying that he was just drinking coffee, making Do Sang-muk angry again. Do Sang-muk reminded Iron of his words to watch his behavior. Iron looked at him, asking if Do Sang-muk wanted him to buy him some coffee too. Do Sang-muk was completely out of his mind when he heard Iron say that his daddy had cut off his pocket money. From Do Sang-muk's impact, the table broke the window and flew out into the street. Iron followed it with his eyes while drinking coffee. Do Sang-muk did not hold back his furious energy, telling Iron to take out his weapon. His guards also drew their swords as Do Sang-muk said that Iron had gone too far, and he could no longer turn a blind eye to it. Do Sang-muk looked at Iron with anger, promising to show him the rules of conduct in the world of martial arts. Eun-ha began to draw her sword, but Iron stopped her by sending a telepathic signal. Eun-ha was surprised to hear his voice in her head, but she didn't argue. Do Sang-muk saw Eun-ha put her sword back into its sheath, and interpreted it as consent from the guild leader. Do Sang-muk began naming his regalia again, turning to Iron. He said that he would let Iron deal the first 3 blows. Just as Do Sang-muk finished speaking, Iron punched him in the stomach. Do Sang-muk screamed, spitting to the side. Iron thanked Do Sang-muk for his concession, and at that very moment kicked him. Do Sang-muk flew into the opposite wall from the impact. Do Sang-muk's guards were stunned by what they saw. They immediately rushed to defend their leader, but Iron had already disappeared. Iron was at Do San-muk's side in an instant, his hand clasped around his neck. Iron said that he had one last blow left. Do San-muk's guards asked Iron who he was. Iron turned slightly towards them, not hiding his slight killing intent, and told them that now was not the time to ask about it. The security guard didn't understand why he said that, and the next moment the cafe worker knocked him out. The cafe workers knocked out all of Do San-muk's guards. Iron threw Do San-muk's unconscious body on the floor, indicating to take him to the Blood Demon's fortress. After some time, Do San-muk came to his senses and, opening his eyes, saw two silhouettes in front of him. Do San-muk didn't understand what was happening. He was tied to a chair in an unfamiliar place. Do Sang-muk looked at Yunha and Iron, who was calmly drinking coffee from a cup, asking what was wrong after hearing that it took him a long time to come to his senses. Do Sang-muk started a conversation with Yunha, telling her to let him go immediately. At the same moment, a weak blow hit him, cutting his clothes and the skin on his shoulder. Do San-muk screamed in sudden pain. Eunha, not holding back her killing intent, told him to shut up, as he was only still alive because the guild member, Iron, had a task for him. Do San-muk started to scold them, calling them scum. Iron asked curiously if they should have cut out his tongue, and Yunha immediately pointed her sword at him as if she was waiting for an order. Do San-muk yelled that he was sorry, not wanting to lose his tongue. Do San-muk's attention was drawn to the sword that was thrown to the floor. Iron drank coffee without holding back his murderous energy, and asked Do San-muk if he wanted to stay alive. Do San-muk was shocked and looked at the floor. On the floor in front of him lay the Hainam sword, which he couldn't help but recognize.